These last 3 years have been a dream come true for the Uzumaki Namikaze family and their closest friends. The parents, despite their demanding roles as the Hokage and clan head, always made sure to find time for their 4 bundles of joy. They were overjoyed that the villagers didn't hold a grudge against their children for the burden placed on them by Minato. Instead, they hailed them as the saviors of Konoha and treated them like royalty. This adoration led to their eldest son, Menma, developing a public persona of arrogance, acting as if he were Kami's gift to pathetic humans on Earth, while maintaining an innocent front for his parents. The 2 girls were also treated with similar reverence but lacked their brother's full-blown arrogance. They were undoubtedly bratty, but it was to be expected from the daughters of the Hokage and the head of one of Konoha's wealthiest clans. The only normal one among them was Naruto. The reason was simple: nobody outside of his immediate family, the Sannin, and the 2 former Hokages even knew of his existence. It wasn't because he was ignored by his family, not yet, at least, but because he didn't contain the power of the fox. It was ironic how the very people who had once called for the death of the 3 children who housed the beast now foolishly worshipped the ground they walked on. The Sannin were also actively involved in the children's upbringing. Whenever Jiraiya and Orochimaru were in the village, they made it a point to visit Tsunade and the Namikaze Uzumaki family. The Toad Sage spent most of his time with the 2 blonde children, Menma and Natsume. He often regaled them with tales of his and the Sannin's exploits in the last 2 great wars and his various travels. He couldn't share too many details, however, as their mother had already threatened to castrate him if her children turned out to be perverts. The Slug Princess felt a deep connection to Mito, having named her herself, and hoped she would one day become a great medicnin in honor of her grandmother. Surprisingly, Naruto and the Snake Sannin often conversed. Even the mad scientist enjoyed talking with the young, curious mind who always wanted to learn more about Orochimaru's travels, research, and new jutsu. He even wanted to play with his sword, the Kusanagi. The first time the boy held it, everyone nearly fainted from shock. Flashback: 3 years ago. The Sannin had just returned from the hospital with Tsunade. Both of them were interested in the first Hokage's body cells, which were found to have regenerative abilities. They were trying to replicate these results to create prosthetic limbs, which would help shinobi who had been taken out of the forces due to severe injuries and limb loss. This would surely help strengthen the village's forces. There was also a chance that some shinobi with earth and water affinities could even learn to use wood release like Yamato. The 2 of them made their way to the Uzumaki Namikaze household for dinner and to meet with the Hokage about continuing their research. They needed new machines from nations with better technology, like the Land of Snow. When they entered, they saw Jiraiya talking with Minato, who had Menma on his lap, while Kushina cooked dinner. The girls were asleep in a cradle next to Minato, and 1-year-old Naruto was crawling around the house. After dinner, the adults were seated in the living room. The 3 Jinchuriki were asleep, but Naruto was still crawling around. They were all deep in conversation when Tsunade gasped, her eyes wide with shock, staring at something. When the others asked what was wrong, she pointed behind Orochimaru, and everyone followed her gaze. What they saw left them in awe. Baby Naruto had just stood up on his wobbly legs and walked to the edge of the room where Orochimaru and Jiraiya had placed their belongings, including the sword of Kusanagi. Before Minato could rush to catch him if he fell, or Kushina could grab the camera, Naruto reached out to grab the sword, a blade that could severely harm anyone it deemed unworthy to touch. So far, only Orochimaru had been able to wield it. After Jiraiya, the fool, had tried to lift it, no one else had even attempted to, for fear of ending up in the hospital with second-degree burns from the sword's lightning chakra. They didn't want to see a baby suffer the same fate as the pervert, so they quickly tried to get him back, but it seemed Naruto was faster. What happened next shocked them. As Naruto grabbed the Kusanagi and lifted it as if it weighed nothing, the sword began to glow with a purple light and hum. Orochimaru was stunned to his core. Minato was the first to snap out of his daze and grab a camera to take a few photos. Kushina ran and scooped up Naruto, hugging him to death. Orochimaru went over, grabbed his sword, and looked at Naruto with a smirk and curious eyes. What in the world just happened? I thought that sword of yours fries the hands of anyone who touches it, Jiraiya exclaimed, asking his teammate what everyone else wanted to know. While that is the case for many people, it is not the complete truth. You see, the sword of Kusanagi was given to me by the Snake Elders when I became a Sannin after the Second Shinobi War. What people don't know is that the Kusanagi is a sentient blade, and it only allows those it finds worthy to even touch it. But that's not what intrigues me, Orochimaru said, pausing before he continued. When young Naruto picked up the blade, it gave off a purple glow and hummed. This is exactly what happened when I first touched the Kusanagi. At this, everyone's eyes widened. So, it seems the Kusanagi has chosen its next wielder. If anything were to ever happen to me, the blade will be transferred to young Naruto. After a few moments of silence, Kushina began laughing with Naruto in her arms, who looked at her with curiosity. She pointed a finger at the perverted sage and said, "My baby is more worthy than you, pervert. Take that." At this, everyone's sweat dropped at her antics. She then turned to Minato, who looked terrified but managed to stay still. Again, she pointed a finger at him and said, "See, Mina-kun, my baby is going to be a Kenjutsu master like his mother, Databane. I told you he took after me, but you didn't believe me. Now, the evidence is right in front of you." Minato could only give a nervous chuckle at his wife's behavior. The red-haired woman would have continued if not for Naruto saying something that brought tears to her eyes. "Kaa-chan," the blonde boy excitedly muttered as if he had just found a treasure chest. This made Minato and everyone else look at them with surprise, with Kushina crying a little while Naruto giggled. "And Naru-chan, what did you call me?" Kushina asked with a shaky voice. "Kaa-chan." Kaa-chan, the redhead in her arms replied with unmatched enthusiasm. Kushina did what any mother would. She started crying and hugged her son tightly. Everyone else smiled at the scene, and Minato decided to see if he could get his son to call him Tio-chan, but the kid completely ignored him. He could now be seen sitting in the corner with a storm cloud over his head, while Naruto giggled and played with his mother's hair. It was a good day for everyone present at the Uzumaki Namikaze household. Present time. The triplets were sitting with the Sunin while Kushina and Minato were out back in their private training ground. Minato was teaching Menma how to throw a kunao, and Kushina was practicing with her blade, Beniheim, the Crimson Princess. Menma kept trying to hit the target but couldn't get enough power to get close to the dummy. After a few more attempts, the boy finally lost it, and his frustration got the better of him. His eyes turned to slits, and a red chakra covered his right hand. Everyone present felt the Nine Tails chakra and immediately turned toward the boy. The boy threw the kunao with the Nine Tails chakra so hard that it left a hole in the center of the training dummy where the heart should be. However, due to his inexperience in circulating chakra through his body, he immediately lost consciousness. Minato moved forward and caught his son while Kushina brought Tsunade closer to check if he was alright. After using her diagnosis jutsu, Tsunade claimed that the kid was fine but was suffering from a backlash. Using the Nine Tails chakra without the necessary physique could be life-threatening, so he got off easy. After hearing that, Kushina and Minato shared a look and motion for the Sunin to join them in the living room. Minato quickly went ahead with Menma in his arms and laid him down in the kids' room, while Kushina assured her kids that their brother was okay and that they shouldn't worry about it before calling for a few umbu to take them to the park. With this out of the way, the pair made their way to the living room. The atmosphere in the living room was tense. Everyone was quiet, thinking about how to move forward. They were all absorbed in their own thoughts when Jiraiya decided to speak. "Well, at least this situation helps me address why I have been going back and forth to Mount Mayaboku for the past few weeks." "What do you mean, Jiraiya-sensei, and how does this relate to the situation at hand?" a curious Minato asked his sensei. "You see, Minato, the great toad sage, Gamamaru, has been seeing visions for the past few weeks of a new prophecy that might decide the fate of the entire shinobi world. And yesterday, the prophecy was finally complete, and he gave it to me. It says, a child born from a historic clan, equipped with the power of old, shall bring about a new dawn. If they are treated wrong, darkness shall engulf this world and beyond. I believe that it is one of your 3 kids who have the Nine Tails power within them." This was big. Everyone present in the living room was floored by this. But before they could celebrate, Orochimaru asked, "Are you certain it's one of the 3, or is it even their child this prophecy talks about for that matter?" It was a valid question, and everyone nodded at his reasoning. "Yes, Orokai team, I am certain about this. I mean, think about it, it says a child born from a historic clan. The kids are a part of the Uzumaki clan, then equipped with the power of old. I don't believe there is a power older than the tailed beasts, and these guys have the strongest one inside of them," the toad sage replied with excitement. Orochimaru wanted to say something, but Kushina beat him to the punch by exclaiming, "Did you hear that, Mina-kun? Our children could be the saviors of the world. I'm so proud of them, Tabane." "I agree, Kushi-chan. I believe we should begin training the kids after their birthday and controlling the Nine Tails chakra and in the shinobi arts as well. I suspect that Mito will have your special chakra, and Natsumai might have a high affinity for lightning chakra like me. I'm certain Menma does, too," the blonde Hokage replied with a smile. Even Tsunade decided that she would help train the kids along with Jiraiya. While this was going on, Orochimaru decided to address something that had slipped everyone else's mind. Excuse me for a second, but what about Naruto? You seem to have forgotten that you have 4 kids, the man asked sarcastically. This brought the adults down from their frenzy. Kushina and Minato looked ashamed that they had forgotten about their son. Tsunade looked sheepish since she had forgotten about him as well, but he wasn't that close to her so she didn't know him that well. As for Jiraiya, he didn't care. His personality didn't match Naruto's, as Naruto was a calm, observant, and quiet child, and well, Jiraiya was Jiraiya. That was the reason why the self-proclaimed super pervert adored Menma and Natsumai. They reminded him of his younger self, brash and loud. Even though he wasn't arrogant, when he began training with the toads and everyone started noticing his power, he became a little headstrong. However, compared to the 3 Jinchuriki of the 9 Tails, he could be considered a wallflower. Menma and Natsumai were arrogant and too loud for anyone's taste. Mito acted like royalty and only spoke to people with the same social standing as her and who weren't commoners. The only tolerable one was Naruto. He was everything a shinobi should be: cool, perceptive, and intelligent. Not only that, but the kid was also a genius. He had a photographic memory, and with his penchant for reading and highly perceptive eyes, he could easily be considered a prodigy. But of course, nobody knew that since he was extremely secretive. While he was close to his mother, he took the saying deception is a shinobi's best tool very seriously. "What about him?" the white-haired Sunan asked. "While he is their child and would be a splendid shinobi based solely on his lineage, he doesn't have anything special about him. He doesn't have the 9 tails within him. Compared to his siblings, his potential is nothing." This made both Kushina and Orochimaru frown. Kushina loved all of her children, and nobody was going to say anything bad about them. Orochimaru, well, he liked the kid. He was a lot better than his siblings and seemingly the only normal one among them. Minato was still thinking about how they should proceed now. "I can't believe I am saying this, but I agree with the pervert. The 3 who have the 9 tails shouldn't train with him. If an accident occurred during training, he could be gravely injured, and he doesn't have anything special to heal himself or save him," the busty blonde Sunan replied. Kushina was about to say something, but Minato decided to speak first. "I think we should start training the 3 after their birthday. We will train Naruto when he enters the academy at the age of 9. By that time, all of them would be able to control their chakra and anger well enough so there won't be a risk of any accidents occurring while training." "I'm sorry, Kushina, but Sensei and Tsunedo Bazan are right," the father replied with a sad expression on his face as he looked at his wife. Kushina was against this since she didn't want her baby boy to be left out, but nodded nonetheless. Still, she vowed to make it right when the time to train him came around. Throughout the whole ordeal, Orochimaru was silent, analyzing the situation. He knew that somehow Jiraiya would convince the others to his reasoning, so he didn't say anything. What he wanted to see was how Minato and Kushina would react to him insulting their son. He basically called him talentless. And when they didn't utter a word on it, he was deeply disappointed. He knew that they would ask him to be there as well, so before they could do so, he stated, "I'll help them with whatever they need, and I'll try to sand out their rough edges when I come by once a month. I'll be spending most of my time on missions and projects that I am currently working on since the Snake Elders want me to learn Sage Mode, so I'll be gone for a few years. However, unlike you lot, I'll also help Naruto if he needs my assistance with anything." After his rant, he left through the window. The other adults left in the room quickly began creating a schedule for the 3. What none of them noticed was a shadow of a person near the door who had heard everything. Naruto didn't like his siblings much. They treated him like a loser, while the shopkeepers and other adults in the town treated them like royalty and ignored him as if he were a stray dog. This also caused him to stay away from his siblings when they were at the park playing with their friends. Menma was well acquainted with Niji Hayaga, Suzuki Uchiha, and Kiba Inyazuka, and the 4 of them were good friends. His sisters usually hung out with Ino Yamanaka, Sakura Harino, and Hinata Hayaga. He never mixed well with any of them. Niji and Suzuki were very arrogant due to their clan status. Kiba was just like his older brother, so he didn't mix well with him. The Yamanaka and Harino girls were gossip queens and future fangirls, and Hinata was just too shy. One day, when he had tried playing with his brother and his friends, Naruto had been told to get lost while his brother stared at him with red eyes that had a slit going through them. After that day, he never spoke to his brother again. His sister Natsumi, much like their brother, called him a loser, while Mito treated him with indifference since she thought nothing of him. He always wondered why people treated his siblings like that and why he was always forgotten. He got the answer to both questions today. He had returned to his house after telling the Umbu he was sleepy. When he entered the house and was about to make his presence known, he heard what Jiraiya was saying. He was shocked to know that his siblings contained the 9 tails, but what made him feel sad was the way his godfather talked about him. So, he was nothing if he didn't have a fox sealed in his gut? But that's not what hurt him. The fact that neither of his parents, especially his beloved Kaa-chan, had rebuked him. He was glad that his uncle Orochimaru stood up for him, but the grief he felt was much greater. After the talk ended, he ran off to who knows where, with tears in his eyes. His respect for his parents diminished that day. He continued to wander around the village aimlessly, hearing murmurs from people calling him the other child of the Hokage. It annoyed him greatly. So, if he wasn't a Jinchuriki, he was nameless? If he wasn't a savior of Konoha, he was nameless? He was just the Hokage's son, and not Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze? Wrong. He would show all these people that he was Naruto and not nothing. As he was walking around, he realized he had entered a forest close to the ends of the clan district. He walked around for a few moments before he noticed a dense and heavy chakra signature nearby. This was another one of his secrets. While he had not unlocked his chakra yet, he could still sense the chakra signatures of people around him. If he focused enough, he could read their emotions as well. This one looked happy and at peace. When he made his way toward the signature, he landed in the middle of a lush green ground that was surrounded by countless trees and dense foliage all around it. He also found that the signature was coming from the other end of the field. "Hello, is anyone there?" the kid called out but got only silence as a response. Curiosity getting the better of him, he made his way toward the source and was shocked by his discovery. He'd stumbled upon a tombstone. It was no ordinary one, but rather a monument that declared, "Here lies the most awesome Hokage ever, Hashirama Senju." What? How can the first Hokage be buried here? "I thought he was buried at the Hokage cemetery," he thought to himself. He also found a necklace there, emitting the chakra he'd sensed earlier. It featured an azure gemstone that mirrored his eye color, flanked by 2 amethyst beads. A note was attached to it, which read, "To my successor, make the Senju clan proud and may it always remain glorious. I hope the will of fire burns brightly within you. Help Konoha prosper, Hashirama Senju." As Naruto was entranced by the note and necklace, he failed to notice a presence drawing near. When a voice spoke from behind him, he was startled. "Child, how did you get in here? More importantly, how did you even find this place?" Naruto fell backward onto the ground and quickly spun around to face a man with curious, dark red eyes. This encounter would set off a chain of events that would ultimately make the world know the name, Naruto Uzumaki Senju, apprentice and successor of Tobirama Senju. The Senju Compound. Tobirama Senju was relaxing in the garden of the Senju Compound, a place his brother had created so many years ago. He often missed his brother. While Hashirama could be an idiot and too carefree for his taste, Tobirama knew he loved his family and friends and would do anything for them. This was the very reason his brother had sought to end the clan wars and establish world peace, so that young children would no longer have to die before their lives had even truly begun, a fate that was unlike their younger brothers. This was also why he was heartbroken when all of the Senju, save for himself and Tsunade, had died in the 3 great wars. Even the infants were murdered in cold blood by shinobi from other villages. This was not the village his brother had dreamed of. Looking at the state of Konoha, he could only conclude that Madara had been right. He saw how the people in the village behaved and how little trust they had in themselves and their fellow shinobi. He knew the source of this was his ungrateful students and the fools on the civilian council. Even though he realized this now, there was little he could do. He wasn't the Hokage anymore. He had left that responsibility in the hands of Hiruzen, who, due to his pacifist nature and inability to make firm decisions, had done a terrible job. Now, it was Minato's turn. Tobirama knew how capable the blonde was, but he was easily swayed by those he loved or respected, especially the pervert Jiraiya. Why Hiruzen had wanted to make Minato Hokage was beyond him. He had nominated Orochimaru as the leading candidate, while Hiruzen had wanted Jiraiya. For weeks, the two had argued back and forth. Finally, they realized they could never choose either of them, as it would cause envy and resentment within the team. So, they turned to the younger generation. They knew both Fugaku and Minato were talented, but after the Third War, they decided on Minato, believing he could shape and improve the village as they hoped. But today, he was about to get a wake-up call that his decision could have been better. A few moments before Naruto found Hashirama's tomb, the silver-haired man had been working on a few seals to improve the village's defenses, using his sister-in-law Mito Uzumaki's notes. Suddenly, the left side of his workspace lit up with a bloodthirsty red glow. His eyes widened. How had someone entered the Senju Grove? Contrary to popular belief, his older brother, the first Hokage, wasn't buried in the shinobi graveyard. Hashirama had always loved his family and nature, and his dying wish was to be buried somewhere that included both. This led Tobirama to bury his brother's real body in the Senju Grove, a small forest Hashirama had created just outside the clan district. The grove symbolized the peace his brother had always yearned for. The variety of flowers, bushes, and huge, dense trees that surrounded the lush green field were all grown by his brother using his most prized possession, the wood release. Only Tobirama and Mito Uzumaki knew where Hashirama's real body was buried, a secret only they shared. He intended to keep it that way. This was why the area was surrounded by a barrier to prevent anyone from entering in a self-sustaining genjutsu that ran on nature energy, which not even the cursed Sharingan could see through. The barrier was created by his brother's late wife and was a masterpiece. It was a level 9 Uzumaki sealing barrier, so powerful that not even Konoha's best seal masters, the fourth Hokage, the self-proclaimed super pervert and Konoha's last Uzumaki, could decipher it. Authors note Uzumaki Fuinjutsu far outclasses the level of Konoha's seal masters. Even Kushina is not of that caliber because she left Uzushiyaga Corps before she could complete her training. A level 1 Uzumaki sealer is comparable to a normal level 3 sealer. Kushina only practiced until level 2 and then stopped. When she came to Konoha, she continued and reached the normal level of a seal master at level 10, which is somewhere between Uzumaki level 4 and 5, the same for Minato. Jiraiya and Orochimaru are also skilled but are only at level 8. Imagine Tobirama's surprise when he was alerted that someone had not only been able to see the grove but had also entered it, and it wasn't even a shinobi. It was just a child, probably 3 or 4 years old. Even if he was the Hokage's son, judging by his hair and eyes, there was no way a child could find something S-class shinobi couldn't. This made Tobirama incredibly curious about who this child was and what he could become. Keeping these thoughts in mind, he approached the boy and asked, "Child, how did you get in here? More importantly, how did you even find this place?" He watched with amusement as the child stumbled backward and landed on his butt, surprise and nervousness plastered on his face. While the boy stammered, trying to come up with a response, Tobirama observed him intently. He was wearing ordinary civilian clothes, nothing extravagant, unlike his siblings, whom he'd seen walking around the village as if they owned the place. His eyes were a little red, and his shirt looked a little wet, suggesting he had either been crying or doing heavy exercises, though he suspected the first option was more likely. He continued to observe the boy's behavior, and what he held in his hand made him lose his usually stoic composure for the second time. The child was holding his brother's necklace, the one he had left there in his memory, along with the letter his brother had him write on his deathbed and place on his tombstone. He was cut off from his thoughts when the child spoke nervously. "Sorry sir, I don't know how I got here. I just felt a chakra signature coming from this part of the forest and came to see who it was. I didn't know we weren't supposed to enter this place. I'll leave now if you wish. I apologize for coming here." Tobirama could tell he was a well-mannered child, but one thing he said intrigued the old ex-Hokage. "You said you could sense a chakra signature being emitted from here. Could you elaborate on that?" Sure. I mean, I don't know if it's normal or not, but when people are close to me, I can sense them, so I read about it and found out it's called chakra sensing. People who can do it are called sensors. But if I focus hard enough, I can sense your emotions as well." Tobirama was utterly amazed by the child's abilities. Even he, as a sensor, couldn't sense a person's emotions. He had unlocked his own abilities when he was about 10 years old, when his father had asked him and his brothers to join the clan wars. Just from the few words the child had spoken, he knew that he would grow up to be a fine shinobi who would make himself known throughout the elemental nations through his skill alone, not the deeds of his parents and relatives. He was still thinking about all this when he saw tear stains on the sides of the child's face. "Naruto, why are you here and not with your family? And forgive me, but I couldn't help but notice that you were crying. Is everything all right, child?" the silver-haired man asked. This made Naruto put his guard up, and he eyed the man suspiciously. He took a few steps back to create distance between them before addressing the man. "Sir, how do you know my name and why are you asking me all these questions? Who are you?" The man chuckled as he saw the child clenching his fists in front of his chest, trying to be intimidating. "Well, Naruto, your father is my successor, and your godmother is my grandniece. Can you guess my identity now?" the man answered, amused by his reaction. Naruto pieced everything together in his head, and his eyes widened as he realized the truth. "Oh wait, you're the second Hokage, Tobirama Senju, one of the Kami no Shinobi. They also call you Shinobi no Sujin." "I'm sorry for my rudeness, sir," the boy replied as he bowed to the man. The man simply chuckled at the boy's behavior and decided to address the elephant in the room. "Well, Naruto, what are you doing here and why are you not with your family?" Tobirama knew something was wrong from the boy's state. He guessed it had to do with his family, but he knew nothing beyond that. After looking at Tobirama for a few moments, Naruto decided to pour his heart out. He told the Senju everything, from the moment something went wrong with his brother while his father was teaching him how to throw a kunai, to the moment he ran out of his house after the bizarre revelation made in the living room. At the end of his emotional outburst, when he looked up to see the expression on his idol's face, he knew immediately that someone from his story would be in trouble, and he had a pretty good idea who it was. Tobirama was fuming on the inside. "Have those idiots lost their minds?" he thought to himself. "I knew that bigoted pervert was an idiot, but this is a whole new level of idiocy. And the fact that the boy's parents and Tsunade of all people agreed to his pathetic reasoning is even more troubling. I know how this will end. An innocent boy who could possibly be Konoha's strongest shinobi when he reaches adulthood will be made a laughingstock in front of the entire elemental nations. He will only serve as a means to create another rogue ninja, one who could possibly be the most threatening since Madara. No, I won't let this happen. I can't fail my brother." Tobirama had watched his brother transform from a hot-headed and childlike person to a quiet and calculated one. While many agreed the change was a good thing, he knew exactly why his brother had changed that way. One of the reasons was that he couldn't help his brother in all but blood, Madara Uchiha, when he needed it most. This had deeply hurt Hashirama, causing him to become isolated and change his personality, something that never sat well with either Mito or himself. After seeing his brother in that state, he made a vow to never abandon anyone in need of his guidance, even if they were an Uchiha. Seeing the teary-eyed boy in front of him, who was being made to feel like nothing by idiots over something he had no control over, made him ask the child something he never thought he would ask anyone, not after how his only other students had turned out. So, after giving it some more thought, he finally asked the question on his mind and presented the boy with an opportunity. "If your parents truly decide not to train you, would you like me to teach you as my apprentice?" After he asked his question, Tobirama watched as the boy's eyes widened. He quickly hid his shock and went into a thinking pose, as if he were contemplating whether to take the offer from one of the strongest shinobi the world had ever seen. Once again, he was amused by the boy's behavior. He seemed like a mixture of Hashirama and a young Madara, before he went insane. Naruto considered his idol's offer. He knew this was the opportunity of a lifetime, but he still hesitated. He thought his parents would go a step further and forbid him from training with Tobirama, and even he would realize that Naruto was nothing since he didn't have the Kyuubi's power. But when he weighed the pros and cons of the situation, the pros far outweighed the cons. The way he saw it, he had a lot to gain and very little to lose. So, he gave the man an accepting nod and bowed low in front of his new sensei to show his gratitude. Excellent. Now, I want you to understand that I am extremely brutal when training my students. Should you slack off, your training will end immediately, and believe me, I'll know if you do, the second Hokage responded. Naruto gave a swift nod to show he understood his words, and Tobirama continued, I'll train you in how to access your chakra and perfect your chakra control, as you're bound to have large reserves due to your Uzumaki and Senju lineage. This will help you mold it perfectly. We'll work on shuriken jutsu and ninjutsu based on your affinities, which we will find out later. We will also train your body and mind to perfection. You will have to find a taijutsu style that suits you, as my style was developed to complement my strengths, and I expect all my students to do the same. Until then, you will learn and master the basic academy fist style. Sarutobi also did the same until he found the monkey fist style from his summons. If you ever decide to learn fighting with weapons, you may ask for my sword style or find a style that complements your own. The Iron Country is usually a good place to look for something like this. My motto is simple to grasp yet 1,000 times more difficult to follow: mind, technique, body. This has been the rule I have lived by my entire life, and I expect you to follow it as well. If you do, you can rest assured that nobody will be able to intimidate you on the battlefield, even if there's a war going on. I should also tell you that while you are training with me, it is my job to make sure you are never outwitted by anyone, and your job is to ensure you would never be outwitted by anyone. Any questions? Naruto listened as the man explained what the training sessions would be like and what he needed to know. But one thing stood out to him, and he decided to address it. Sensei, you said that I have large chakra reserves because of both my Uzumaki and Senju lineage? How am I a Senju? Is it because Tsunade-sama is my father's aunt? Tobirama raised his eyebrows at the mention of Tsunade-sama and not Tsunade-bachin, which was what he had heard the Hokage's other children call his grandniece. But it seemed she had missed one, and if his current situation was anything to go by, it certainly wouldn't be her last. Regardless, he began to clarify his new apprentice's doubts. Well, you see, Naruto, you do have Senju genes, which are most likely latent. You are not a direct descendant of the Senju. The Uzumaki clan is a cousin clan of the Senju, so some genes within our bodies must be similar since we share a common ancestor. But it seems your Senju genes are somewhat dominant since you were able to enter this place. This place, Naruto, is called the Senju Grove. It was created by my elder brother, Hashirama Senju, using his prized ability, the wood release. He came here to be at peace, a dream he was never able to fulfill. After he passed away, my sister-in-law Mito Uzumaki and I buried his real body here and created a fake tomb at the cemetery to steer people away from his actual resting place. We also added multiple barriers to hide it, using a highly overpowered genjutsu that worked using seals and nature energy, and a barrier surrounding the entire grove that prevents people from entering. However, as a fail-safe, my sister-in-law also created another seal that covered the grove. That seal ensured that if a Senju with a pure heart ever faced a dilemma that could greatly affect his life, they would be able to go through the barrier, but they would have to locate it on their own. How she created such an advanced seal, I have no idea. The Uzumaki were greatly advanced when it came to sealing. Their prowess was unmatched, and even then, the most talented Uzumaki were only able to reach level 6 or 7 of the Uzumaki sealing arts. Mito Uzumaki was the only one who reached level 9. Even then, she still had 3 levels left to go through. Nobody knows what mysteries lie within the Uzumaki sealing arts. Even your mother isn't that advanced. Naruto could only nod while dazed. His ancestors were awesome. He knew his father and mother were great seal masters, but he doubted they could accomplish such feats. Now he definitely wanted to learn Fuinjutsu. He had read some books on the history of Uzushiagakur, the country his mother came from. His father had a couple of books on its history and how it was destroyed. It seemed someone as skilled as Mito Uzumaki had created a failsafe that, should Uzushio be destroyed or the clan wiped out, the entire island would seal itself off, preventing raiders from essentially looting their prized possessions. He was most certainly going to make a visit to his ancestral home and uncover the secrets of the Uzumaki. Tobirama watched the child's face, taking in everything, then continued to answer the second part of his question. You aren't related to Tsunade by blood. In fact, it's not a very happy story. The Sunin earned their title during the Second Great Shinobi War. It was at this time that Tsunade fell in love with a Konoha Jonin, a medicnin named Dan Kato, who shared her beliefs. They had both lost siblings in the first phase of the war due to the absence of a medic nin on their teams. Their siblings hadn't received immediate treatment and had passed away. Tsunade lost her brother Nawaki, who was my grandnephew, and Dan lost his sister Mia, a Jonin married to a Jonin named Arashi Namikaze, your paternal grandmother and grandfather. I believe your father was only 7 years old and had just entered the academy, and Shizun had just been born. Dan and Tsunade took care of them whenever they returned to Konoha from the front lines after their parents' deaths. However, one day Dan returned bloodied, and even though Tsunade was able to make it back to Konoha to heal him, the golden hours for his treatment had long passed. Not even her mystical palm technique could save him, and he passed away. After that day, Tsunade became a shell of her former self. She disappeared after the war for a few years, and when she returned, she could only be described as a broken woman, not the seasoned kunoichi she was thought to be. Soon after her return, she arrived at the Senju compound where I gave her a rather heated and stern lecture about her conduct. She soon started to improve, but something was still missing. That's when your Aunt Shizun decided to become her apprentice. This made her happy and her teammates were there for her. A few months after her return, she pleaded with the council to organize a medic program that would teach at least one person on each Konoha squad how to use medical ninjutsu, but it was shot down by the idiots on the civilian council and the elders. They stated they were warriors, not healers. This pissed her off, but it strengthened her resolve. She decided to make Shizun the best medic nin and to start a hospital with skilled doctors, which would help reduce casualties during war. It worked, but the death toll in the next war was still high. She was also the one who took care of your father and aunt even after Dan Kato passed away, which is why after he became Hokage, the first thing your father did was to allow Tsunade to start her medic corps. The council wasn't happy, but your father reminded them why he was chosen as Hokage. Naruto nodded in response, then asked another question. Wouldn't it be better to learn my mother's or father's fighting style? It's much better than the academy one. Then I can switch to a style that fits me better in the future if I find one. Normally that is what children of various clans are taught, but there are multiple flaws with that course of action. Your mother's style, the Whirlpool Fist, is extremely dangerous because it focuses on overpowering the opponent with multiple hits fueled by great power and speed, but it's still incomplete. The complete manuscript with all the sequences and moves has been lost in the ruins of Uzushiagakur. Unless you search the island, you'll always be using an incomplete style. He paused for a while before continuing. Your father's taijutsu style, the hummingbird stance, requires the body to move at extremely high speeds. The speeds required can only be achieved by conditioning your body through the extensive use of resistance seals, gravity seals, and heavy weights. These will help you achieve the agility and flexibility needed for this style as it focuses on countering or incapacitating your opponent at a rapid pace. If you start learning it now, it will stunt your growth. I'm willing to bet your father will only teach this to your brother or sisters after they graduate from the academy. Naruto, you must understand one thing. Even if something is better than what you have now, it's not guaranteed that it will be helpful to you or suit your needs. If you practice a seasoned fighting style now, you will have trouble switching to the one that was meant for you later on. You will be forced to watch yourself struggle simply because you were impatient. You must remember this: on the battlefield, no one will fear an opponent with thousands of jutsu in their arsenal. People will fear an opponent who has mastery over that one jutsu that could turn the tide in their favor. Your father is a prime example of that. While he has an affinity for multiple elements, he's not too fond of ninjutsu because of the time consumed to go through hand seals. But he ended the Third Great War using only 2 jutsu and taijutsu, the Hiraishin and the Reiznan. He can use those 2 effortlessly and the world fears him because of it. Does that answer your questions? The redhead nodded and silently vowed to make his new sensei proud. The two then began walking towards the Senju compound, where they could talk and get to know each other more. They found out they shared a common interest in books, not just jutsu books, but also books that could help them with their minds and assessing other people, like books on human psychology, body language, and anything else that might be of interest. Soon the sun set, and Tobirama decided he should check on his office, just in case he had forgotten something and to make sure everything was in order. When he came back, he saw the red ball of energy fast asleep with his head on the coffee table. He must have gotten tired after talking so much. He is still a child, after all, the man thought. He swiftly moved the child away from the coffee table and placed him on his back so he could carry him easily without waking him up. He walked out of his house and into the streets under the vermilion hue of the sky, making his way toward the Uzumaki Namikaze house. He would give them their child and inform them that the young man would be spending a lot of time with him since they had fun today and shared common interests, so they shouldn't worry if he was a little late from now on. Uzumaki Namikaze house. Kushina was pacing around the hallway. The conversation a few hours ago was definitely not one of her best moments in life. How could she look her son in the eye and say they were going to train his siblings, but not him? He would be heartbroken. Plus, the way Jiraiya was talking about her baby boy made her want to permanently separate the pervert from his tool. She was happy that the snake son stood up for her son, even when his parents they did not. She would definitely make it up to him when he joined the academy. She was broken out of her thoughts when the Toad and Slug Sunin entered the dining room with her husband, who was still in his Hokage outfit. Apparently, an Umbu team had returned from a particularly dangerous mission and wanted to report and get treated as soon as possible, so he had to visit his office. She called for her kids and was surprised to see only the three Jinchuriki come running down the stairs into the dining room. When she asked where her other son was, she was met with blank stares and question marks. That sent alarm bells off in her mind. "Minato, have you seen Naruto?" she asked her husband, who was finalizing the training schedule for the children with the two Sunin. "No, I haven't, Kushi-chan." "Why isn't he here?" the blonde Cage questioned. She was about to answer him when the doorbell rang. Kushina ran to the door to check if it was her son, but the sight that greeted her shocked her to her core. Outside her door was the Naidame Hokage, with his standard poker-faced expression, with her son sleeping comfortably on his back. That was something you don't see every day. She was too shocked to even notice that the rest of the adults had gathered behind her and were left gaping like fish. The man just gave them an amused smirk in response. Before they could question what the hell was going on, he stated, "I apologize for the intrusion. May I come in? It will be better for us to talk inside, and could you put young Naruto to bed? He seems to have tired himself out." This broke Kushina out of her astonishment, and she took her baby into her arms and checked him to see if he was hurt. After confirming he was alright, she made her way to his room to put him down for the night. She went into his room and was surprised to see that the only things decorating it were books and a poster of the Shodaime and Naidame Hokage. I guess he considers those two as idols. It will be much more difficult to tell him that we will not train him alongside his siblings if he shares the dream of being Hokage someday, Kushina thought with a sad smile. She tucked him in and then made her way toward the living room to discuss what happened. When she got there, she saw all the Sunin, including Orochimaru, who must have joined them while she was away, her husband, and the Naidame Hokage, who was sitting with his eyes closed, drinking tea. When she made her way toward them, she saw him open his eyes and begin speaking. "You see, I decided to take a walk in the park today and get out of the compound for a while. As I made my way toward the lakeside of the park, where not many people gather, I came across young Naruto, who seemed to be sitting by himself on a swing. And yes, it is the swing-kun from the flashbacks and talk no jutsu scenes, and throwing stones in the river. I recognized him and decided to greet him. When I made my way toward him, he turned around and looked at me suspiciously. When I asked him how he knew I was there, he said he could sense me, which intrigued me. After talking about sensors for a while, he realized I was the Naidame Hokage and began questioning me about certain events from my time as an active shinobi. After that, we discussed our common interests and, unsurprisingly, both of us said we enjoyed books. So, I brought him to the compound to talk more over some snacks and we played chess for some time. And I don't know anything about shogi, so I'll use chess only, after I taught him how to play. When I returned from the kitchen after checking on something, I found him sleeping on the coffee table. So, I carried him here." As the man finished his tale, many in the room were surprised. It is not every day that Tobirama Senju greets you, and the fact that he sounded pleased when talking about Naruto shows that the young redhead must have impressed him, which is an even bigger feat. Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Minato were greatly shocked since they didn't know Naruto liked books or that he was wise enough to hold a conversation with the smartest Hokage to have ever lived. Orochimaru just smirked since he knew that the kid was a lot smarter than his siblings. These guys were just idiots for not seeing it. Kushina was a bit proud of her son but was surprised she didn't know that much about him. The only things she knew were his favorite foods and what kind of clothes he liked. This bothered her. She extended a dinner invitation to Tobirama, and he graciously accepted. After dinner, when everyone was leaving, Tobirama dropped another bomb. "Tell Naruto that if he wants to play chess with me anytime, the doors of the Senju compound are open to him." This surprised them even more, but only Orochimaru thought something was wrong and decided to question the kid later, after he returned from his missions. The others had no idea how the world was soon going to be taken by storm. Training Year 1, almost 5-year-old Naruto. The next day, Naruto woke up and found his mother in the kitchen. While he was happy to see her, it wasn't the usual feeling he got. Maybe he was still angry at her since she didn't stand up for him when the old pervert insulted him. He greeted her and sat down quickly for breakfast. It looked like he had woken up early since his siblings weren't up yet. His mother smiled and gave him his breakfast. After he finished, he was about to go up to his room to read a book or something when his mother said, "Naruto-chan, Tobirama-sama told me to tell you that he enjoyed playing chess with you yesterday and if you want to play some more, he would be happy to indulge you." This confused him a little. When did he play chess with the old man? Then it clicked. Sensei must have not told them that he would be training me. I guess even he thought they might object to it and gave them a cover story. I guess I'll go see him in an hour. After an hour, he made his way toward the Senju compound. He didn't know which house his new sensei lived in, so he just decided to try and sense the old man out. He couldn't do much but managed to pick up a faint trail of chakra around one of the houses. As he reached the door, he was surprised to hear a voice behind him. "Well done. So, you managed to find my house using your sensing abilities, huh? Good, that is one thing we will train on this year. Follow me." When he turned to look at the person, he was greeted by the face of his idol, dressed in an elegant blue battle kimono. He motioned for him to follow him inside. When they reached the living room, he was surprised to see a stack of books. Tobirama told him to sit and then began explaining what they would do this year. Naruto, if I'm not wrong, you're about to turn 5 in a month, right? Naruto nodded. Okay, you see, a child develops their chakra coils by age 6, which is why the age of entering the academy used to be 6 during our time. Your father decided to increase the age to 9 since he wanted the genin to be more prepared and not lose valuable shinobi who pass away on their first mission outside the village. I won't be training you in anything major until you are 6 years old, but the training we will do this year will also help you. These books contain information on body language, human psychology, battle tactics, and some other concepts that will help you read any human like an open book. Even though I am adept at fighting, my keen intellect gave me an edge and allowed me to create strategies that no one could decipher or intercept at any time. Even during negotiations, if you are able to back the person in front of you into a corner simply by analyzing them, you might be able to get your share without even having to bargain. Plus, it improves your intellectual capacity. This, along with chess, will allow you to build up your chakra and make it more potent. How does that happen? You see, chakra is made up of 2 aspects that make up your stamina. One is your physical energy, which is the life energy collected from your body cells and can be improved and utilized through exercise and training your body. The other is your spiritual energy, which is derived from the mind's consciousness and can be increased by studying, meditation, and experience gained over time. We will work on your physical energy later on when your coils are fully developed. By then, I expect you to be a master of the mind. You can choose any book to read first, but read this one last. The book he was talking about was titled Art of Containing Your Emotions. He raised an eyebrow and looked toward Tobirama for an explanation. If you don't showcase your emotions, it will prevent people from using them against you. Plus, it helps you keep a cool head during different situations. How do you think I survived talking to the perverted sage? Naruto laughed at his sensei's words but nodded regardless. And so, the training of the young Uzumaki began. A few months into their training, the two were spotted by Orochimaru, who came to bid farewell to the kid since he was going to learn sage mode from the snakes of Ryuuki Cave. He explained that since they don't have the luxury of the toad oil, their progress would be slower, and he would be gone for a few years. Naruto was saddened by this since the man was good to him and out of all the 3 Sannin, he was the only one who regarded Naruto properly. Tobirama also informed Orochimaru about Naruto's situation, which proved to be true, and that his parents only trained his siblings. Orochimaru was happy that Naruto would be in capable hands while he was gone and also gave him some scrolls on a few ninjutsu that he thought he would like. He also gave him books on seals that he owned to get him started on the basic ones. Orochimaru left Konoha a few hours later and promised that he would return after a few years to check on Naruto's progress and even train him a little himself. Naruto's early life. As Naruto had foreseen, his parents began to slowly but surely distance themselves from him, often forgetting about his presence. He recognized that even small oversights, like not calling him for a meal, were signs of what was to come, and so he braced himself for the inevitable break in their relationship if their neglectful behavior persisted. With his eidetic memory, he was able to absorb a seemingly endless stream of knowledge, devouring one book after another with the effortless speed of a sea breeze. After completing all the required reading from Tobirama, he began seeking out new books in both the Konoha Public Library and his family's private collection. His mental acuity was continually sharpening, and his battle strategies were becoming more refined. At this point, he was consistently winning 4 out of every 10 chess games he played against Tobirama, a feat that astounded the older man. Training year 2, Naruto is almost 6 years old. A week had passed since the Hokage children celebrated their birthday. To no one's surprise, only a handful of people remembered the 4th child, Naruto, including Tobirama, Orochimaru, who sent a gift via summon, and his mother, Kushina Uzumaki. Naruto's home life had deteriorated further, with his parents rarely summoning him. They would only occasionally ask if he wanted to join them for dinner and would often leave him home alone when they went out. On a more positive note, Tobirama initiated Naruto's physical training and permitted him to access his chakra for the very first time. The sheer power and density of the boy's chakra were so immense that they cracked the training ground in the Senju compound and uprooted several trees. Tobirama was left speechless by the child's raw power, a force he hadn't seen since the death of his brother. The purple energy swirling around Naruto's body reminded Tobirama of the only time his brother had ever been truly enraged, when their younger brothers, Itama and Kawurama, were killed during the war against the Uchiha. This tragic event ignited Tobirama's deep-seated hatred for the Uchiha, as he had witnessed Hashirama mercilessly slaughter the murderers of their brothers, a viciousness that made the entire Uchiha clan tremble with fear. Naruto also made significant strides in Fuinjutsu, guided by his sensei and notes left behind by Mito Uzumaki in the Senju library. His progress to level 5 in just 1 year left Tobirama completely floored. After seeing his natural talent for seals, Tobirama had Naruto create extra storage seals, explosive tags, and weight seals. This also provided Naruto with a source of income, as he sold the seals to shinobi gear shops with Tobirama's help. Since his parents had not purchased anything for him this year, aside from the red hoodie his mother gave him as a gift, this money allowed him to buy new calligraphy kits, scrolls, books, kunao sets, and other essential supplies. His sensing abilities had also improved by leaps and bounds. While he wasn't at Tobirama's level where he could sense shinobi in other countries, he could effortlessly sense people as far as the fire capital. With enough concentration, he could cover the entire country. His training for the year focused on two key areas, physical and chakra training. For his physical regimen, Tobirama had him run around the Senju training grounds for 30 minutes with weight seals on his legs, torso, and arms. These seals were specially designed by Mito Uzumaki to prevent stunting a child's growth. They also included a feature that allowed him to change the weight after consulting with Tobirama. The regimen also included a series of basic exercises like push UPS, pull UPS, squats, lunges, planks, and burpees to condition his body. After unlocking his chakra, Tobirama began teaching him about control and how it would help him manage the power of his jutsus. They started with basic chakra control exercises like tree walking, water walking, and leaf concentration, which Naruto mastered in a month, once again surprising Tobirama. Next, they moved on to more complex exercises like kunao balancing and waterfall walking. After he mastered these, Tobirama decided to have him perform 2 different chakra control exercises simultaneously. He also began teaching him the 3 academy jutsus. Although he didn't agree with the simplicity of the academy curriculum and wished to teach more advanced techniques, he was unable to do so. Naruto was able to perform the Henjin Kawarimi no Jutsu with ease but struggled with the Bunshin. After improving his chakra control, he was able to create a few clones, but Tobirama instructed him to continue until he could effortlessly create at least 50, as it would serve as an excellent chakra control exercise. The end result of the year was extremely productive, and Naruto was eager to begin his ninjutsu training the following year. Training year 3, Naruto is almost 7 years old. Once again, his parents had only been paying attention to the saviors of Konoha. From what he could tell, his sisters had only been practicing Kyuubi chakra control and basic chakra management. It turned out that his sisters could form the Uzumaki chakra chains using the unique Uzumaki chakra, a skill he later discovered he could also perform. With his superior control, he was able to shape his chains into various forms like a lance or a shield. He and Tobirama also began working on ninjutsu after uncovering his elemental affinities. This discovery brought joy to his sensei, though he felt as if his heart would give out from all the surprises. Apparently, Naruto had an affinity for all 4 of the basic elements, excluding fire. When he used chakra paper, it split into 4 pieces. The first piece was soaked with water in seconds before it vanished as raindrops fell to the ground. The second piece became dusty, but when it hit the ground, a massive crack formed on the surface, indicating another strong affinity. Surprisingly, the third piece did not just wrinkle as it usually would for a lightning affinity. Instead, black lightning pulsed through the paper as it caught fire. The lightning bolts also struck the ground, burning the grass. The fourth piece was sliced into countless fragments, to the point that even Tobirama's trained and observant eyes had difficulty counting them. Tobirama was overjoyed, as he could finally teach someone his own techniques, since only he had a similar affinity to water and a strong lightning affinity, though not as powerful as Naruto's. From that day on, he had Naruto focus on elemental manipulation after teaching him the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. He also had Naruto copy some jutsus from the Hokage and Uzumaki libraries that he found beneficial. He copied all the jutsus that suited his style and affinities, along with the Reiznan. When Tobirama asked why he didn't choose the High Reishin, his response was, "While it's a great technique, I have no intention of using markers, as they can be easily removed. And one mistake could have serious consequences, like if I teleported next to an enemy and they were a sensor, they could easily detect me and block my attack or kill me if I'm not careful. Space-time ninjutsu is extremely dangerous, and I'll avoid it unless I can come up with a safer alternative." Tobirama found the logic in his words. He had never considered the possibility of fighting against a censor, as they were incredibly rare during his time. Nonetheless, he began instructing Naruto in ninjutsu as well. They also started perfecting the academy style. His mastery of such a simple stance against professional shinobi was always a surprise to onlookers. His physical strength had improved as well. Mentally, he was now an even match for Tobirama in chess, with most of their games ending in a draw and only an occasional win for either of them. He also made his first friend. One day, after Tobirama gave him a break for beating him in chess, he decided to explore the village and find something to do. When he reached a lake on the edge of the village, he saw a girl with jet black hair and red eyes. She was attempting to perform the Great Fireball Jutsu, but she couldn't create a large enough fireball. He decided to approach her to see what she was doing. After talking to her, he learned her name was Kagaya Uchiha, the daughter of the clan head Fugaku Uchiha and the twin sister of Duckbutt Suzuki. It seemed she had the same problem as him. Her family and father constantly compared her to her brothers, who were able to perform the fireball at her age. Her eyes had also changed from their usual black to a dark red hue due to some mutation. This left her father unsure if she would be able to awaken the Sharingan, as the mutation had directly affected her eye genes, and there was a chance she wouldn't be able to activate her clan's famous dojutsu. Naruto found her to be quite similar to himself and told her about his own struggles. He gave her new confidence, telling her not to give up and to keep trying. He said that if she could achieve everything her brothers Itachi and Sasuke couldn't, she would truly be able to prove herself. This made Kagaya extremely happy that someone other than her mother and brother had faith in her. He also showed her a few chakra control exercises to help improve her chakra flow and learn jutsus. This brought her to tears. They also made a promise to achieve their dreams and support each other throughout their journey. They began meeting every other day at the same spot to talk and spend time together, marking the beginning of a beautiful relationship. He also had a conversation with Tobirama about this the other day. Flashback. The teacher-student duo was once again engrossed in a game of chess when Naruto said, "I met this girl yesterday," and Uchiha. He moved his piece and watched as Tobirama raised an eyebrow at his statement. It was no secret that Tobirama Senju had a deep hatred for the Uchiha, but no one knew the real reason. It couldn't have just been the clan wars, since both sides killed people from the opposing clan, so what actually happened? And you're telling me this because, the man asked as he moved his knight across the board. Because I want to know what happened between the Senju and the Uchiha and the truth about the night of the Kyuubi's attack. I've read the general statements that Hokage-sama, he refused to call them mom and dad, recorded in his library, and some things just don't add up. Tobirama closed his eyes and sighed before explaining, when I was a child and the village had not yet been formed, clans ruled over the territories. One day, a feud over territory between the Senju and Uchiha escalated into a fight. This led to a massacre for both sides, as many were killed. This time became known as the clan war period. When my brothers and I were young and our father decided we should fight as well, we all began training and improving our shinobi arts. However, no matter how good we were, my younger brothers, Itama and Kawarama, were murdered on their second day on the battlefield. The reason for my hatred toward the Uchiha is that when they killed my brothers, they laughed as they did it and continued disfiguring their bodies even after their deaths. This is what sparked my hatred for them. It was also the only time my brother, Hashirama, killed someone in cold blood with absolute ruthlessness and enjoyed it. Even I have killed many Uchiha, but I never took pleasure in it. That was the difference between us and them, and that is why I despise them. The night the Kyuubi attacked, your mother was in labor. When you and your siblings were born, a masked man came in and threatened to kill you if Minato did not move away from your mother, who was the previous Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, chosen by Mitone to hold the Kyuubi after her. After throwing you in the air, he escaped with Kushina while your father was saving you and your siblings. He then summoned the Kyuubi and attacked the village. You know the rest of the story. After hearing this, Naruto only hummed as he continued to play against his sensei. Then he made a request to Tobirama that no one else would. You and I both know I'll probably leave the village for a few years to travel and find some things to help me grow. When that happens, I want you to look after Kagaya and help her if she asks you. She holds you in high regard and admires you a lot as a shinobi. I want you to give her a chance, even if she is an Uchiha. Checkmate. Tobirama looked at his student with a stoic expression, seeing a similar face staring back. While he was proud that Naruto had completely masked his emotions, it frustrated him that he couldn't read his student's feelings. Fine, I will do it. If you believe in her abilities and her character, then I am willing to accept your request. If she comes to me for help, I will assist her in whatever she needs. Naruto let out a small smile and thanked his sensei before leaving. Present time. While all of this was happening, the highlight of the year was Tobirama's offer to him. Flashback. It was Naruto's birthday, and it seemed his parents had forgotten, as they were only fussing over the other kids. His siblings had become even worse, calling him a loser every time they ran into each other, as they received special treatment from the Hokage and Lady Namikaze. He was positive that besides the Namikazes, the Sunin, Kagaya, and Tobirama, no one knew he existed. So, without any sadness, he made his way to the Senju compound for his training. When he arrived, he was surprised to see Tobirama's note, asking him to come to the house. So, he went there. When he entered the living room, he was greeted by Tobirama and told to sit on the cushion in front of him. When he sat down and asked what was going on, Tobirama dropped a bombshell. First, happy birthday, Naruto. As a gift, I've decided to give you some scrolls on water and lightning jutsus that I personally created. But that's not why I called you here. He paused for a moment before saying, Naruto, I'm not happy with the way your parents are treating you. I also know that they forgot about your birthday, since I saw Tsunade pick up 3 gifts, not 4. Which is why I wanted to make you an offer. If you feel you are done with the injustice from your parents and siblings, I would like to blood adopt you as my heir and you would become Naruto Senju. Would that be okay with you? This made Naruto's eyes widen with shock before they returned to their unreadable expression. He considered the offer, and it actually made sense. Over the years, he had come to see his sensei as a grandfather figure who would guide him to the best of his ability. His parents, on the other hand, had been a complete disappointment. While he didn't hate them, he was hurt by their actions. Even when he asked if he could train with them, they would look away and say later. He was a master at reading people, so he knew they were lying and he wouldn't be hoping to make up with them anytime soon. If they wanted to live in their fairy tale world by pushing him away, he was fine with that. He had a new family now. I accept. But I want to keep my Uzumaki name if that's alright with you. My ancestors were warriors who sacrificed their lives to prevent other countries from taking their land, even though they were outnumbered and knew they would be defeated. I'm proud to be their descendant and would like to honor their sacrifice by remaining an Uzumaki in name at least. This made Tobirama give his student a genuine smile. He was proud of the way Naruto thought and worked, and even happier that he had him as a student and now an heir if anything happened to him. He was proud to call the child his surrogate grandson. He was the only one who could lead the Senju clan to greatness and make Konoha as powerful as it was during his reign as Hokage. Present time training year 4, Naruto is almost 8 now. It's been a year since Tobirama made his offer. Since then, Naruto has been learning everything about politics. He has advanced to level 9 in Fuinjutsu and is about to start level 10, which will make him just as skilled as his parents in sealing. He has also been thinking about visiting Uzushio and attempting to unlock the seal on the island. This would give him a chance to see his ancestors' hometown and provide him with jutsu scrolls, books, and weapons that would help him in his journey. Refining skills. Over the past year, he's focused solely on refining the jutsu he's learned. He's honed his skills to the point where he can replicate the Yondaime Reikage speed with his own version of Raiten no Yoroi, lightning armor, the only difference being his body is covered in black lightning. With wind, he can envelop himself in chakra to achieve flight. With earth, he can use earth chakra to fortify his body, which increases the impact of his attacks, and with water, he can create water from nothing by using the atmosphere's moisture. He can also now perform most of his jutsu using only 3 hand seals or less. His physical prowess has developed to the point where he has the physique of a seasoned fighter. His height is also quite tall for his age. His chakra reserves have expanded to the point where they could rival Shukaku, the one-tailed beast. This also meant he had to learn how to control his chakra as well. This proved to be a significant challenge for him, but he managed to overcome it nonetheless. Naruto and Kaguya had been growing closer. Kaguya respected him after she learned about his past and was thrilled when she found out Tobirama Senju, her idol, had agreed to help her with any problems she might face. She kissed Naruto on the cheek for this and gave him a huge bear hug. This led to both of them blushing and not looking at each other for a few minutes. She had also progressed in the shinobi arts. She had mastered the fireball technique and improved her chakra control to extremely high levels. After they checked her affinity, they were astonished to find she had 3 different ones: fire, wind, and earth. This meant she could learn the fabled dust release, a technique practiced by the Sandaime Tsuchikage of IWA. This, combined with her Sharingan, if she ever awakens it, will make her a formidable kunoichi. He told her to keep it a secret because if someone like Danzo, who wants to take advantage of her, found out, she would be turned into a weapon, an emotionless idiot who only follows orders. She didn't want that to happen, so she agreed to keep it a secret but decided to tell her mother, as they both knew she wouldn't say a word to anyone. Orochimaru was also said to be returning the following week, according to a letter he wrote, so Naruto was happy since he would meet a person he respects and admires after almost 3 or 4 years. Everything was going well until today, a day of celebration and betrayal. Today, on Naruto's birthday, a grand party was being held at the Uzumaki Namikaze residence for the saviors of Konoha, just like the previous year. The only difference was that this time, both shinobi and civilians had made an appearance. Everyone was congratulating the family for the deeds their children had done and well-wishing them for their birthday. The 3 brats were showered with countless gifts. But the highlight of the event were the gifts from 2 of the Sunin. Jiraiya presented Menma and Natsumi with the Toad contract, which left people shocked since they knew how powerful that contract was. Tsunade offered Mito the Slug contract, which again left the people wide-eyed since they knew that contract was only meant for people whom the Slug Princess chooses as an apprentice. This again left people shaking with envy. But the next thing the Hokage and his wife said unknowingly changed the fate of their family. "Everyone, we would like to make an announcement," Minato began, holding Kushina's hand as they both smiled at the people present. "We have decided that Natsumi will be the clan heir for the Namikaze clan while Mito will be the clan heir for the Uzumaki clan. I'll personally be training Menma so that when the time comes for me to retire, he will be there to take the hat from me and lead the village." At this, the entire crowd went wild. All the clan heads, their heirs, and civilians were happy for them, except Mikato and Kaguya. They both knew what happens when the clan heir is removed without a valid reason, and in the case of multiple clans, the second eldest is the heir for one of the clans. They knew who the eldest of the triplets was and looked for him to see his face. The sight they were greeted by left their hearts broken, and tears began forming in Kaguya's eyes. The redhead in question looked on with a little bit of hurt in his eyes. His usually stoic expression shattered, only to be replaced by an emotionless mask. He saw his former parents hug his siblings and could only stare at them from afar. Without wasting any time, he left from one of the windows in the kitchen. He needed to clear his mind, and only Tobirama could help him do it. A new path. Senju compound. It was pretty late in the night, and Tobirama was preparing to head for bed since he asked Naruto to start level 10 and he wanted to monitor his progress. When he was about to switch the light off for the night, the doorbell rang. He was surprised that someone wanted to come here this late, but he had a hunch that whatever it was not good. And he was proven right when an emotionless Naruto stood before him with his hair shadowing his eyes. Naruto came in and told Tobirama exactly what happened a few moments before. Even he was shocked that Minato and Kushina could be that thoughtless. But Naruto's next statement surprised him even more, but he was wearing a shit-eating grin in his mind. Do it. Blood adopt me. I am not a Namikaze anymore, only an Uzumaki, but that is also only a name. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze is now dead, let the world know the power of Naruto Uzumaki Senju. When the redhead said this, his eyes were burning with a new fire that made Tobirama smirk. He got up and guided Naruto to the basement below Tobirama's house. When they reached down there, Naruto was surprised to see a hospital bed down there with multiple freezers, refrigerators, bookshelves, and a table. It looked like someone had walked into a doctor's clinic. The only source of light down there were multiple lanterns that were lined up on the wall. Tobirama motioned for Naruto to go and lie down on the bed and to take off his shirt while he began rummaging through the freezer, looking for something. After a few moments, he came out holding a small vial containing a blue serum. When Naruto quirked his eyebrows at him, he began explaining, during the clan wars, many of our clansmen lost their lives. Hence, to increase the numbers of our clan and also to help Senju women who wanted to adopt kids since they were infertile or an accident had occurred damaging them, but they still wanted a child, my mother, Ika Senju, developed this serum. When the blood of a pure-blooded Senju is added to it and it is injected directly into a person's heart, it helps change their DNA to that of at least a half Senju. In your case, you already have latent Senju genes due to you being a descendant of the royal family of the Uzumaki clan, hence it will help make those genes more dominant. Any questions? Yes, why is there no mention of your mother anywhere in the Konoha records? If she developed this serum, surely she must be an exceptional scientist and possibly a great medic nin. My mother was one of the greatest med nins of all time since she was armed with the Senju bloodline. The reason why nobody knows about her is because she never joined the front lines, she just wanted to help others, Tobirama replied as he began taking some serum into a syringe. The reason why people don't know her is also because if her research comes to light, other secrets such as our bloodline, which you are going to get, would be exposed. Naruto only nodded before he caught on to the last part. Wait, what dash was all he could say before Tobirama stabbed him with the syringe right in the center of his chest, and he blacked out. And now when he awakens, the story of Naruto Uzumaki Senju will begin. A transformation. Pain. That is the first thing the new Senju felt when his eyes fluttered open and he regained consciousness. Groaning, he turned his head to locate his sensei. When he tried moving, a hand pressed against his chest and pushed him back on the bed. Looking for the culprit, he turned around to see his sensei's expressionless face staring back at him, betraying no emotion whatsoever. Stay down. Rest for a while. Your body has gone through changes at a cellular level, so you will be a bit uncoordinated and graceless for some time, the silver-haired man stated. Before Naruto could protest, he raised his hand, telling him to shut up and listen. He walked towards the other side of the room and picked up a few papers from the table. He returned and sat in a chair beside Naruto and went through the papers, making Naruto's eye twitch in annoyance. He silently browsed through the papers before turning towards the impatient redhead and saying, "The serum has worked perfectly. You were asleep for 4 hours. I managed to collect a blood sample of yours before the serum's effects took place, and I have also tested a recent sample of your blood, after the serum was injected. It appears as though your Senju genes have replaced your Namikaze genes, which were previously recessive to your dominant Uzumaki traits. Now it seems as though your Senju and Uzumaki blood have balanced each other out, making you 50% Uzumaki, 49% Senju, and 1% Namikaze. Your chakra has become more potent than before, and it seems to have been stabilized, as it is more controlled and less chaotic. Your chakra reserves have increased once again, and I can honestly say I have never seen a human with this much chakra in all my life as a shinobi. Even my brother didn't have this much chakra, despite him being a pure-blooded Senju. Aside from that, you also have a few physical changes. You seem to have acquired the body strength and longevity of a Senju. You might have better eyesight since all Senjus do have better eyesight than most. Your muscle fibers have become denser and seem to have grown in size. Your bones are much more durable than before. You have also gained a few inches in height, making you 5 feet 3 inches if I am not mistaken, compared to your previous 4 feet 11 inches. You also have a few strands of silver sticking out from your red hair. Your right eye has also changed color from blue to red. Naruto was surprised by the revelation. He tried getting up, with a helping hand from the old man, and walked to the mirror beside the shelf. Looks like Tobirama went shopping when he was asleep. True to his sensei's word, there were significant changes in his appearance. He was taller, more muscular, but not the bulky kind. His hair was less spiky than before but stood out more. A few silver streaks could be seen amidst the red hair, but the greatest change were his eyes. His left eye was the same ice-cold blue that he had grown accustomed to seeing for the past 4 years. His right eye, on the other hand, had turned a blood red, much darker than Tobirama's. They seemed to give a bloodthirsty crimson glow, which made both him and Tobirama shiver at the sight. He could even see the slightest twitch of muscle his body made, proving that he did have better eyesight now. At the end, however, he was happy with the changes. It brought him closer to the man he looked up to, both as a role model and a surrogate grandfather. I look good. I feel good as well. I believe I will have to work on my control again, but all in all the changes are good for me. Thanks for everything, Tobirama-jiji. I promise to make you proud and I vow to make the Senju clan great again, Naruto said with conviction as he looked at Tobirama and bowed down to his sensei and now grandfather in blood as well. A legacy embraced. Tobirama was shocked when he called him Jiji. He never thought someone would call him that after Noeke passed away. Tsunade always called him Aji-sama, with respect. While he was happy, she respected him. It wasn't the same as Noeke. Now here was Naruto, a child who he had come to see as his own grandson, someone who looked extremely similar to his deceased grandnephew, calling him the same way he did. It warmed his heart, and for the first time in years, Tobirama gave a genuine smile, not the smirk he was famous for. He now knew that his decision to take Naruto as an apprentice that day was one of the best decisions he had ever made. He was the only one capable of taking the Senju clan to great heights, heights that not even his brother could take the clan to. In his mind, he made a decision that would change the course of the world. Naruto, I am extremely proud of the man you have become. As a teacher, I have watched how you have turned from a small boy who only wanted to be special in the eyes of his loved ones to the young man I now see before me, oozing power, charisma, and determination. It makes my chest fill with pride and happiness. Well done, grandson, the silver-haired man replied. It was now Naruto's turn to be surprised. The Nidaime Hokage, his idol, his teacher, and one of the few people who ever believed in him and never thought of him as nothing, had now proclaimed him as his grandson. He couldn't hold back anymore, and tears began leaking out from his eyes. He bowed his head down since he didn't want the old man to see him this way. Tobirama saw this and did something nobody ever thought he would do. He crouched low and hugged him. Even Naruto hugged him back and began crying freely on his shoulder. It was a good moment between a grandfather and grandson. After the whole ordeal was over, Tobirama decided to inform Naruto of his decision. Naruto, you have proven to be a Senju in both blood and values. So, I have decided that as my heir, you will be granted the bloodline of the Senju, the oldest bloodline in the history of mankind. You have proven yourself worthy after all. Are you ready to inherit the will of our ancestors? This made Naruto lose his footing a bit and he wobbled as he walked. Shock was evident on his face. He was going to ask him about the Senju bloodline, but he didn't know that Tobirama would allow him to inherit the bloodline as well. Throughout the elemental nations, nobody ever knew that the Senju clan possessed a bloodline. There had been rumors behind the unusual strength being a bloodline, but that was shot down since it was recorded that many Senjus were weaker than Uchiha when the two clans went up against each other during the clan wars. This intrigued him even more. He looked towards Tobirama with a fire in his eyes and nodded. Tobirama smirked and ushered him to follow him towards the wall on the other side of the bed. Once they reached in front of it, Tobirama used a kunai to slice up his finger a bit and traced a vertical line of blood from the top of the wall where it touched the ceiling, to the point where it met the ground at the very bottom of the wall. Naruto was confused as he watched the man stain the wall with his blood, but it soon vanished and was replaced with a look of awe on the Senju heir's face as multiple seals appeared on the surface of the wall before the line of blood glowed and a screeching sound was heard as the wall parted to give way to a secret passage. This certainly was impressive. While he could create blood seals, he knew that they were mostly only good for preventing anyone unwanted inside a clan compound or to be used for passing on messages that contained sensitive information. This was an interesting use. With a thud, the wall divided, and the Senju duo made their way through a narrow and dimly lit, 50-foot-long corridor before stopping in front of a black metal door that had the Senju crest on it. After halting, Tobirama turned towards his apprentice and said, "This is it, Naruto. After this, there is no going back. After this, you will effectively stop being a Namikaze and become only a Senju. After this, you will have to work constantly to build up your techniques once again. After this, you will have to prevent anyone from discovering the secret of the Senju clan. Are you still wanting to do this?" Naruto understood that whatever was beyond that door was more important to the Senju clan than they would be willing to either give their life or take the life of everyone else to ensure it stays hidden and not known to the elemental nations. Now that just made him more intrigued about it. He saw that his mentor was only looking out for his safety, so to ease his worries he stated, "When I walked through the main door today, I knew that my life was going to change drastically. I am honored that you saw me worthy of inheriting our clan's prized possession, and I am willing to go through every trial known to man to make sure that I am worthy of such a gift. I'll also make sure that no one in the entire world shall ever learn about the existence of our bloodline from me. This I swear on my life and honor as a member of the Senju clan and as a shinobi." Tobirama just stood there, looking at his grandson with pride evident in his eyes. He was proud of the man Naruto had become and the contribution he had in the child's development. He smiled at Naruto before going through multiple hand signs and ended at the tiger hand sign. The two men watched as the clan crest on the door glowed before the door swung open, revealing the secret to the Senju bloodline. The chamber before him could have been mistaken for a blood-soaked training ground. It was a circular space, 30 by 30 feet in diameter and 15 feet high, seemingly constructed from granite. Large torches illuminated the entire area, with multiple marble pillars supporting the chamber and several chairs arranged in a semicircle. A massive Senju clan crest was etched in the center of the floor, emanating a divine, golden-white glow. Along the side walls were multiple portraits of what he presumed were his Senju ancestors who had obtained this bloodline, as he could even spot a portrait of Tobirama among them. The main focal point of the room, however, was a huge slab of travertine placed on a laterite platform, with stairs leading up to it made of red sandstone. There was one peculiar item on the platform that resembled an orange, but it had a swirling pattern on its surface, was completely ashen white, and looked very lifeless. He looked to Tobirama for an explanation and was not disappointed when his grandfather settled into a chair and began. "Naruto, what I'm about to tell you is a secret no one else in the entire elemental nations knows. It has been passed down in our family since the birth of chakra, and only the Senju have known about it." He paused and sighed before continuing, "I'm sure you've heard and read about the legends of the Sage of Six Paths, the creator of chakra, and you might think they're just baseless rumors. The truth, however, is that the Sage of Six Paths did, in fact, exist. He was the one who introduced chakra to us, but he was not the one who created it. It was his mother, Kagaya Etsutsuki, who created chakra. Her origins are unknown, but it was speculated that she came from another world since she didn't look like a normal human. She had pale white skin, long gray hair, and white, clear eyes, similar to those of the Hyuga clan. Not much is known about her, but it seems she was the lover of the emperor who ruled a part of the elemental nations at the time and eventually became pregnant. She was the first to desire peace and was reported to love humanity. However, after an incident that caused problems between her country and a neighboring country, the emperor decided to execute her to settle the situation and prevent a war. It was at this moment she realized no one would help her or listen to her pleas, not even the man she loved. So, taking a gamble and violating a law that would have led to her execution anyway, she ate a fruit from a sacred tree. This fruit wasn't normal, though. It granted her the power we heavily rely on today, chakra. As a result of consuming the fruit, she manifested the Byakugan and the Rincharingen, the strongest dojutsu to date. She single-handedly ended wars and was revered as the supreme ruler of the elemental nations, becoming known as the rabbit goddess to the common people because of the horns that grew on her head, which she passed on to her sons. She helped everyone in need but was as ruthless as one could get to her enemies. She gave birth to two sons, Hagoromo, the Sage of Six Paths, and Hamura, the ancestor of the Hyuga clan. She raised them to the best of her abilities and taught them to always love and support their family, and to do everything for the greater good of those they believed were right, even if it meant standing against their loved ones. And that's exactly what they did. To prevent humans from stealing her chakra and powers, due to the fear of it being used for war and other vile practices, she began sealing them in the strongest genjutsu known to mankind, the infinite Tsukuyomi, and while they were trapped, she converted them into her personal army called Zetsu. For peace, she massacred countless humans who threatened her idea of peace, and after a while, her sons had enough. They trained for years in their powers and manifested many known powers we use today. Hagoromo inherited a lesser version of the Rincharingen, the Sharingan, and made it evolve over the years. He mastered the Sharingan, the Mangekyo, and the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, yes, the same ones Madara had, and eventually the Rinnegan. He also learned a way to harness nature energy under the guidance of Gamamaru, the great toad sage, who informed them about the truth of their mother's past in nature, and the deed she was committing in the name of peace. His brother Hamura manifested the Byakugan and evolved it to another stage, the Tenseigan. Very little is known about this dojutsu, but it looks like only people who share the genes of both the Hyuga and the Etsutsuki clans can awaken it. Together, the two brothers sought to protect humanity and therefore decided to seal their mother away. She somehow got wind of this and was not at all happy with her son's decision. Hence, she decided to merge with the tree that bore the fruit that gave her chakra. That tree was not normal, it was something beyond their imagination. I'll tell you about this a little later. Anyway, she merged with it and became the first Baijuyu to walk the earth, the Jubi, or ten-tailed beast. She rampaged across the elemental nations, massacring everyone in her path, but was eventually defeated by her sons after months of continuous clashing. She was sealed forever by her sons as they split her chakra from the Jubi's body and sealed it in Hagoromo, who became the first Jinchuriki. Hagoromo then used the husk of the Jubi and his Rinnegan to use Chibuka Tensei, a jutsu only people who have the Rinnegan can use, and encased the Jubi's real body with stones, mud, and dirt, creating a celestial body, the moon. The husk was also sealed within Hagoromo, but after his death, it was never found. Hamura then decided to leave Earth along with a girl he loved to guard the remains of the Jubi on the moon and ensure that Kagaya didn't escape. That's where he started the Hyuga clan, but he sent most of their members back to Earth to live a happy and peaceful life now that his mother was no longer there. Hagoromo decided to take up priesthood and travel the lands, spreading his ideals, which he named Ninchu, a concept that helped people understand themselves better and led the world into an era of peace and taught chakra to people. During this period, he also used his powers to split the Jubi's chakra into 9 parts that became the Baijuyu, who were regarded as the saviors of the land by the commoners. He eventually understood that true peace cannot be achieved in a single life and therefore decided to pass the baton to his sons, Indra and Azura Satsuki. Indra, the ancestor of the Uchiha, who inherited the Sharingan, was a true prodigy, but his ideals were not something the sage was fond of. He was talented but could not replicate his father's techniques, which is why he created hand signs and gave birth to ninjutsu, the technique we use today. After he was praised by the people for his prowess, he began becoming colder and more distant and only focused on improving his own power. He believed that if people had power, they could do anything, and the strongest one would always rule over them. Therefore, by following a single person and his ideals, the world would be at peace since everyone would follow the same ideals. His brother, however, was different. Azura Satsuki is the ancestor of the Senju and Uzumaki lines. He was the exact opposite of his brother when it came to chakra arts, completely awful. But his ideals of peace were based on bringing people together and that only through love and cooperation could peace be achieved. His father believed in Azura's ideals and crowned him the successor of his will after reviewing the performance of both his sons on a task he had given them, which is unknown to this day. Indra initially succeeded, but due to some unforeseen circumstances at the end, he failed. This led to a war between the two brothers, and in the end, Azura emerged victorious. Indra disappeared but was rumored to have fathered 3 sons that started the Uchiha line, while Azura settled down with a girl he met on his travels and had 2 sons, Senju and Uzumaki Satsuki, and a daughter, Hayasaka Satsuki. After a few years, the sage passed away, and while Azura was sorting through his father's belongings, he came across a hidden vault that neither he nor his brother had ever seen. When he opened the vault, he found a journal owned by his father, and the contents of the journal left him shocked. Apparently, as Hagoromo had absorbed the Jubi's chakra, he also gained memories of another creature and learned the truth about the existence of the tree that the fruit Kagaya ate came from. Before the elemental nations even existed as the continent we know today, the elemental nations were divided into numerous islands. They covered the entirety of the earth, but a certain few occupied the very center of the oceans. This region became known as the Grand Line, a region where the weather changed in an instant and sea monsters called sea kings roamed. But humans were still present and led a very different life, a life of piracy. They were pirates who traveled across the seas and searched for adventure and treasure. They were also armed with a fraction of power from the sea kings themselves. This became known as the devil fruit power, which granted humans many amazing abilities. However, the greed of humans eventually took over, and they began fighting amongst themselves for this power and the treasure they garnered. This led to war and eventually over 80% of humanity was destroyed. This also led to the destruction of the Sea Kings, as some were caught in the crossfire, some were hunted down so they could produce a devil fruit or be used as food, their skin could be sold as clothes, and many valuables for the right price as well, and some died due to starvation since humans were a key part of their food chain. Over the years, the Sea Kings disappeared and went into hiding in the deepest depths of the oceans, as devil fruit users could not swim, since their powers do not work in the sea since they have been cursed by the Sea Kings for stealing their power. Eventually, as years passed, people forgot about their existence, and the Sea Kings went extinct, except for one. This one was one of the oldest and strongest Sea Kings to ever live and somehow found a way to ensure his survival. It blessed a devil tree, a tree found at the depths of the ocean that when exposed to the powers of the Sea Kings can produce a devil fruit. Devil fruits usually contain only a fraction of a Sea King's power, but this one blessed the tree with all of his powers and in the process used up his life force as well. But then something unusual occurred. Instead of the tree producing a devil fruit, it began to grow. It grew to such heights that while its roots were deep into the ocean's surface, its canopy was over 100 meters above sea level. The devil fruit produced by the tree, instead of housing the powers of the Sea King, served as an egg for the Sea King's new body, one that would be able to survive on both land and water. Over the years, as the tree grew, due to plate movements in the Earth's surface, the islands began to move closer together and in due course, formed the continent we now know as the Elemental Nations. The humans regarded it as a god tree due to its massive height and restricted anyone from going near it. The devil fruit the tree produced, which housed the body of the Sea King, gathered nature energy from the earth and developed the body of the Sea King. Everything was going according to plan when one day, Kagaya Satsuki ate the devil fruit, which gave her chakra. The body of the Sea King was transferred into the tree itself to prevent it from getting destroyed, and when Kagaya merged with the tree, she was able to use the body of the Sea King, which became known as the Ten Tails. When Hagoromo absorbed the Jubi's chakra, he forgot that he didn't house the beast's soul or consciousness, which led to the chakra escaping from his body and being absorbed by the earth. The Baijiu we know are somewhat descendants of the Sea King, but even their combined power cannot rival the beast. When Azura learned about this, he vowed not to let anyone else know but informed his eldest son, Senju Utsutsuki, of this. Together they found a devil tree and its seeds by searching the depths of the sea and returned to the surface to plant the tree. When the tree was fully grown and bore fruit, they saw that it wasn't a devil fruit, but instead was a normal fruit. After countless experiments, the duo was able to create a method that allowed them to use the power of a devil fruit. That is the same method that has been passed down the Senju clan for generations. Every generation has participated in a tournament that decided the strongest Senju of that generation, and they were gifted with this power. They were also given the chance to choose a companion that would inherit the power with them, but they had to be a Senju. Today, Naruto, you will also inherit this power. Naruto just sat there. Shocked would be a massive understatement to describe his expression at the moment. As the story progressed, it became evidently clearer why people should never know about this. If what Kaguya did was the power of a devil fruit, people would go to any lengths to get their filthy, greedy hands on one. It could very well lead to a fourth shinobi war. He vowed in his mind never to let this secret out to anyone. No one shall know. While a part of his mind was astonished and a little worried about the fate of this power and what could happen in the future, another part of him grew more and more excited about what he could do with the type of power he would have in his hands. This was the power that would prove his worth to the world and make the Senju reach great heights. He did care for the village he lived in, but only because his ancestors did too. The village has changed. If it is compared to the Konoha of the past where his grandfather was the leader, the current state of the village could never hold a candle to it. While the village is the strongest, it is also the most hated. IWA and Kumo absolutely detest the village. IWA is still bitter about the war, while Kumo is throwing a tantrum over the fact that they are not ahead of us and do not have as many bloodlines as we do. Kiri is caught up in a civil war and believes that all bloodline users should perish, a belief not shared by any of the other four great villages. Suna might be an ally, but for how long? Their reputation and mission success rate have declined, and most of the countries, including their own, send mission requests to Konoha and not Suna. This could cause grave problems in the future. Naruto reigned in his surprise and, with his usual expressionless face, asked, "What do I have to do now, Tobirama-jiji?" The older man just closed his eyes and said, "I'll show you the method, but before that, there are a few more things I should tell you about. A little family history lesson, if you will. As I said before, the power of the devil fruit is passed down to the strongest warrior in the Senju clan, which is decided by holding a tournament of sorts for every generation. They are also the only ones who get the knowledge of the past and the history, the true history, of the elemental nations. My father, Butsuma Senju, won the tournament of his generation when he was 12 and was granted the power of a devil fruit. He chose my mother, Ika Senju, as the other person beside him who would inherit this power, since he fancied her. She was from the branch family of the Senju clan. Our branch family was not a lesser house like those pompous Hyagas have made out theirs to be. No, our branch family was the one who produced shinobi that excelled in healing and research, while the main family produced frontline warriors. Both of those positions hold equal value. It was not a fixed thing, though, and some of the branch family members were warriors as well, and vice versa. When it came to our generation, me and my brother, though we were younger than most, won the tournament at the age of 11 and 9 respectively. Both of us were on equal footing, and the final match between us was a draw. During those days, my brother had trouble controlling his chakra, which is why we were both on the same terms when it came to strength. Although, he would beat me any day when it comes to raw power. When asked for our companions, we chose our younger brothers, Itama and Kawarama. He paused here and folded his arms before continuing. A devil fruit can grant the consumer one of an immense variety of powers that can be used in many ways, from mundane utilities to destructive attacks. The power that the eater acquires can be classified into three categories: Logia, Paramecia, and Zoan. A user can only consume one devil fruit and survive. Logia is the rarest ability and is also considered one of the most powerful as it allows the user to transform the composition of their body into that element by pumping chakra around their body. Therefore, they can only be hurt when they are low on chakra. It also allows them to bend the element at will, as well as create it. Paramecia is another class of ability. It is the most common and grants the consumer a superhuman power, or they become a superhuman. As for Zoan, no one in our clan's history has ever inherited that power. Kaguya Atsutsuki merged with the tree to become the Jubi, so I guess she can be considered the one to become a Zoan user. Although, her ability with chakra is considered a Paramecia ability, so it can be considered that the devil fruit she ate was a Paramecia Zoan hybrid. The Baijiu can be considered as descendants of the Sea King and allow the one they share a bond with to become a tailed beast or use their hybrid form, so I guess they can be considered pseudozoan users. As for the abilities shared by our family, most obtained a paramecia devil fruit ability. My mother obtained a fruit called Opop no Mi, which granted her the ability to create a spherical space or room in which she had complete control over anything. This is why she could perform surgeries and other medical feats flawlessly. She never fought on the front lines, but if she did, she would have been the bane of the Uchiha clan. My brother Itama obtained another paramecia called Ishi no Mi, stone fruit, allowing him to merge with and manipulate stones around the area at his will. My youngest brother Kawarama, he ate another paramecia class fruit called Numa no Mi, swamp fruit, allowing him to create swamps anywhere within his radius. But sadly, before the two could master their powers completely, they perished in the fight. I, myself, obtained a paramecia class ability called Kojui no Mi, flood fruit, which allowed me to create floods at will and granted me great control over the water element. This is why I can use the water-severing wave and water dragon missile jutsu with such ease and not tire myself out even after constant use. My father, one of our ancestors, and my brother are the only known people to have inherited a Logia ability. Our ancestor had dominion over water, and his fruit name was Mizu no Mi, water fruit, which is why he became a water human. My father, Butsuma Senju, he consumed the Tsuketsuke no Mi, earth fruit, which granted him dominion over the element earth, making him an earth human. My brother, well, he was a special case. His fruit was also a hybrid, a paramecia Logia hybrid, to be precise. His fruit was named Shinrin no Mi, forest fruit. He could create forests of different sizes at will and even control everything in it. That was the paramecia aspect of it. The Logia aspect was that he could transform and control wood and its ramifications, like thorns, stems, lianas, and roots, making him a forest human. With a reassuring hand on Naruto's shoulder, the man got out of his chair. A nervous-looking Naruto followed and the two stopped in front of the glowing white Senju clan crest at the very center of the room. "You don't have to be so nervous," Tobirama said. "I know this is a big change, but don't worry, the method isn't painful at all." Naruto simply nodded, smiling at his grandfather and thanking him for the comforting words. The older man then gestured for Naruto to stand in the center of the crest. "This crest isn't a normal one, Naruto, it's a seal," he explained. "When I push my chakra through it, it will activate. It's designed to detect and absorb your chakra from the soles of your feet and will change color to show what class of devil fruit you'll get. If it turns black, you'll get a paramecia, but if it glows blue, you will get a Logia. Now, prepare yourself. You might feel a little off balance from your chakra being drawn out." The man then made a ram hand sign and dense purple chakra began to leave Naruto's legs, flowing into the seal. This continued for about 15 seconds before the color changed. The final result almost made Tobirama faint. One half of the clan crest turned black, while the other half turned blue. Naruto also noticed the change, but he was struggling to stay standing because of the sudden lack of chakra in his legs. He pushed some chakra into his legs to steady himself and then turned to the left, seeing the look of surprise on Tobirama's face. He tilted his head, confused, and asked what this meant. Tobirama, with great effort, composed himself. He looked at Naruto before saying, "If your surprises continue, I might not live much longer." He then sighed and addressed Naruto again. "This is the same thing that happened with my brother. I believe you will be the third person in history to obtain a hybrid devil fruit." Now it was Naruto's turn to be stunned. When he'd agreed to this, he thought he would be given a less powerful ability, not something like this. With this, his potential would be limitless since he would be able to control more than one element, and the techniques he could come up with would be incredibly versatile. His excitement only grew with this revelation. Before his grandson could get lost in thought, he turned and walked towards the altar-like structure in front of them. He stopped at the base of the stairs and turned back to face Naruto. "This next step is all on you, grandson," he stated. "You'll go up the steps and stand in front of the fruit on the platform. It's a fruit from a devil tree. You will need to pour exactly 7 drops of your blood over it and fill it with your chakra. The more chakra you add, the faster the devil fruit will assimilate with your body. Otherwise, we will have to wait for hours or days to understand the ability of your fruit. This method works because the power of chakra belongs to the Sea King that created the devil fruit which Kagaya Atsutsuki devoured." "Wait, you said it's from a devil tree?" Naruto asked. "Where did you plant one? I've never seen a special tree in the compound. Where did you get this from?" Tobirama smirked before answering. "While the trees were originally planted in the compound itself, our ancestors became paranoid over time. If someone from the clan leaked the method of creating a devil fruit, many would come and try to steal it for their own benefit. This is why they planted seeds of the devil tree on Uzashio. It was the only suitable option since it's closer to the sea and the rest of the world won't have access to the area since Uzu was already very secretive about clan matters. Only one Uzumaki knew of this, the head of the house during those times, Ryoujin Uzumaki, your great-grandfather. Whenever the tournament was to be held, a few members would go and collect these fruits and store them here, in the basement. That is the last devil fruit we were able to collect before the demise of Uzu. Naruto had already guessed it was something like that. The Senju would definitely not trust a Konoha house since they would have most likely blabbed about it to someone, and they couldn't allow this to fall into the hands of the Uchiha. And who better to guard their most significant secret than their cousin clan, A.N. If it wasn't clear before, Senju Atsutsuki started the Senju clan and his younger brother, Uzumaki Atsutsuki started the Uzumaki clan. Naruto shook his head, pulling himself out of his daze. His mind was working overtime to process all the information he had been given today. He would have to sleep for a long time to get his mind working properly again. He stood up straight and hardened his resolve, his heterochromatic eyes glowing with determination, and started walking up the steps towards the fruit on the platform. Once there, he followed the instructions precisely, pouring exactly 7 drops of his blood onto the fruit by pricking his finger open with a kunao and counting each drop before using a simple healing jutsu to seal it up. He then stretched his body, popped his joints and neck, before placing his hands on the fruit. He closed his eyes and mentally counted 1, 2, 3 and poured all of his chakra into the spherical object nestled between his palms. Tobirama watched his grandson perform the ritual intently. A moment later, he was thrown back a few steps by the sheer amount of chakra that erupted from the boy. A dense purple aura shrouded Naruto, and Tobirama was pretty sure that if it hadn't been for the anti-chakra detection seals placed around the basement, everyone in the fire country would have felt the pressure. He used his own chakra to maintain his footing and watched as, a few minutes later, the chakra receded back into Naruto's body, and the redhead knelt on the floor, panting hard. He saw smoke rising from the previously white fruit, signaling the end of the ritual. He steadily went up the steps and helped the boy up. They both looked at the fruit, fascinated by the change in its appearance. The fruit now appeared a dark blue with numerous swirls covering it and a lightning bolt design on its surface. The stalk appeared to be a cyan blue. Physically, it was still shaped like an orange. A.N. Check out the cover. It's the same one. Well, that's quite a glow up. Wouldn't you agree? Naruto asked his grandfather cheekily, with the same roguish grin the older Senju was known for. Tobirama just rolled his eyes at the boy and began observing the fruit. I believe you might have powers over water since the fruit is blue. We both share the same color, but mine had a lighter shade to it. With the presence of the lightning bolt, I think it's safe to assume you will have lightning powers as well. He paused for a while and stared intently at the fruit. Eat it now. I want to prove a theory I have in mind if this fruit grants you the powers I think it will. What theory? Whenever there has been a Logia fruit user in the family, they gain supremacy over the element they have a natural affinity for. My father had only a primary earth affinity, hence his power over that element. Our ancestor, the first Logia user, had a primary affinity for water. My brother had multiple affinities. He had a very high affinity for both earth and water, hence he could control both of those really well since a forest can only be grown by the combined efforts of earth and water. He also gained power over the sub-element it produced, wood. This is why I fabricated the tale of Tenzo having a very high affinity for both of those elements, which is why he could use Mokutan jutsus. In reality, he only has an affinity for earth, but due to prolonged exposure to my brother's blood and his devil fruit abilities, he has developed a secondary affinity for water. You have a strong affinity for 4 elements, so if my theory is correct, you will have control over them and possibly a product of them. There's another theory I want to prove. Whenever a Logia user's children or descendants inherit the powers, it's somewhat similar to the Logia user's ability. What I mean is that it gives them control over a similar aspect of an element. Our ancestor was able to control water, and when his daughter consumed her fruit, she was given supremacy over rain. It was a paramecia ability, where she could make rain fall in a certain area. When my brothers and I inherited our powers, all of us shared similar abilities to the 2 Logia users of our family. My brothers had control over stones and swamps, respectively, which are elements that have a close connection to the earth. My ability to cast floods is another proof of this. I am saying this because paramecia users usually inherit a superhuman ability, like my mother or another one of our ancestors who could separate all of his body parts and control them individually. Naruto understood his mentor's claims and was intrigued by them. He picked up the odd-looking fruit and brought it close to his nose to get a whiff of his soon-to-be dinner. Surprisingly, he couldn't smell anything. It was absolutely odorless. That sent warning bells off in his mind, but he could sense the potent chakra swirling inside the fruit. He closed his eyes and, without thinking much, tore through the fruit down to the stalk, like a hungry wolf in front of a deer. He regretted his actions immensely and immediately. It tasted like shit. He blanched and almost puked the thing out but was wise enough not to actually do it. He looked accusingly at his grandfather, eyes narrowed. The silver-haired man just looked on innocently, but his face was red from suppressing his laughter. Tobirama remembered how his parents and relatives had laughed, witnessing the state of him and his brothers after they had consumed the hellish abomination. But his laughter stopped immediately when his grandson stiffened and fell down on his back. Naruto felt as if he was struck by thousands of overpowered lightning blast jutsus in every nerve, every cell in his body. He gritted his teeth as beads of sweat trailed down his body. He watched as his grandfather knelt beside him with wide eyes and could see the calculating look in his eyes, possibly trying to figure out what could have caused this. The torture lasted for a few moments more and finally began to subside. As he tried to catch his breath, he heard a gasp from his side and saw the figure of his grandfather with wide eyes that showed surprise, and something akin to glee. He followed his line of sight, and the sight his eyes showed him left him spellbound. His entire left arm had been coated with ice. It looked like he was wearing a sea-green gauntlet that covered his whole arm. He tried moving his right arm to feel his left one and figure out what had happened when he realized his right arm wasn't moving. He could still feel it was there, so what the hell was going on? Why couldn't he move his arm? He turned to his right frantically and was left flabbergasted. His right arm had disappeared? There was only a mountain of sand left in its place. Apparently, though, this wasn't the end of it. His left leg, again to his surprise, had been replaced by a stream of water, whereas his right leg had disintegrated/been replaced by copious amounts of snow. He thought he had had enough of these bizarre surprises when he suddenly heard the familiar hissing of lightning and, from the corner of his eyes, could see the sparks of light he had been playing with since his training in ninjutsu began. Looking down, he could thankfully still see his torso, but a major difference was that his entire torso was covered with an armor of black lightning, similar to his Unmei no Yoroi, armor of doom black lightning version of Raiden no Yoroi. The revelations didn't end there as he could feel whirlwinds blowing his hair furiously, and when his neck turned, he could see a dark, thundering storm cloud hovering over him, for what he hoped was the last time. It seems my theory was indeed correct. I believe congratulations are in order. All hail Naruto Uzumaki Senju, 4th Logia fruit user in the family, 57th Paramecia fruit user, Earthshaker, Stormbringer, the first storm human to walk the earth. Naruto, in all his intelligence, could only stare with wide eyes and his mouth open, and said, more like shrieked, what? Tobirama stood still on the late right platform with his hands behind his back, a mischievous smirk on his usually impassive face. He could see a pair of mismatched eyes glaring at him in shock and a little bit of awe. He closed his eyes and began making his way towards the boy currently lying down on the platform in front of him with certain elements covering his body. He crouched low and stared at the gawking boy briefly before placing a finger on a pressure point on the back of his neck, instantly causing the boy to lose his energy and succumb to sleep. This also caused the elements raging around his body to dissipate, making it easier for him to pick the child up and swing him over his shoulder like a sack of rice. Moments later, he walked out of the chamber and returned to the ground floor, in the corridor of the old man's house. He silently moved through the house and came to the room he had prepared for the young heir a few months ago and opened the door. He placed him down on the bed and looked out the window. The moon was glowing ethereally, accompanied by the howling of the wind and the distant rumbling of the clouds. He shut his eyes and moved out of the room while muttering, even the heavens have welcomed the arrival of the strongest shinobi this world will ever see. It looks like the elemental nations are in for a rude awakening. Two of the most feared clans that make up history are about to be properly reintroduced to the world. Let's see how the world will face this storm. After declaring this to himself, the older Senju returned to his room and decided to get some sleep as well. After all, he will have to answer a multitude of questions the next morning. The next morning, the melodious chirping of birds was the first thing our protagonist heard the moment he began regaining consciousness. Groaning, he twisted his body and buried his head in a pillow, hoping to avoid the heated glare of the glowing afternoon sun. Wait, what? Afternoon? His two-toned eyes snapped open and frantically searched for a clock. That's when he realized something. This wasn't his room. While his living quarters at the Uzumaki Namikaze house were not something that could be called a room due to the lack of accessories or bright paint covering the walls and wooden floor, he had grown rather accustomed to the bland and rather lackluster arrangements. The current room he was in, however, put even the rooms of the saviors of Konoha to shame, and as he moved around it, he became more and more awestruck by it. It was a rather large rectangular room, with 4 windows making up the wall on the right side of his bed, partially covered with black silk drapes lined with silver, accompanied by a balcony that had an overhead glass roof to prevent rainfall from pouring through, and 2 sky blue leather seats. A black walnut wood coffee table occupied the space between the 2 seats. The one present on the balcony was also treated to a soothing sight of a glistening lake at the end of the Konoha Park, a spot which usually no one visited. Since it's a little deeper into the park, most families prefer to keep away from it since the children could get lost. Due to it being left alone, it was a frequent visiting spot for a plethora of birds that fly through the area. It made it look more heavenly in Naruto's opinion, as the site remained pristine because of the lack of visitors. All in all, it was quite peaceful and pleasant. After admiring the vista for a few more moments from the balcony, he turned his head back and continued his exploration. He was blown away by the detailing of the room. The walls were twice as tall as him, decorated with an admiral blue and jet black color scheme. It reminded him too much of Tobirama's armor. Maybe I will get a few canvases to cover one of the walls. It may help a little bit with the dark color scheme, were some of his thoughts. There was also a decent-sized wooden sliding door cupboard, painted white and black. Multiple sets of clothes similar to the one Naruto bought the last time he went shopping for shinobi gear were hung inside of it, except that these were made from a much gentler and yet sturdier material. N these types of clothes I'm talking about. /7116391786211779764/ I don't know what they are called, so I can't describe them accurately. Just imagine that set of clothes in different colors. He will be wearing it throughout the series, with slight modifications. They were mostly present in shades of blue, green, black, and gray, along with a black or white Senju clan crest on the back of every shirt. There were multiple compartments to keep his shinobi sandals, casual wear, and kunao and shuriken sets as well. A low-set table sat near the marble fireplace, surrounded by two comfortable-looking viridian green chairs and a matching sofa. There was a gray futon on the opposite side of the room as well as a quilted loveseat. The floor was light maple wood that splendidly offset the dark color scheme and ebony furniture, and there was a thick gray rug which was spread throughout most of the room. There was an ornate dresser which had silver handles and a decoratively carved mirror above it to finish off the room. The last thing he noticed was his bed. It was a huge, grand sleigh bed, the headboard reaching high and curling backward, which he had to admit looked regal. The entire thing was made out of the darkest shade of ebony wood, giving it quite an elegant touch. Beside the bed, on either side, were medium-sized nightstands made out of the same dark piece of wood his bed seemed to have been made out of. He noticed there was a small clock on the nightstand on the left side which read 13:17, meaning he had been asleep for almost 11 hours, while there was a jug of water, some biscuits, and a note on the one on the right. The moment he read the letter, a smirk formed on his face before it disappeared just as quickly as it came. Take about an hour to familiarize yourself with your new room and study. There are clothes for you to wear. Freshen up and meet me in the living room. It didn't take a genius to figure out who had written the letter. The part about the study intrigued him, and he walked out into the hallway and began searching for it. It didn't take much effort. Directly beside his room, there was another door with study written in Japanese. The moment he opened the door, he was blown away. After the war. Following the end of the First War, during the Cage Summit, the Mizu Cage and Sara demanded the return of all weapons. Kyumo had proven incapable of handling them, nearly causing the deaths of several cages and countless shinobi. As a result, all the artifacts were handed over to the Uzumaki clan for safekeeping, to prevent their misuse. The Bashozen was declared lost by Kyumo and could not be found. Until today, that is. Where did you find this, Orochimaru? While training with the snakes, I learned of an auction in a small village near the border of Rice Country. It was a black market for destructive weapons and illegal items. I sent a few reinforced shadow clones to investigate and discovered this item being sold there. Apparently, a nuke nin from the Kinkaku forces had fled Kyumo after their leader's death and took the weapon with him. His family held onto it for a while, but recently, due to the civil war in Kiri, they struggled to gather resources. They decided to move back to Kyumo but lacked the funds, so they sold it at the shady auction. I bought it for a hefty sum with money I obtained from a bandit camp, the Snake Son replied. I see, the older Senju said. As for what to do with it, we should keep it. We'll make it a family heirloom and put a barrier around it. If some power-hungry idiots manage to get a hold of it, the village would be in grave danger. Should I prepare the seal, Jiji? Naruto inquired. If Orochimaru had been drinking, he was sure he would have spit it out all over the floor. Never had he imagined someone would have the audacity to call the Tobirama Senju, one of the Kami no Shinobi, the man the entire elemental nations feared due to his reputation as the Shinobi no Sujin, Jiji. Tobirama saw Orochimaru's surprised reaction to what Naruto called him and smirked in amusement. He shook his head to signal no and then said, I'll place it in the basement and put a barrier around it that will prevent anyone but the two of us and Orochimaru from touching it. For precaution, I'll also add a barrier that will alert us the moment someone besides us three tries to touch it. The other two gentlemen accepted his solution and nodded in agreement. Following this, the trio began discussing ways to improve Naruto's training efficiency and fighting style. Orochimaru offered to teach him his personal taijutsu style, the snake style. Naruto was intrigued by the style, but after a few demonstrations by Orochimaru and Naruto's complete butchering of the stances and footwork, it became clear he was not suited to learn this style. Tobirama had a good laugh watching his heir fail miserably and fall on his ass constantly. In the evening, Orochimaru decided to leave and went to greet his sensei, the Saname. The head of the Sarutobi clan had been spending most of his time with his wife and grandson Konohamaru. Apparently, his first son and his wife had passed away a couple of years earlier after being ambushed by rogue nins during a particularly dangerous and tiring mission. Although reinforcements arrived, they died due to excessive blood loss. After the meeting with Orochimaru, the Senju duo focused on their individual tasks before preparing dinner. Naruto began reading about the history of every village in the elemental nations, along with books on politics, while Tobirama placed seals on the new family heirloom and put it in the basement. A few hours later, the two gathered in the dining room and began eating the dinner they prepared, eating in silence. A few moments later, however, Naruto decided to break the quiet atmosphere. "I've decided to leave for Iron Country to continue my training. I'll leave in a few months." The gray-haired man looked at his grandson and saw a bored, expressionless face looking back at him. The older Senju could only sigh and pinch the bridge of his nose. He knew that this decision would come back to bite him in the rear. This boy was going to be the death of him. "The Tenseigan. It's the Tenseigan," Tobirama said. "What the fuck?" two voices shouted loudly. "How did we get here?" To explain, let's rewind a bit. It was the day after Orochimaru returned that Naruto finally met and apologized to Kaguya. He got punched in the face, but he didn't mind. He knew he deserved it for ignoring her for days. To make up for it, the two spent the entire day together at the village festival. Naruto wore a midnight blue kimono with the Senju and Uzumaki clan crests proudly displayed on his back, while Kaguya wore a pink kimono with a floral pattern and the Uchiha crest on her back. It was a great day for the two of them as they walked through the busy streets and enjoyed all sorts of activities kids their age enjoy. They played games like darts, wainage, ring toss, shadaki, gun shooting, kinjo sukui, goldfish scooping, and many more while eating yakitori, grilled chicken, carriage, fried chicken, yakisoba, okonomiyaki, shortcake, and cotton candy. It was the first time Kaguya saw Naruto smile wholeheartedly instead of his usual amused smirk. It made her smile too. She now understood how difficult his life was. She at least had her mom and brother to support her, and even if he didn't show it, she knew her father loved her. He said it that one time when he thought she was sleeping. But for Naruto, the only people to even acknowledge his existence were herself, Tobirama-sama, and Orochimaru-sama. He had never received the love of a family. It made her realize how lonely he was, and she vowed to be the greatest friend and supporter anyone could ever have for him, and hopefully more. She blushed at the thought and continued to cutely nibble on the cotton candy in her hands as they walked. Then Naruto suddenly grabbed her arm and pulled her toward an isolated spot at the end of the festival where no one else was present. When she asked what he was doing, he brought out a scroll, unsealed its contents, and pulled out a picnic blanket and some of the food he had bought earlier. They both had quite an appetite, so it was good thinking on his part. "Thank you for this day, Naruto-kun. It made me very happy," a smiling Kaguya told her friend honestly. The boy just smiled and said, "No, I should be thanking you. These past few weeks have been tiring, to say the least. But today I had fun and wasn't bored to death by wise, old men. It helped me relax, so thank you, Kaguya-chan." She beamed at him, and a pink hue appeared on her face when he flashed his signature, lady killer smile. She was about to say something, but they were pleasantly interrupted by a loud bang and colors igniting the sky. The endless fireworks lit up the sky, providing everyone with a majestic sight that would make even the most depressed people very happy. She didn't know what happened after the first of many rounds ended, but she wasn't watching them at all. Her main focus was only the boy beside her and how cute he looked. She couldn't even hear the fireworks. On the entire walk home, she could only blush and barely form sentences whenever he asked her something. Naruto only thought she might be tired and decided to ignore it. They were walking in silence when they passed by an empty park but couldn't hear anything except a girl crying. They were confused and decided to check it out. There, they found a girl their age wearing a sky blue kimono with white floral patterns, crying while sitting against a tree in the corner of the park, knees curled up against her chest. She had blonde hair tied up on the left side of her head with a blue scrunchie and bright blue eyes. It then dawned on Kaguya who it was that was bawling her eyes out. "Ai-san," she cried out, seemingly surprised that her only other friend was out here alone, crying at such a late hour. "Kaguya-chan," the girl replied, looking confused. She wiped her eyes and looked at her clearly before exclaiming in realization "Kaguya-chan," and pulling the girl kneeling in front of her into a bone-crushing hug. This continued for a few more minutes while Naruto just stood there, awkwardly glancing around, wondering if he should say anything. He didn't know what he could say that would make the situation better or worse, so he settled for a small cough that caught the attention of the two girls. One looked at him flustered, having forgotten he was still there, while the other looked at him with suspicion. "Naruto-kun, this is Ai Hayasaka Hayaga, firstborn daughter of Hayashi-sama and the heiress to the Hayasaka clan of the Fire Capital. Her sister Hinata is the heiress of the Hayaga clan. A few months ago, I went to the playground with Suzuki where most of the clan heirs play, and I met Ai-san there. We have been meeting ever since." She paused before addressing Ai-san. "This is Naruto Uzumaki Senju." He told her about Tobirama making him his heir, the second son of Hokage-sama and the current Senju heir. He was treated similarly to how you were, but in his case, his entire family was against him. Ai was shocked that the arrogant trio, according to her and Kaguya, had another sibling who was hidden from the public. But when Kaguya mentioned he was treated just like them, she understood what happened. She had never felt at home in the Hayaga compound. Hayashi had married two women. His first wife, now, the heiress of the Hayasaka clan, a clan of merchants and mercenaries from the Fire Capital, and his second wife, a Hayaga from the branch family named Hitomi. Even as they grew up, everyone treated Hinata like a princess, while only Hitomi, now, and Hayashi acknowledged Ai's existence. Things got worse for her when her mother passed away and Hitomi became sick. She didn't leave for the fire capital as her mother's clan wanted, as she understood her father was hurting. But Hayashi became colder and started giving her the cold shoulder, so she began taking care of herself, trying to give him space. However, the real kicker was when both Hinata and even 3-year-old Hanabi managed to unlock the traditional Hyaga dojutsu, the Byakugan. She didn't. She pretty much turned invisible to her clan that day. So, she introduced herself to the redhead whom Kagaya came with and explained her home situation after Kagaya assured her he could be trusted. To her surprise, he comforted her and even offered to explain a little about his own childhood. She understood that day that she wasn't the only one with a tough life. When asked what happened to her and why she was here at this hour, she started crying again but explained, "Today, my father decided that he and all of his daughters should go and enjoy the fireworks festival. So, we dressed up and left. I don't get along with Hinata because the dumbass is always running after that arrogant Menma and ignoring all of his flaws, which is pretty much all he has. Halfway through the festival, I got bored, so I went home after getting permission from my father. When I came home and passed by the Lord's study, I heard the elders talking about how they were going to keep poisoning Aunt Hitomi, just like they did with my mother. Then they'll kick me out of the clan since they will have no one to oppose their decision. Even though my father is a great man, he blindly follows orders, and I know he will agree to it. I just don't know what to do," she screamed at the end, tears flowing from her eyes. Kagaya just hugged her and told her to let it all out as she began thinking of ways to help her friend. Naruto, on the other hand, was livid. How dare they kill one of their own? Killing their own family for what, more power? How ridiculous. He had half a mind to go and report this to Minato, but then he realized he wasn't thinking straight. He was a shinobi, and Tobirama Senju's student at that, he should think first. And then he got an idea. "It's not safe to talk about these things here. Come with me, I know where to go," he said as he motioned for them to follow him. The two girls looked at each other before going along with him. At least he had an idea, they had nothing. Tobirama's house. The head of the Senju house was having a very peaceful day. No Naruto to train, no idiotic councilman to manage, and lots of tea and an nigiri, rice balls. Overall, a very unproductive day. So, he wasn't surprised when 3 people showed up at his doorstep at 9:30 at night. But he was definitely surprised to see who the 3 people were. An Uchiha, a Hyaga, and a Senju. Now that had him interested. He saw his grandson standing in front of the 2 ladies, flashing him a smile full of amusement. Cheeky brat. He now knew there was no way this night wasn't going to be interesting or long. Without saying much, he just sighed and rolled his eyes, beckoning them to follow him inside. "What happened now, brat?" he asked, clearly not very happy that his tea time had been interrupted. "Call Uncle Orochimaru first, you both might find this interesting," the brat replied, seriousness evident in his voice. The 2 girls could only stand behind him awkwardly and do their absolute best not to start fangirling at the sight of their hero, the Nidaime Hokage, Tobirama Senju. This was especially true for the Uchiha. Oh, the irony. Moments later, Orochimaru arrived in his usual jounin outfit with a parcel containing bowls of chicken tempura. Seeing the questioning glances on the faces of the 2 Senjus, the Sunin said, "I was in the middle of dinner when your clone arrived. I thought it might be something big and I might have to stay here for a few hours, so I packed up my food and picked up some extra servings on my way here." The man said this, giving the others a gentle smile, which made the lot very uncomfortable due to his makeup. "Now that we're all here, what is it that you wanted to discuss, Naruto?" the silver-haired man said, sitting down on his side of the coffee table. "And introduce us to the 2 girls behind you. Have you forgotten your etiquette lessons?" How the hell would he forget that? Even though shinobi aren't big on formality, certain clans still have their heirs practice etiquette and other proper manners so they don't feel out of place among nobles. It was about a week of his life that he would never get back, and he would never want to relive. "Forgive me, grandfather. They are Lady Kagaya of the Uchiha clan and Lady Ai of the Hayasaka and Hyaga clan." The 2 young ladies mentioned above bowed, and everyone could see the stars in the Uchiha heiress's eyes when she looked at the ex-Hokage in front of her. It would have looked quite weird if Naruto hadn't mentioned that the young girl was a die-hard fan of the Senju patriarch. After the pleasantries were exchanged, the children explained the circumstances of the Hyaga girl and their findings about the Hyaga elders, along with the conspiracies of the clan being revealed. With each passing word, the older Senju's eyes seemed to narrow further and further. Once the tale was finished, everyone in the room was hit with a magnitude of ki and chakra for just a split second before it disappeared. Now they understood how pissed Tobirama actually was. "Don't worry, Heiress Hayasaka, I will contact my student, Sarutobi, and get him to assign a few of his personal guards who can compete with unbelievable shinobi to tail the elders of your clan and gather evidence of their crimes. Once we have the reports, I promise you they will get nothing short of an execution order on their heads." The young Hyaga heiress had reached her limit. She burst into tears again, flinging herself into the arms of the nearest person the Senju clan's heir. He seemed a little awkward at first but soon relaxed, seeing the smiles of the others in the room. In Kagaya's mind, however, a feeling of irritation was nagging at her, and her eyes started to twitch. Odd, wasn't it? At that moment, Orochimaru said something everyone nearby had missed. "Hey Asaka-san, you said the clan members don't like you because you don't have the Byakugan. But that shouldn't be possible, as it's fairly easy for a Hyaga to master. It doesn't require the pain and suffering of the Sharingan, so I don't understand the problem. Could you try to unlock it now?" The blonde wiped her eyes and followed his instructions. Moments later, both Orochimaru and Tobirama saw a flicker of something in her eye, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. This left Orochimaru bewildered, but Tobirama was staring at her with wide eyes. "Is something troubling you, Tobirama-sama?" The voice of the only Uchiha present rang out. This snapped the old man out of his daze. He blinked, looking at the girl and everyone else in the room, who were now focused on him instead of the blonde. Seeing their expectant gazes, he said, "It's not that she can't awaken the Byakugan, it's that she doesn't have it." Everyone's eyes widened at this. A Hyaga without the Byakugan was unheard of. If she were an Uchiha, it would be understandable, as their dojutsu takes great time and effort to awaken through training, and the other way is just too painful. That's why Itaki Uchiha is a prodigy. Awakening and mastering the Sharingan before even turning 10 was unprecedented, and he was currently a high-ranking Umbu, well on his way to becoming captain before he turned 13 next year. But she has something else. Something every Hyaga in the world would die to possess. Everyone was completely confused. "Just get to the point, old man, this is no time for riddles," the red-haired Senju snapped, his eye twitching and irritation clear in his voice. "It is the Tenseigan," Tobirama declared. There was silence for about 2 minutes before the dam broke. "What the fuck?" Naruto and Orochimaru yelled out loud. Naruto knew what the Tenseigan was. Tobirama had briefed him on it during history lessons. While it wasn't as strong as the Rinnegan or Rinne-Sharingan, it was definitely superior to other known dojutsu. How the hell did she have it? Only a person with genes from both the Hyaga and Itsutsuki clans could obtain it. Orochimaru had heard about the legendary Tenseigan from the White Snake Sage and the elders of the Snake Clan, who were nothing more than snakelets at the time compared to the hulking monsters they were now. They had seen the dojutsu in action and said it could easily rival the Mangekyo Sharingan that made Madara Uchiha so famous. He could now tell that the girl in front of him would be a powerhouse if she could just manage to unlock her visual prowess. The girl in question, however, was just confused. Her friend was by her side, both of them looking as blank as a couple of freshly bought canvases. So, the two Senju began to explain the history of chakra and the story of Kagaya Itsutsuki and her sons. They explained the theory behind the awakening of the Tenseigan, a higher stage of the Byakugan that only occurs when a person has the blood of both the Hyaga and the Itsutsuki. This led to the big question: how did she have Itsutsuki DNA in her body? At that moment, a light bulb went off in Naruto's brain. "Grandfather, didn't you say that Azura Itsutsuki had a daughter named Hayasaka? What if the Hayasaka clan were her descendants?" "You have a point," the old man said, realization evident on his face. "It's the most plausible explanation. It also explains why she isn't able to awaken her visual powers." Seeing their puzzled looks, he continued. "The genes of the Itsutsuki clan that Hayasaka Itsutsuki was born with must have been severely diluted over the thousands of years the clan has existed. Nobody else has ever awakened it before because the Hyaga usually marry within their family or with other hidden leaf clans, except for the Uchiha. Right now, she does have Itsutsuki genes, but they are so severely lacking that she isn't able to awaken her dojutsu. So, how do we awaken it forcefully?" the Sannin asked. "I have an idea. We may be able to create a seal that works similarly to the mechanism I used to blood adopt Naruto. If we power the seal up with copious amounts of chakra and at least a vial of Senju, Uzumaki, and Uchiha blood, we may be able to strengthen the latent Itsutsuki genes in her body, giving her the necessary amount required to awaken the Tenseigan." At this, everyone smiled, but none more so than the two girls present. One was happy for her friend, while the other was ecstatic about the fact that she would also have a visual dojutsu she could rely on and make her mother proud by becoming the best kunoichi she could be. Just then, Tobirama decided to speak up again. "But I'm not gifted enough in seals to create such an intricate one. The only person who could do it was my sister-in-law, Nito Uzumaki." After saying this, the old man looked at Naruto, along with the rest of the room. The redhead could only sigh. "I'll do it. I'm going to visit Uzushio anyway for the knowledge on seals. I could use this as a way to test my prowess in them. It's just another thing to do while I'm on my trip." "Trip? What trip?" Kagaya asked. She didn't like the sound of this trip. So, Naruto explained that he was going to leave for a few years to train in Tetsu no Kuni and visit the ruins of Uzushio to aid him in his quest to become the strongest shinobi there ever was and help him bring his house and village to the top once more. Everyone was happy to hear about this. It showed his commitment to his goals and how determined he was to accomplish them. Everyone except one. I believe it's late, so I'll be going now, the Uchiha heiress said as she moved out of the house, her eyes hidden behind the shadow of her hair. The moment she was outside the house, she let the tears flow. Her first friend was leaving? Not just for a few months, but for almost 5 years. While she understood his reasoning, it didn't make the pain in her chest any less. She finally had someone to relate to, someone who treated her properly and didn't judge her for her brother's deeds or the fact that she might never awaken the Sharingan. He was there for her when most of her family was against her, when she was against herself and didn't believe in herself. He came into her world of storms like a ray of sunshine that lit up her entire mood and encouraged her to reach the level she was at now. She couldn't help herself and began weeping uncontrollably. It must have been minutes or an hour, she didn't know. But after a while, she felt someone's arms wrap around her. She was about to react violently, but when she opened her eyes, she saw herself immersed in a set of bicolored eyes. She instinctively knew who it was and just hugged him with all her might and started crying into his chest. Naruto was glad that he felt something was wrong when she walked out, so yay, instincts. He now understood how much being alone with no one but him as a friend to talk to had bothered her until AI had come in as her friend. Hey Kagaya-chan, you don't have to worry about me being gone. I'll write to you every few months. You think I'll leave you alone for 5 or 6 years? Nah, you aren't getting rid of me that easily, he said as he flashed her his roguish smile that made her blush. She couldn't do anything but hide her face in his chest and nod, smiling, though he couldn't see it. They just stayed like that for a few moments before they were joined by Hayasaka. Naruto then walked the two ladies home, holding the hands of the Uchiha heiress, who was still clinging to him. Overall, a very productive day. 1 week before the academy starts. Naruto enjoyed these last few months in the village. Spending time with his precious people was always a delight. He trained with his grandfather and uncle, continued his daily lessons on politics, and had chess sessions, among other things he and his grandfather loved doing together. His uncle also got him interested in the art of Kenjutsu after showing him the might of the Kusanagi when he took Naruto with him to take care of a bandit camp that had been terrorizing the citizens of a small village west of Konoha. It was there that he committed his first kill. He felt very guilty, especially after he saw a family photo in the pockets of the man he killed with an ice spear going through his head. He vomited up everything he had eaten while traveling to the bandit camps. He felt like a monster. He didn't speak to his companion the entire way back. When they returned, Tobirama, Kagaya, and AI, who was a new addition to the group after Kagaya started spending time and training at the Senja compound with Tobirama's permission, noticed the change in his demeanor. Tobirama instantly understood what was wrong, and he, along with the two girls, comforted him, making him realize that what he did was not wrong. Killing people was a shinobi's job, and the person he killed was not an innocent. As long as he didn't kill innocents like a tyrant, nor did he take pleasure in killing, he was not a monster. While not very emotionally comforting, it had the right effect on Naruto. After that, he made a promise to himself that he would kill only as a last resort unless the person was hopeless or if he was in a war. He didn't train much besides practicing what he already knew, as he wanted to spend his time relaxing with his friends and true family. He spent most of his time with the Uchiha heiress, who had a new resolve to train and become the strongest Uchiha in history so she could stand at the top with the boy she was coming to love. She was also being trained by two people. Number 1 was Tobirama Senju, who had accepted due to Naruto ensuring him that she was a good person, not like most Uchiha, and would be an exceptional student. He grudgingly admitted that Naruto was right and took her on as an apprentice. He also asked her to select a teacher for herself who would help her with her fire affinity and Sharingan once if she awakened it, and so Shisui Uchiha, her cousin, became her second teacher. When she informed him that she was also being trained by Tobirama Senju, he feinted something he would deny if his Umbu squad and friends found out. So, for the past few months, he also watched and helped the two train his first friend in the arts of being a powerful ninja. They were surprised when she informed them about her affinities, and Naruto decided to add his 2 cents in too, when he said he had decided to sneak into IWA to steal the scrolls on the techniques of dust release. Everyone looked at him as if he were crazy, but then he demonstrated a technique he had been secretly working on for a few months now, abusing the hell out of his shadow clones. He suddenly disappeared into the wind as if he was never there, and only a slight breeze was felt in the area. Tobirama was about to search for him using his senses, but he didn't have to when he saw the redhead stand behind Shisui and scare him. That day, the people present were treated to the sight of an Umbu captain screaming like a little girl, something they would never let the Uchiha live down. To not make the Hayasaka heiress feel left out, she was also offered help from Naruto regarding her training, especially because no one in her clan would train her. So, Orochimaru decided to take her as his new apprentice. His former apprentice, Anko, had completed her training under him and was now a Takebutsu Jonin in the TNI department. Pretty high ranking, too. He was pretty happy to have an apprentice again. He asked for the permission of the Hyaga patriarch to train his daughter, which the latter agreed to because he understood that his daughter could not be trained in the ways of their clan taijutsu. Of course, this was kept private between the two. Thus, the Sunin started training the young blonde in his snake style of taijutsu and kenjutsu. He also had her build up her physical durability and stamina, as the snake style practiced moves that required high flexibility, speed, and the ability to make hard turns quickly. He didn't want her to injure herself during training when they moved on to those. He also had her practice one sword style, yes, it's Zoro's, with a bamboo sword. He quickly realized that she was a natural with the sword, not surprising considering her mother was a mercenary, an A-rank one at that. For ninjutsu, when he tested her affinities, it was in front of everyone as they were conducting a joint ninjutsu training session for the girls. They were once again surprised when it was revealed that she also had 3 affinities. The paper split into 3 parts once again, signifying her affinity to wind. A part of the paper burned to ash, showing off a rather strong affinity for fire. The next part crumpled up into a ball, signifying her affinity to the lightning element. Here, Orochimaru said her mother also possessed an affinity to the 2 elements, according to the bingo book, something that made the young girl smile. It was as if she had a piece of her mother with her. The final part split into multiple pieces, showing that she had indeed inherited an affinity to wind nature like any other Hyuga. Their taijutsu style was based on utilizing wind chakra for hitting fast and hard and earth chakra for hitting someone with the intention of them not waking up anytime soon. Most Hyuga had an affinity for earth, but wind was a close second. Orochimaru also informed them that she could now successfully use plasma release if she mastered all 3 natures. Everyone's eyes were wide at that, even the 2 senju. The plasma release nature is the infamous Kekii Tota, much like the dust release, of the Tsukugawa clan of Iwa. During the reign of the second Tsuchikage, the clan had rebelled and were consequently wiped out to the last man. The Tsuchikage, however, had also suffered a lot of damage to his chakra coils due to being hit by the attacks of the rebels, along with the drain on his chakra from using dust release. That was why he had to train his apprentice Oniki in the arts much faster than before so he could ascend to the position of Tsuchikage as quickly as possible. He died a few years after Oniki ascended to his position. The clan's techniques are rumored to have been seized and kept in a forbidden scroll, much like the one Konoha has, as a few shinobi in the past have been seen using it, especially during the Third War. It is created by combining the fire release, lightning release, and wind release elemental natures. Techniques of the plasma release manifest themselves in the form of immense electrical attacks capable of leaving behind storms of ash or in the form of superheated fires with enough power to outshine any fire-based technique. Flames created through the plasma release tend to be white or green, while electricity appears to have a purple shade to it. It is said to be very destructive, though not as much as the dust release, but also very taxing on the user's chakra, similar to the dust release. Naruto also spoke up, saying if he had the chance, he would try and get the techniques for her, just like he was going to for Kaguya. Hayasaka was touched by this and jumped up into his arms, embracing him, all the while squealing and thanking him, much to the ire of a certain raven-haired girl whose eye was twitching at the scene. Naruto and Shisui bonded pretty well, too, considering they both shared the same fate of ignorance from their clan and family members. Shisui was also taunted by his clan members for the fact that Itachi was more special than him due to his achievements, even though Shisui was only a couple of years older than him. While Itachi and he never had problems over this because Itachi was too nice for an Uchiha, it definitely bothered him. But now, not so much. He has made a good name for himself as Shunshin no Shisui and also gets to train his baby cousin sister. Life was good for him. Finally, the day of departure arrived. Naruto was leaving. With only a week left before the academy started, he wasn't about to let anyone hinder his plans. He didn't care what happened after he left. This is where we find the group now, gathered at the Senju compound's training grounds to see him off. So, this is it, guys. I'll see you all in a few years, the redhead said, hoisting his backpack containing the storage scrolls he was taking. He might have had seals drawn on his body, but after obtaining his Logia Devil Fruit powers, he'd learned his lesson. When he tried to phase through an attack while a storage seal with kunai was on his arm, all the contents burst out, narrowly missing his legs. So, storage scrolls it was. Grandson, I hope you succeed on your journey. Remember, if you get a summoning contract, you will start writing regularly. That's an order from your clan head, the old man said, his voice more emotional than usual. The redhead chuckled, then hugged his grandfather, the man who had given him everything. Don't worry, Tobirama, I'll keep you posted as soon as I can. Thank you for everything you've done for me. I love you, old man. He whispered the last 2 sentences into his grandfather's ear, the only family who had ever truly loved him. He hugged everyone and whispered sweet nothings into Kaguya's ear as she started to tear up, promising them all to be prepared for his return as the strongest shinobi alive. With that, he simply vanished in a bolt of lightning to who knows where. This was the start of some of the most eventful years in Konoha's history and the beginning of its strongest shinobi's rise to fame and power. Naruto Uzumaki Senju was about to be introduced to the world. Time skip, 6 years later. Kirigakure, Rebel Base Camp. As a dreary evening fell over the elemental nations and a cold mist descended on Kirigakure no Sato, a few individuals gathered around a wooden table. The table held a detailed map of an open battlefield not far from their camp. These individuals were the leaders of the rebellion against the tyrannical rule of the Yondaime Mizukage, Yagura, the Jinchuriki of the three-tailed turtle, or Sanbai. Because of him, over 40% of the Hidden Mist village's population had died since he declared bloodline users evil and a purge began. Clans as old as ninjutsu itself were exterminated. Not even infants were spared. This caused the village to regain its reputation as the Bloody Mist Village. The economy crashed, and everyday people lived in fear, unsure if they would survive. That was until a rebellion began. A few surviving clans formed an alliance, gathered the remaining survivors, and rebelled against Yagura's rule. This rebellion had been ongoing for a year, with no clear indication of which side would win. That is, until the only survivor of the Nikko clan, a cousin clan of the Kagaya clan, Robin, brought them much-needed help from a place no one believed existed anymore. Today is the last day of fighting. This final battle will decide whether or not we survive. Everything you have worked for comes down to this moment. We've already ransacked and destroyed all of Yagura's camp bases we came across, so this will surely get him to the battlefield. When the time comes, I will face him alone. May, I need you and Ao to take care of his subordinates. Can you do that? A man's voice spoke, a commanding aura resonating throughout the room. Affirmative, Ao and I will be enough to get this done, a woman's voice confidently replied. This woman was May, the princess of the Terumi clan, one of their village's last founding clans to survive the purge. They had excellent skills in fire release, and most of them had the boil release bloodline, a formidable bloodline in the mist. May was special, though. She was the only one known to have not one, but two bloodlines. She inherited the boil release from her mother, the previous heiress of the Terumi clan, while her father passed on his lava release bloodline. He was an Umbu-level shinobi from IWA who had defected from the village after the First War. The two fell in love and had May, who became the sole heiress to the Terumi clan. She rose through the ranks quickly and became a jonin at age 17. She was one of the third Mizukage's most trusted subordinates, but Yagura's attempt to have her and her clan assassinated caused her to form the rebel faction. She is the commander of the soldiers, though she relinquished the title to the man in front of her when she saw how capable he was. The man in front of her had long blood-red hair that reached the middle of his back. His bicolored blue and red eyes created an imposing figure, especially when paired with his cold expression and height. He was extremely handsome, and his entire persona screamed of nobility. This man was Naruto Uzumaki Senju, the sole heir to both the Senju and Uzumaki clans. He left Konoha on a training trip when he was 9 years old, traveling across the continent to the Iron Country to learn their art of swordsmanship. He gained quite a reputation as he traveled through the elemental nations, exterminating many bandit camps and freeing the poor men and women the scums had abducted and done other unsavory things to. He would leave no survivors, and because he always wore a black mask, he was never recognized. The villages whose people he saved treated him like a hero, and his red hair allowed a few to make the connection between him and the long-lost Uzumaki clan, as they were the only ones with hair as intense as blood and were feared throughout the continent. Naruto was personally trained by Mifune, the Lord Commander of the samurai force of the Iron Country. He was a swordsman who could only be rivaled by Sakumo Hatake, Konoha's White Fang, and a few notable Uzumaki throughout history. Their first meeting was interesting. Flashback. After traveling continuously without rest, Naruto arrived at a large mountain that looked like a mushroom and began to scale it using his chakra and muscles. 6 hours into it, he reached the top to see an older gentleman in robes marked with the rank of general standing there with a raised eyebrow as Naruto panted. "My name is Naruto. I came here to learn from the greatest swordsman and become the best." Naruto panted, trying not to collapse, which wasn't easy since he ran low on chakra an hour ago and climbed the rest of the way on pure grit and will. This wouldn't have been possible under normal circumstances, but he had just finished fighting a group of bandits and didn't have time to rest after his last use of vapor travel. The general, Mifune, examined the boy and noted his bloodied fingers. "You climbed up here with your bare hands?" he asked incredulously, and Naruto nodded, surprising Mifune and his small group, whom Naruto had missed due to exhaustion. "I used chakra until I had nothing but my muscle left, then it was just my will to make it since I had to do it on my own no matter what," he stated, still panting as he tried to stay standing, but his legs were shaking. "Impressive," Mifune stated, since it was difficult for even an adult to get up the mountain, but for a child to do it and to do so to become better impressed him even more. Before he could make another comment, Naruto passed out, and Mifune had one of his soldiers carry him to one of the compounds. Flashback end. The next morning, instead of their usual indifference, the samurai looked at the shinobi with something else, respect. A child, no older than 9, had done something men 3 times his age had difficulty doing. This act showed his determination to become better, his passion, and his power. 2 days later, Mifune personally began to oversee his training. At first, they were surprised to hear his name as they were unaware that any other senju were alive, besides Tobirama and his grandniece, Tsunade. But instead of focusing on that, they trained him the same way they would any other recruit who wished to learn their art. And boy, did their training do a number on him. While Tobirama did focus on physical strength, his primary strength lay in ninjutsu, something Naruto shared as he believed in ending the fight as quickly as possible and moving on. His ninjutsu was the perfect way to accomplish this. But the samurai didn't believe in that. They believed in training their body as much as a regular ninja would practice their jutsu. They had him lifting weights far heavier than the ones he had ever used, causing him to feel that his muscles were almost being ripped apart. His clones had been practicing their control over the abilities granted by the devil fruit on the side. This cycle continued for 6 months before he finally got to do what he came here for. Learn Kenjutsu. Mifune had him read up on and try to perform multiple styles that might suit him, but none of them made him feel complete. A key part of mastering Kenjutsu was to be one with your sword and style, and Naruto just wasn't getting that feeling with those styles. That was until Mifune gave him the scroll to a new style. Mifune brought an intricate red scroll with golden-orange flames throughout it. Naruto looked at him questioningly, and his master revealed that it was a style the samurais used before they created chakra-conducting metal. It was called a breathing style, a style of swordsmanship that relied on breathing in a certain pattern and infusing chakra into your body and sword simultaneously. This style is called a breathing style, and it mimics a certain element of nature, like fire, water, or lightning, and replicates it with the user's movements. This style was the primary reason why samurais were so feared throughout the continent, even though they did not use ninjutsu like shinobis. The attacks caused by this technique were extremely precise, fast, and destructive. It was a nightmare for trespassers who thought they could take down the samurai force simply due to their lack of ninjutsu. The one Naruto was gifted with was the fire-breathing style, a style that replicated the energy and destructive power of said element with the user's moves. Most, if not all, known techniques of this style involve extremely powerful singular strikes and movements that literally feel like they have burnt the opponent. When used with a chakra-conducting sword, it looks like the flames are literally dancing and moving according to how the sword moves. This was what he trained in for the next 2.5 years he was in the Iron Country. The more he progressed with this technique under Mifune's guidance, the more he realized its potential. He admitted to himself that if he honed this technique to the same level of mastery that Tobirama had with the sword, it could easily rival his Blue Flash style, a sword style personalized by the older Senju to accompany his Hiraishin. When he was about to depart from the Iron Country and journey to his next destination, his master gave him a farewell present. One of the best presents he could have ever gotten. A sword. And not just a sword. It was a type of okatana that the samurais of old used. A Nichiren blade. A Nichiren blade is known as a color-changing sword because if the person wielding it has sufficient skill as a swordsman, it changes color. In Naruto's case, it turned completely blood red, much like his hair, with an intricate black flame design on the side of the blade. The handguard, on the other hand, was shaped like a flame with a red core and an orange border. It was also coated in chakra-conducting metal, making it possible for him to push his chakra through the blade. Naruto was so thankful, he gave the man a hug. After his business in the Iron Country was over, he made his way to the Earth Country. The reason for this was simple. He wanted to steal the scroll containing the dust release and plasma release techniques. It would have been impossible for a Konoha shinobi to enter IWA, even more so for the son of the Yellow Flash, who dealt IWA the greatest wound ever during the Third Shinobi War. That would be the case for Naruto if he didn't have his Devil Fruit ability. Not a single soul could identify him, and he safely made his way into IWA. He broke into the Forbidden Room at night, past 3 elite Jonin guards, and stole the contents of the scroll. At the end, however, he tripped a bit, causing the 3 to bust into the room to see the scroll opened and out of place, but he was long gone by then and left with a complete copy of the scroll. For 10 days, the village was on high alert since Oniki was extremely stressed due to the scroll's secrets having been stolen. Thankfully, the scroll and the culprit had disappeared long ago. Otherwise, the Fourth Ninja War would have started way too early. His next journey took him to Wave Country, where he rented a boat, and with another companion, he journeyed to his ancestral homeland, the Whirlpool Country. This was where he uncovered many secrets about the Uzumaki and gained powers that would make many seethe with jealousy. He could get past the barrier his ancestors had set up because he was a royal Uzumaki. The barrier was in place with numerous seals around them that either electrocuted, cut, or destroyed the person trying to open the seal. Though it looked menacing, when a person lives with Tobirama Senju, their intelligence and logical thinking naturally improve. When something seems too complicated to solve, the answer to it is always too simple. You just have to see it with your eyes wide open. Those were the words Tobirama had told Naruto the first time he had started struggling with seals. So, Naruto followed his grandfather/mentor's advice here as well. He took out a kunai and quickly slashed his palm open, smearing blood all over the part of the barrier in front of him before he body flickered from the island to avoid any catastrophes in case that didn't work. But it did. He was extremely relieved alongside his companion, and the two finally went inside, where they stayed and practiced for 3 to 4 years before they got involved in this mess. Flashback, a few months before. On the shores of the abandoned island of the Land of Whirlpool, a man could be seen practicing his katas with swords in both hands. He posed an intimidating figure, being 6 feet 4 inches tall with a body that would put Adonis to shame, along with his blood-red hair and glowing dark bi-colored eyes that made him the wet dream of every woman. This man was Naruto Uzumaki Senju, the heir of both the Senju and Uzumaki clans. He was following his regular daily practice routine when he sensed someone approaching the island and rearranging the seals at a very fast pace, which would allow them to enter the island. They might be stopped by the barrier, but he didn't know this person's proficiency in seals, so he quickly grabbed his swords and made his way towards the barrier entrance in case it was an enemy. His premonition about the person's proficiency in seals turned out to be right, as they were able to rearrange the seals to open a window in the barrier, allowing them to enter the island, although the window was only open for a few moments. He landed directly in front of the person who had entered and was enchanted by the person's beauty. She was extremely beautiful. She had raven-colored hair, milky white skin, bright blue eyes, full lips, and a body that people would kill for. She had an hourglass figure with a handful of D-cup breasts that jiggled every time she walked, and a fat bubbly but that swayed and jiggled with each step. He quickly broke out of his stupor and, using a single hand sign, manipulated the sand to bind the intruder with shackles and immobilize her until her intentions could be determined. He didn't actually need hand signs to use his devil fruit's power, but he didn't want people to know he was capable of that. Plus, it would help him to confuse his enemies in the future if he suddenly started using jutsu without a single hand sign, giving him an opportunity to surprise them. Well, this is the first time I have seen someone proficient enough in skills to rearrange them at a moment's notice, he says as he sheaths his swords before looking at the intruder. I was correct. The Uzumaki clan still lives, the girl exclaimed happily. Naruto looked confused and at her questioningly before asking, "Who are you and what are your reasons for coming here?" The answers better be good. The girl started to feel death creeping up on her as Naruto exerted his chakra upon her for a moment, but that single moment was enough for the girl to understand who and what she was dealing with. I'll tell you everything, Uzumaki-san. My name is Robin. I hail from the Nikko clan of Kirigakure. I came here to the ruins of Uzushio to collect any methods or tools that would help us rebels in ending the reign of the tyrannical Mizukage, Yagura. What do you mean by rebels? I'm sorry, but I am not that well informed about the happenings in Kirigakure that have occurred in these last few years, Naruto says as he manipulates the sand to form a chair for him to sit on. Years ago, the newly appointed Mizukage, a year into their rule, ordered the complete annihilation of all bloodline clans and shinobi in Kirigakure. This edict followed the brutal rebellion of the Kagaya clan, who had slaughtered many of our shinobi. Though the exact cause of their rampage remains a mystery, it appeared they had lost control of their powers. Because of this, the Mizukage ordered the extermination of every person in our country with a bloodline. Even civilians were not spared. To end the slaughter, an alliance of many bloodline clans formed, gathering forces to oppose the Mizukage's authority. And so, the rebellion began. Mei Terumi, our commander and an elite jonin of our village, sent me here. She's also the heiress to the Terumi clan. My knowledge of seals is why I was chosen for this mission. My grandmother, an Uzumaki, taught me, but she passed away when I was a child, Robin finished, her voice thick with sadness. The memory of lost loved ones is a pain no one wishes to revisit. That explains your proficiency with seals. But why didn't your daimyo take action against Yagura? Naruto asked. That coward only cares about himself. He doesn't give a damn about his people, she spat, her voice laced with fury. I understand. As an Uzumaki, I can't let you take any of our artifacts or secrets from here, Naruto began. Hope drained from Robin's eyes, she knew she was outmatched by his power. However, I've been cooped up here for too long, and I need to stretch my legs. I can't stand tyrants who harm the innocent, so the least I can do is help you put an end to one. So, Robin-san, when do we leave? Naruto asked, standing up and freeing Robin from her shackles. Robin was ecstatic. She had felt his immense power, and with him on their side, the balance of power had shifted dramatically. After some quick preparations, they set off for the land of water, hoping to free the land from its tyrant and restore peace. Flashback end. Naruto stood on the cliffs overlooking the battlefield, a vantage point separating the rebel camp from the imminent clash. This was the place where they would finally confront Yagura's forces and decide the fate of their country once and for all. This was their last stand. Naruto could only hope that everything would turn out alright in the end. Meanwhile, in Konoha, as the rebels in Kirigakure prepared for their final stand against Yagura's forces, the atmosphere in Konoha was calm and peaceful. In the Hokage's office, Minato Namikaze, the man hailed as the Yellow Flash and currently the strongest Kage in all the elemental nations, was working through his daily stack of paperwork. Just like his speed in battle, he finished his paperwork in a flash. His gaze then fell on a framed photograph on his desk, a picture of his family. For most, a family photo brings joy, but for Minato, this one ignited deep feelings of regret and self-loathing. It reminded him of his failure as a father. It was a picture of him and his wife, Kushina, with all 4 of their children including the one they had forgotten after his 4th birthday, their second son, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Everything came crashing down for the family 6 months after their children's birthday. Flashback. A large group of people had gathered at the Namikaze Uzumaki household. The sheer number of powerful and famous shinobi in that room could, on their own, destroy the morale of entire enemy battalions. The gathering included Minato Namikaze, Kushina Uzumaki, Tsunade Senju, Jiraiya the Toad Sage, and Hiruzen Sarutobi, who was attending his first party in 9 years. Sarutobi had been extremely busy managing his clan, caring for his wife who was left disabled after the Nine Tails attack, and raising his 5-year-old grandson, who had lost both parents on a mission a few years earlier. His son Asuma had recently returned home after serving as the daimyo's guard for several years, which had finally freed up some of his time. Since Hiruzen was finally free, Jiraiya organized a small, private party for only their closest friends. Everyone was drinking and having a good time. The Namikaze children were out with friends, so the adults had the house to themselves. Soon, the doorbell rang. When Tsunade opened the door, she was surprised to see her granduncle, Tobirama Senju, and her old teammate, Orochimaru, standing there. She invited them in, assuming they had been invited to the party, which they had. They greeted everyone and sat down, only speaking when necessary, unlike Jiraiya, who had to comment on everything. The conversation soon shifted to the progress of the Uzumaki Namikaze children's ninja training. Jiraiya boasted about his students, Menma and Natsumai, who had already begun to control the first tail of the Nine Tails chakra and had an affinity for earth and water, respectively. They had even used the chakra to summon Gamabunta, the boss summon of the Toad clan. Tsunade praised her student, Mito, for her excellent chakra control and talent in medical arts. She was also progressing well with her control of the Nine Tails chakra and had a water affinity, like her sister, with a weaker secondary affinity for wind. Minato and Kushina both praised their children, expressing their belief that they would all become incredibly powerful shinobi in the future. They thought the conversation was over and moved on to other topics. But then Hiruzen asked a question that brought a sudden silence to the room. And how is Naruto-kun's training coming along? The silence was so profound that you could hear the breathing of the Umbu stationed outside the Hokage's house. Hiruzen was confused by the uncomfortable quiet and the blank expressions on everyone's faces. Tobirama and Orochimaru sat quietly with their eyes closed. He was still unsure of what was happening until Jiraiya asked, "Who?" That one word was enough for Hiruzen to understand the situation that had unfolded in his absence. He quickly turned to Minato and Kushina and asked, "Where is Naruto-kun, Kushina, Minato? Do you remember Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze? Your second son, the eldest of the triplets? The one who was always hanging on Kushina's shoulders?" Something in Kushina's mind snapped. Memories of a cute child with ice blue eyes and blood-red hair, who always wore a genuine smile, flooded her mind. Memories of a child who was attacked moments after his birth. Memories of a child whose first word had been Kaa-chan. She couldn't take it anymore. Tears began to stream down her face as her eyes widened, staring at the floor. Minato quickly ran upstairs, trying to remember where his son's room was. He searched the entire floor and finally found an old, worn-out door, covered in dust. He opened it, and the sight made him break down. The room was empty. There was only a small, child-sized bed with layers of dirt and dust covering it, along with an empty bookshelf and cupboard. Nothing in the room suggested a child had ever lived there, adding to the rising panic in his heart. He ran back downstairs, about to call the Umbu to search for his son, when something Orochimaru said shocked everyone. "You were correct as always, Tobirama-sama. It seems Sensei did remember him after all." "What do you mean, Orochimaru? Where is my son?" Kushina shouted as Tsunade tried to comfort her. Jiraiya just sat there in shock, having never seen this coming. Not even Hiruzen was prepared for his student's actions. "I don't believe you have the right to call him your son, Kushina. After all, you didn't remember his existence from the day that perverted Toad brought news of the prophecy to you and your husband. Tell me, do you remember anything about him from that day forward?" Tobirama said, finally opening his eyes. While he remained outwardly calm, anyone could see the fury burning within them. Both parents flinched, looking down at the floor, not daring to meet his gaze. They knew they had made a terrible mistake, but they couldn't fathom the extent of their neglect and how it had affected their son. "What do you mean, Sensei? Do you know where Naruto-kun is?" Hiruzen asked his old teacher, as he and Orochimaru were the only ones who remained calm. "Yes, Saru, I know where Naruto is," Tobirama said with a sigh. He then began to explain how he stumbled upon Naruto near the clan districts. He was impressed by the child and took him on as a student. After the issue with the airships on Naruto's 8th birthday, he used a secret Senju clan jutsu to blood adopt Naruto into the Senju family, making him his heir. He also spoke about Naruto's abilities, his first kill, his friendship with a Hyuga and Uchiha girl, and how he was currently traveling halfway across the continent with only his skills, basic camping supplies, and weapons to aid him. By the end of the explanation, Kushina was openly sobbing, Minato looked on the verge of a heart attack, Tsunade had her head down as she comforted Kushina, and Jiraiya looked like he wanted to dig a hole and die in it. thanks to the disgusted stares from his old teacher and teammate. I send one of my summons every 2 months to keep tabs on his whereabouts. If the recent letter I received from him is accurate, he is currently training in the Land of Iron, with Mifune personally overseeing his training. He is also the one who has been exterminating those bandit camps, Orochimaru said, shocking everyone again, except for Tobirama. So you see, Kushina, what he does or where he is none of your concern, since you disowned him when you took away his heirship. He is now only an Uzumaki in name. He is a Senju now, and not just a Senju, he is the clan heir. So, I advise you not to trouble him, Tobirama said before he and Orochimaru left as quietly as they had come. Even Sarutobi decided to leave, hoping Naruto would return safely. And just like that, the family fell apart. Flashback ends. Later that night, when the children returned and were told of the day's events, their reactions were not what Minato had expected. Menma and Natsumi just laughed and made fun of the family loser, while Mito acted completely indifferent, not caring about her brother at all. If her parents and godparents didn't care, why should she? When Minato's killing intent pressed down on them, they realized they should have kept their mouths shut. Minato coldly told them to shut up and warned them that there would be severe consequences if it ever happened again and if he ever heard them talking about their brother that way again. Kushina had locked herself in her room, and the sound of her sobs could be heard all day. She clutched the last photo they had of all 6 of them, taken when Naruto was 5. She had lost her son because of a stupid prophecy and listening to that pervert, and now he wasn't even her son anymore. This was the first time she had felt true despair. Not even the Nine Tails attack or her attempted kidnapping by Kumo Shinobi came close. Life for the family had pretty much fallen apart. Only Minato and Kushina's desperate drive to be better parents kept them together. The siblings did not care about their other sibling and showed no reaction to his situation. Tsunade was deeply disappointed in herself and had returned to drinking heavily every day, forcing Shizun to take over her hospital duties. Training Mito was the only time she was somewhat sober, but it was obvious she was not herself. The guilt she felt, realizing she was partly to blame for the poor child's suffering, was eating her alive. Jiraiya was down for a few days but soon returned to normal, rationalizing his actions as necessary for the greater good. He began training Menma and Natsumi harder than ever, but simply helping them control the Nine Tails chakra wasn't enough. Unfortunately, Jiraiya was a terrible teacher. Just when Minato thought things were starting to settle down, Konoha was hit with another major blow. Elder Danzo and his root operatives had slaughtered many of the Uchiha's forces and stolen the Sharingan of some of them. This caused an uproar in the village, as no one expected an elder to exterminate a major clan. The Uchiha were out for blood. When other crimes of Danzo were revealed, such as selling sensitive intel to enemies, sabotaging missions, kidnapping orphans, and desecrating graves of notable shinobi, the village began to doubt both the 3rd and 4th Hokage's abilities. They were especially enraged when it was revealed that Danzo was responsible for Sakumo's failed mission and his subsequent suicide, which had sparked the 3rd Shinobi War. It was also discovered that he had helped various villages kill Senju clan members on missions, all so he could take the Hokage's seat. Many Hunter Nin and Umbu squads were sent after the bastard, who was labeled an S-rank rogue ninja. However, they all returned empty-handed. The village was put under martial law, and no one was allowed to enter or leave. Minato had to provide numerous explanations and work overtime to prevent a civil war and avoid losing his position, or worse, his head. However, this event was a major one in the life of one girl. Flashback. For the past 2 years, Ai Hayasaka Hayaga and Kagaya Uchiha woke up every morning and went to their secret training ground in the Senju clan compound to train in shinobi arts with their teachers, Orochimaru and Shisui Uchiha. Tobirama himself would supervise their training and offer advice to help them improve. The 2 girls were living the dream of many shinobi, but they still weren't happy. First, their dear friend had been gone for 2 years, and it just wasn't the same without him. Second, both girls were from clans known for their visual prowess, their dojutsu, something neither of them had yet awakened. In Ai's case, they knew how to help her awaken her dojutsu, even if it would take some time. But for Kagaya, they couldn't understand why she was unable to awaken her Sharingan. With the amount of training she went through, she should have easily unlocked the 1st or even the 2nd stage. In her mind, if her dojutsu hadn't unlocked, she wasn't training hard enough. After pleading with Tobirama once again, she began training in the evening as well. This time, it was just her and Tobirama, with Shisui or Orochimaru occasionally joining them. Today was no different. Tobirama was helping her control her wind chakra. She was progressing well with her elemental manipulation and was able to learn basic C-rank and low B-rank ninjutsu for her elemental affinities, but her chakra capacity was becoming an obstacle. Shisui usually helped her train her fire affinity, while Orochimaru and, to a lesser extent, Tobirama, helped her with her earth affinity. As she was practicing with Tobirama watching over her, they were suddenly interrupted by the sound of someone using the body flicker technique. When they turned around, they were shocked not by the person's identity but by his condition. It was Shisui, but he was covered in blood and cuts that looked like they were from wind ninjutsu and sword attacks. He was barely able to stand. As soon as he stumbled, both Kagaya and Tobirama were at his side, holding him and gently laying him down. Shisui, are you alright? Talk to me. Kagaya cried, quickly making a clone to go and get Orochimaru to help heal him. Shisui smiled weakly and spoke in a hoarse voice, I'm sorry, Kagaya-chan, but I don't think I'll be able to see you mature into a strong kunoichi, or teach you more of my ninjutsu, like I promised. No, don't worry. Orochimaru-sama will fix you up, and you'll be fine, she said, tears streaming down her cheeks as she clutched her cousin and teacher's hand, hoping for a miracle. It's no use, please, Kagaya-chan, listen to what I'm saying now, please. A couple of months ago, the Hokage became suspicious of Elder Danzo's movements. He told me to infiltrate his organization, a secret group he called Root, a part of the Umbu that was supposed to have been disbanded after the Third War, but Hokage-sama recently found out he hadn't disbanded it. I successfully infiltrated and learned he was planning something big to take the Hokage position for himself. I was going to inform Minato-sama today, but I didn't realize my cover had been blown and I was attacked by Danzo and his forces. I managed to injure him and kill his men, but I suffered too many injuries. I don't think I'll make it, so please, take care of yourself and the village and live happily, Shisui said, his breathing becoming labored as he began to cough up blood. Orochimaru arrived soon after. After a diagnosis, he could only shake his head, the damage was too severe to heal. Kagaya could do nothing but sob harder as she clutched Shisui for what would be the last time. Shisui then turned to Tobirama, who was deadly silent, but the rage he was radiating was obvious, his chakra was violently raging. Danzo was his student, after all, and he couldn't help but feel disappointed. Tobirama-sama, I trust you know what to do with these eyes once I pass away. Keep them for her, she will need them someday, Shisui said, his Sharingan changing to a distinct 4-point pinwheel pattern. This greatly surprised Tobirama. He understood the importance of those eyes in Shisui's intentions. He knew Shisui believed Kagaya would need them, so he nodded firmly, promising the young boy he would honor his final request. He would never disappoint him or his new student and swore to himself that he would not let her succumb to the curse of hatred. Kagaya-chan, I prepared a gift for you, but I don't think I'll be able to give it to you now. Go to my house, look under the bed, there's something special for you. Consider it a farewell present. His body was failing, and his breathing slowed as he gave in to his injuries, but right before his eyes closed for the last time, he smiled and said, Don't cry. Death is a normal part of life. Always remember, Kagaya-chan, I am so proud of you. With that, Uchiha Shisui died peacefully with a smile on his face. Suddenly, a massive surge of chakra erupted from Kagaya, who was still hugging her brother's lifeless body, sobbing uncontrollably. If a censor as skilled as Tobirama had been there, they would have felt that something had been unsealed within the girl. Kagaya, Tobirama called out gently, careful not to startle her. He knew how traumatic it was to lose someone at such a young age, so he approached her cautiously. But the moment the young girl turned to face him, her eyes filled with tears, Tobirama was completely shell-shocked. In place of her usual warm and gentle red eyes, they were now overflowing with tears, and the irises had a black ring with 3 tomo furiously spinning as her anguish poured out. Tobirama gently hugged the child, letting her cry out her sorrow before she calmed down. He then gently pressed a pressure point on her neck so she would fall asleep, as it had been a very difficult day for her. That was the day Kagaya Uchiha was reborn as a true Uchiha. Flashback end. Later, while she was unconscious, Orochimaru and Tobirama examined her body, trying to figure out why her Sharingan had activated so differently from other clan members. It had taken a long time for her to activate it, and when it finally did, it was a fully matured Sharingan, not the usual 1 or 2 tomo stage. This baffled them, and they were determined to find the reason. And they did. Apparently, for some unknown reason, while Kagaya was in her mother's womb, her underdeveloped body had been nourished by the unique chakra required for Uchihas to activate their Sharingan. Tobirama suspected it was Yin chakra. This caused her optic nerves to develop a kind of resistance to it, preventing her from activating her dojutsu and also changing her eye color to red. However, this caused the unique chakra produced in her body to build up over time until her emotions were pushed over the edge by the death of Shisui Uchiha. As a result, she was finally able to use her Sharingan. They did not know if the same would happen when she tried to achieve her Mangekyo Sharingan. Ever since that day, Kagaya's training became much more rigorous, as Tobirama would not go easy on her. Since she could now master ninjutsu easily, he wanted her to train even harder. Her chakra capacity also was not that great compared to Naruto and monsters like Kisame, so her training schedule also included routines specifically designed to help her increase her chakra capacity and control. He was going to make sure she stayed on the path of righteousness and did not give in to the temptation of the curse of hatred that had consumed many Uchihas. He was going to make sure she had an anchor to the village, and more importantly, to herself. Failure was not an option, because if he failed, Konoha would have to face another monster that would make Madara Uchiha look tame. Moments before the Civil War. Naruto was still outside, observing the battlefield. As a skilled sensor, he could feel the chakra of the shinobi and Kiri, and he could feel them gathering their forces for the final battle. He was anticipating the battle, but he wasn't looking forward to it, as he knew many would die. This was the main reason he was even helping a country that had helped destroy his clan. While he was no stranger to killing and saw it as a necessity to kill a few so many could live, he did not like innocent people dying. That's why he had baited the Mizukage into meeting them in an open field to decide the winner once and for all. A shinobi's life mainly revolves around stealth and assassination, but in situations like this and the great ninja wars, every shinobi and kunoichi brought everything they had to the battlefield to prove their worth. This was one of those situations. Naruto could have simply attacked the village with his powers, destroying the walls and letting the rebel army through. This would have been simple and effective, but the Mizukage still had civilians trapped inside, and Naruto would not sacrifice them just to kill the Mizukage. But it wasn't his job to worry about them anyway. The only reason Mei and the other rebels allowed him to lead this attack was because he was their best chance at survival and minimizing losses. Ability-wise, he was the only one who could even match the Mizukage in a fight. Mei and the other leaders would have trouble handling him even with their combined strength, which is why he was leading this battle. His strategies were also the only thing that had allowed the rebels to inflict such damage on the Mizukage's forces in such a short time. Seeing his capabilities, he was now the leader of the forces that would finally end the tyrant's rule. He was broken out of his thoughts when someone gently placed a hand on his shoulder, and he wasn't startled in the slightest, as he could feel the familiar chakra that resonated with his. It was his adopted sister, Karen Uzumaki. She was a year younger than him, and her life had been a series of tragedies and heartbreaks. She and her mother, who had been living on the edge of the fire country, were forced to flee their village when she was 8 years old. They thought they were lucky when some jonin from the village hidden in the grass, Kusagakur, found and helped them. They were brought to the village and treated well. But they soon discovered their true motive. They were after the special ability her mother had. Anyone who bit into her skin and ingested some of her DNA or chakra would be able to recover from their injuries, depending on the severity of the wounds and how much chakra they were supplied. She helped them since they had offered her and her daughter refuge in their village, but she soon came to regret it. Karen's mother, Kuona, was used as a blood factory to treat anyone who had even the slightest injuries, and everyone would brutally hurt her while doing so, since they had discovered she could heal herself. Kuona was helpless as Karen was their hostage, and she could not let her daughter be killed by them. This went on for over 3 years, until one day, Karen finally showed signs of possessing the same ability. Kuona was scared for her daughter's fate as she understood the true price of that power. She knew they were constantly being watched, so she used her best skill as an Uzumaki for the first time in a long time, the chakra chains. She could only manifest 3 of them and used them to escape the village with her daughter in her arms, flinging the 2 of them across trees and landscapes like a rope. Although it helped her for a while, ninja from Kusa eventually caught up to them and stabbed her. This caused her to lose focus, and she fell, along with Karen, who injured herself but healed her wound instantly. This caused the jonin in front of them to grin cruelly, as this meant they could now use Karen as well. He thought of getting rid of the older woman, as he knew she would always try to escape with her daughter, and they did not want to risk her being discovered by Konoha, as it could lead to war due to an agreement between them to find Uzumaki clan members and return them to Konoha. So, he decided to eliminate the problem and used a tanto to stab the woman multiple times in the stomach, laughing brutally as he did so. The very next moment, his arm was cut off, and blood gushed out of it like a fountain. He was shocked, and pain filled his entire body. His forces behind him were also shocked and became more alert. Soon, they saw the reason their boss was missing a hand. A boy no older than 12 or 13 was walking toward them with cold eyes and an okatana that glowed red as if it had been heated in a furnace. The jonin commanded them to attack him, and a massacre began. The boy killed all of them, quite brutally. They fell one by one like flies, and the last thing they saw before their death was a boy, no, a demon, wielding a sword with cold heterochromatic eyes, sending their souls to the Shinigami with a single slash of his blade. That boy was Naruto Uzumaki Senju, who was passing by when he sensed familiar chakra that resonated with his and arrived at the scene. He quickly tried to treat the lady, but she refused, saying that she had already used up all her life force in those 3 years. That was the price of that ability. A person could use their chakra to heal people, but for a person like her, who was born with low chakra reserves, for an Uzumaki, it was too much for her, and she perished. Her last request was that he take care of her daughter, something Naruto vowed to do for the rest of his life. He consoled Karen after the poor child watched her mother's life drain out of her eyes at such a young age. No child should have to suffer this, but unfortunately, circumstances did not favor them. Naruto then asked her what she wanted to do after this, and Karen's answer surprised him. She wanted to follow him to become stronger so something like this never happened again, but she wanted to avenge her mother first. Naruto understood where she was coming from, and he explained to her that dedicating herself to avenging her mother's death would not allow her to reach her true potential. Karen was sad about this, as it meant she would not be allowed to get revenge for her mother's abuse, but Naruto surprised her once again. He told her something she would always live by. Never let the people who hurt your family get away. Hurt them, but do not lose yourself while doing so, as it would mean that your mother's sacrifice was for nothing. Naruto wasn't going to let anyone who hurt his clan get away without paying the price. What followed next reached the ears of all the villages, even the great villages. In a single night, every single ninja in the Hidden Grass village, from Genin to Jonin, along with their daimyo, small villages do not have cages, and his guards, had been killed. The civilians did not know anything that happened, as their memories had been wiped clean. The very knowledge of the shinobi and their arts had been erased from their minds. Naruto created a seal that erases the memories of a civilian since their mind is unguarded by their chakra and could be easily altered. The seal would draw chakra from the civilian's body and the surroundings and would keep going until they died. They were all shocked and sent the best of their scouts to get an idea of what happened. And all of them gave the same report when they returned. The civilians did not have anything to say, as if their memory had been wiped clean since they did not possess any knowledge about shinobi, and only a few samurai and the like were still alive. A new daimyo had been appointed, the cousin of the late daimyo that was killed, but a statue of a woman had been left at the end of the village, with the words, "Here lies a mother who sacrificed everything to protect her child. Long live Kuina Uzumaki, a true mother. She was hurt by these monsters, and now she has been avenged. May she rest in peace. Beware our enemies, long live the Uzumaki. We did not disappear into the night, if you mess with us, we shall come for you." A very high-level ceiling barrier surrounded her grave, and no one could get through it. If anyone tried, they would be electrocuted immediately. This shocked everyone for multiple reasons. First, an entire village of ninjas was annihilated for one woman, and secondly, the fact that the Uzumakis were back. This especially terrified Iwa and Kumo, as they were the ones responsible for their destruction along with Kiri, but they were the ones involved the most, unlike Kiri who only sent 100 to 200 shinobi. This needed to be dealt with, but they did not have any leads to what happened. Even Konoha was stumped. Kushina was the most shocked, as this was the first time in so many years since the demise of Uzu, that any news regarding it had come through. She did not know what had exactly happened, but she would definitely find out, as she could not help but feel that her missing son was somehow related to this, but she prayed for his safety. Back in the present, Karen stood beside her older brother and guardian as she watched him get lost in his thoughts. She knew that he did not like killing, but he would do it if it meant it was the only way, and right now, it was. "Nii-san, the forces have been organized. The leaders need to be assigned to each squad and tasks need to be distributed. Let's go, we have a battle to win," she told him as she watched him look at her with pride in his eyes. She had come a long way with his help, and she would forever be indebted to him. Naruto smiled lightly as he watched the fierce determination in the eyes of the girl he had saved and left with her to address the army of the rebels. It was time to end this. An hour later. It was time. The forces of the rebel factions had gathered near the snowy mountains, and the leaders were also prepared to go out and give it their all, along with every single shinobi there. In the distance, near the borders of the village, forces of Kiri shinobi could be seen gathering, led by masked men who served as leaders. These men belonged to the flow unit of Kirigakure. They served as the umbu of the village and had status just below that of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. They were not to be taken lightly. A short man could be seen standing above all of them, as he stood on the walls of the village and watched the battlefield like a hawk. This was Yagura Karatachi, the Yandane Mizukage and the Jinchuriki of the Sanbai. A man so brutal and vicious, he had slaughtered half of his own people. Naruto had already called dibs on that fucker. He turned his head toward the other Uzumaki beside him and asked her, "Karen, how do you feel about them? Is anyone worth saving?" The reason he asked this of her was simple. As an Uzumaki, Karen was naturally good at sensing people, but she also had a special ability called Mind's Eye of the Kagura, a special technique that allowed the user to exceptionally enhance their senses, allowing them to not only sense chakra at a great distance but also sense the intent of people. The more innocent the person, the purer and more comforting their chakra felt. But for people who had been swallowed by their darkness, their chakra seemed malicious and borderline psychopathic. Naruto asked her to use this ability to ensure if anyone amidst the enemy forces was worth saving, but to her surprise, Nii-sama, all of them have chakra as dark as the night. It feels as if they relished exterminating their fellow comrades who possessed a bloodline. "None of them even feel human to me," Karen informed Naruto as sweat ran down her forehead. While this technique did not take a physical toll on her, the pressure from the malicious chakra and the killer intent she felt was making her feel sick. These people were truly not human. Naruto only nodded and steeled his resolve as he took a breath to stabilize himself. This was going to be his first taste of war, and he did not want to make a mistake and pay for it in the middle of the battle. He turned around to address the army one final time. "Everyone, this is it. The moment you all have fought for is here. Victory is only one battle away. Don't give up now. Even if their numbers overwhelm ours, we shall fight till our last breath, so give it your all." The morale of the rebel forces shot up, and they started cheering. May and the others also took their time addressing the army and told them to be careful as their dream was about to come true and they wanted all of them to see it blossom with them. This was enough to get the army fired up. And moments later, the battle began. Meanwhile in Konoha, in the Hokage's office in the Hidden Leaf Village, alongside the Hokage, the Yellow Flash, Minato Namikaze, dozens of other shinobi and kunoichi of the village were gathered as they had been summoned to lead a team of genin and have them experience the world of shinobi and how they were expected to work in this world, along with its harsh realities. They were just about to begin when the door opened and a guest walked in, surprising everyone, as nobody expected him to take a genin team after what had happened the last time he took a team of students to train. Minato, who was just as surprised as everyone else, spoke up. "Orochimaru-san, are you also here for the genin team placements or is it something else?" Orochimaru, still wearing his makeup, gave a snake-like smile to his friend's apprentice before saying, "I am here to request a couple of individuals for my team as well, Hokage-sama." This surprised everyone greatly, as Orochimaru had refused to take a team to train every time he was offered the chance, after the death of his first team which included Tsunade's younger brother, Noeka Senju. He had only trained a couple of apprentices after that and yet he had never taken a team again. But now, he was about to, for the first time in almost 30 years. This excited the other jonin, as they wanted to know who had caught the eye of the strongest of the legendary Sunin. "So, I guess you can pick first since you did not put in an application before, but it is fine. So, who is it that you would like to choose, Orochimaru-san?" Minato said with a visible smile on his face as he could relax a bit now. With one of the Sunin leading a team, the probability of students passing this year would definitely increase. Their chances of surviving in the field would increase as well. "Minato-kun, I would like to request Kagaya Uchiha and Ai Hayasaka Hayaga for my team. Those two would be sufficient." This once again surprised everyone, as they had heard about these two girls. Both were rumored to be extremely beautiful, but whenever someone tried to approach them, they would stare at him like that person was a dung beetle or something worse. The two were also extremely powerful and were known to have great potential, as they had achieved a near-perfect score in practical exams and were known to be able to perform several C and B rank ninjutsu quite easily. "Orochimaru-san, you are aware that you would be required to take one more student since our teams perform in a four-man cell?" Minato questioned along with several jonin nodding alongside him. "Do not worry, Hokage-sama, I have seen these two young women grow up and become the kunoichi they are today, and have even had a hand in training these two. These two would be enough, and any other person would just be a liability to our team." Minato felt helpless in this situation and could not help but agree with Orochimaru's demands, as if he decided to add another person to the cell, it could affect the functionality of the team, and he could not risk that, so he agreed. Next, he turned to another jonin and said, "Kakashi, please select your students and give me information on the type of team you envision them to be." Kakashi Hatake, the sole survivor of Minato's genin team and his cherished protege, set down his well-worn copy of the orange book, Ika Ika Tactics. "Hokage-sama," he began, "I want Suzuki Uchiha, Sakura Harino, and Sai on my squad. I can instruct Suzuki on how to harness his Sharingan and help him acclimate to it. From what I know, Sakura is exceptionally bright with excellent chakra control, which would make her a capable medic. As for Sai, his skills from his time en route will be invaluable, especially since I intend to build this team into a frontal assault/assassination unit. He's clearly beyond the genin level, and I believe working with this team will aid him in recovering from his route experience." As expected, Kakashi had provided a flawless rationale and chosen the ideal candidates for the team he had in mind. Minato offered a faint smile, a look of pride in his eyes as he considered how far his student had progressed from the arrogant youth few people liked to the man he was today. Though, he still wished he would improve his punctuality and curb his perverted chuckles. A few other jonin made their selections, many of them choosing civilian students, before it was the turn of Asuma, Kurane, and Kushina Uzumaki. Yes, she had also chosen to resume her duties as a Konoha kunoichi and decided to take on a genin team. Asuma and Kurane chose an intelligence gathering and a hunting/tracking team, respectively, the same as in canon. When it was finally her turn, Kushina stepped forward and, with a serious demeanor, stated, "Hokage-sama, I would like to request Menma, Natsumi, and Mito Uzumaki Namikaze for my team. As a former Jinchuriki, I believe I can help them master their chakra, and with my chakra chains, I can also restrain them and prevent them from losing control. This team would be a heavy-hitting unit, with Menma and Natsumi serving as the primary mid- to long-range fighters and Mito as a combat medic." Minato was pleased with her reasoning and a faint smile touched his lips as he thought about his children finally becoming Konoha shinobi. At the same time, however, his eyes grew dim, and he was overcome by a wave of intense sadness and regret, knowing that not all of his children would be graduating today. Kushina noticed this and struggled to keep her own emotions in check. Ever since she lost her son, she hadn't been the same, a change many people noticed but no one asked about. Only Mikoto Uchiha knew the reason, and they hadn't spoken in years, not since their children's 8th birthday. Kushina had finally understood why they had stopped speaking and tried to reconnect a few years prior, after discovering that Naruto was friends with Mikado's daughter. They had spoken for a few moments, and when Kagaya walked in, Kushina had to admit the girl was truly stunning, but the sheer disgust with which the child had looked at her made her realize the extent of her failures. If Naruto's friend looked at her that way, how would her own son react if she ever saw him again? Only time would tell, and Kushina wasn't sure if she wanted to find out. Back in the mist, the conflict raged like a fierce tempest. Countless corpses littered the ground, and rivers of blood soaked the battlefield a vivid red. The screams of the people grew louder with each passing moment, and even after an hour, the war showed no signs of abating. Although the pile of fallen bodies continued to grow, most of them belonged to the Mizukige's forces. This was because Karen had called upon her contracted animal clan to help her in the fight. She was one of the few who possessed the legendary summoning contracts that the Uzumaki had. Her summons, the Wolf Clan, were causing chaos on the battlefield, as the Mist Ninja had no way to counter this move. Consequently, they lost many of their men to the colossal beasts that used their claws, fangs, and swords to tear the enemy forces apart. The Mist Ninja were easily subdued, but they weren't the main issue. The first problem was the Flow unit, which was currently being engaged by Ao and his forces, including many elite ninja from the Hunter-nin Corps who had defected with him. The leaders of this corps were also a part of that battle. While the Mizukage had the advantage in numbers, the rebels had experience and the power of bloodlines. This was a significant help to their forces, as the Flow unit was better suited for assassinations and covert operations. Many of their abilities were related to stealth and ending a fight in an instant. However, with a large number of sensor ninjas on Ao's side, this was proving to be a difficult task. Meanwhile, Mei was locked in a fierce battle with her former commander and friend, the captain of the Flow unit, Turtle, or Hirata Mamakai. They had been teammates and had attended the academy together. However, when he had tried to kill her after cornering her with many of their unit members, she lost all trust and respect for him. Still, it pained her that she had to fight and kill a comrade with whom she had shared so much. While all this was happening, Naruto stood face to face with the man responsible for the carnage, the fourth Mizukage, Yagura Karatachi. He was a short man with unkempt brownish-green hair and pink, pupilless eyes that showed no remorse or guilt for the lives lost today. A scar ran down his right cheek, which appeared to have been stitched up, though it was clear it was caused by a sword. He had a rather long staff on his back that was filled with uneven hooks and had a flower-shaped design at the end. Naruto felt nothing but disgust looking at the man who had committed genocide and massacred his own people, from infants to the elderly. Is this what you imagined your reign would be like, Yagura Karatachi? Was it worth it? Look around you. These are your people, losing their lives over your grudge. Was all of this worth their spilled blood? Naruto said with a raised voice, noting that the battle was nearly over. The ninjas who had surrendered were being rounded up, while Karen and a few others made their way closer to them. In the distance, Ao and his team could also be seen approaching, while Mei put the finishing touches on her battle with the commander. It seemed they were having one last conversation before she took his life. There's no point in me answering your question, Naruto Uzumaki. However, I can see now that I've lost this battle. Even if I lose my life, I am still a cage. I'll be damned if I don't drag you down to hell with me. Yagura spoke as he slowly drew his staff and took a stance often seen in those who practice Bajutsu. Naruto knew it was pointless to continue talking and decided to make the first move. He made two hand signs before thrusting his left hand forward, and a bolt of black lightning shot toward his opponent, who was taken by surprise by the color of the lightning, a technique unique to Kumagakure. Naruto didn't actually need hand signs to use ninjutsu from the elements that made up his devil fruit abilities, but he chose not to reveal that, as it might cause quite a commotion. Even Tobirama used at least 5 or 6 hand signs to conceal his full capability. Yagura watched as the attack drew near. He didn't need to wonder what would happen if it made contact, so he quickly used his secret jutsu, the water mirror technique, which created a duplicate of Naruto that used the same technique. Although the copy's attack was weaker and the lightning was blue, it did its job, greatly weakening the attack before Yagura used Wind Cutter to completely nullify the lightning bolt racing toward him. After the brief exchange of power, the two men clearly understood their respective positions and their opponent's level. While Naruto had more chakra in terms of quantity and density to rely on, Yagura had more experience and speed. This didn't surprise Naruto, as he knew the man in front of him, though short and much younger than other Kage, could easily give any of them a run for their money. And the reason for that, he was now using the chakra of the tailed beast sealed inside him. While Yagura could not use the full power of the 3 tails like Killer Bee of Kumo could, he was still quite skilled at using it. And this was the moment Naruto had been waiting for. He fumbled through the pouch hanging from his hip, pulled out a sealing tag, and began making some last-minute changes to the kanji inscribed on it. His concentration was broken by a ferocious roar as he leaped away at the last moment before a heavy, turtle-shaped creature crashed into the ground where he had been standing. Yes, Yagura Karatachi had entered the tailed beast mode, even if it was only version 2. The The creature's body was completely red, and two huge tails swayed behind him. It looked in Naruto's direction and let out an inhuman roar as everyone's attention turned to the battle between their soon-to-be dead Kage and the man who was leading them to victory. While most people would have felt nervous or afraid at that moment, Naruto simply grinned. Why? It was simple. In this state, Yagura was more susceptible to Naruto's attacks than in his normal state. With Naruto's chakra chains and sealing techniques, Yagura had just put himself in a lot of trouble. What followed was probably the most one-sided fight the ninjas on the battlefield had ever witnessed. By the end of it, they were left gawking at the sheer power the young Uzumaki possessed. Without a moment's hesitation, Naruto blitzed past the red beast and began bombarding it with multiple clones that unleashed a volley of elemental jutsus. While this didn't cause any real damage to the monster, it served its purpose of holding the beast in place. But Yagura didn't stay still. He blasted an incomplete tailed beast bomb, which blew the clones away. His eyes caught a flicker of gold moving toward him, but he couldn't get out of the way fast enough and ended up caught in a mass of golden chains made of the Uzumaki clan's special chakra. These were the same chains that had restrained the nine tails long enough for Hashirama to seal it in his wife, Mito Uzumaki, and were also used by Kushina to hold back the nine tails while Minato sealed the beast in their children. However, Naruto's chains were different. If one looked closely, it seemed as if the corrosive red chakra that enveloped the fourth Mizu Kage was receding and vanishing into thin air. This shocked all the ninjas present, as it was a well-known fact that both a Kage and a tailed beast had massive chakra reserves. So, how was this possible? It was simple. Naruto had also attached several sealing tags to his chains, which were specifically designed by him to reduce a Jinchuriki's power and the corrupting influence of the tailed beast's chakra on them. Naruto didn't waste this opportunity and quickly began bombarding the weakened Kage with a barrage of ninjutsu. He knew that after the transformation ended, Yagura would be momentarily weakened, so he seized his chance. Soon, the Kage lay exhausted and defeated on the ground, moments away from passing away, and Naruto silently walked toward him. Naruto Uzumaki, I guess I'll remember you in the afterlife. Thank you for freeing me from this curse. Yagura spoke with ragged breaths as he thanked Naruto after being broken from what he recognized as a powerful illusion that had been cast on the poor man, forcing him to take the lives of his own people. Naruto didn't say anything, but just offered a silent prayer to the Shinigami to carry the man's soul to the afterlife where he could finally live in peace. He didn't hear the members of the rebel army cheering, nor did he hear the thunder of the clouds as the heavens wept over the bloody war that had taken place that day. His only focus was on finding the man responsible for this and making him pay, a vow he had made to himself. As the sun rose over Hokage Mountain, the most prestigious monument in Konoha, the village came alive with the sound of birds chirping and the hum of stores opening as the villagers began their day in preparation for what was to come. While most wouldn't have cared about this day a decade ago, ever since Minato became Hokage, certain changes had been made to the village, some of which had boosted the morale of the villagers. Today was one such event. The Academy Graduation Exam. One of the first laws Minato passed when he took the hat from Hiruzen Sarutobi was the age restriction law for the academy. Instead of children starting at the young age of 7-5 during wartime, they now began the academy at 10 and graduated at 16, rather than 12. This gave Konoha more time to train their shinobi and properly prepare them for what was to come should they graduate. This also meant the curriculum had to be altered. He had noticed that many genin failed their missions or were killed in action, primarily due to a lack of experience in battle and in the jutsus that would assist them, which was especially true for civilian kids. Therefore, the academy's curriculum had to be changed. For the first 3 years, much of the theoretical part would be covered, while the next 3 years focused on the practical part. Students were taught how to perform the Academy 3, how to properly aim and use shuriken and kunao, and how to control their chakra with the tree climbing, wall climbing, and leaf sticking exercises. The idea of teamwork and never abandoning your comrades had been promoted in Konoha ever since Madara Uchiha and Hashirama Senju had founded the village. However, even though it was a vital part of a Konoha shinobi's training, Minato had realized they were approaching it the wrong way. The system had worked by testing the 3 students who passed the exam to see if they could work together with their Jonin sensei. If they couldn't, they would fail and have to return to the academy. But Minato decided this was a hindrance to Konoha's shinobi forces. He introduced teamwork exercises and minor D-rank missions as a way to build teamwork among all the students. Surprisingly, this had worked well so far and had solved a major issue for Konoha. The last year was focused on helping students learn basic elemental manipulation, which would allow them to master D-rank elemental ninjutsu and learn some things about C-rank elemental ninjutsu. It was no surprise that most students ended up with fire as their chakra affinity, while very few awakened earth or water. Lightning and wind were 2 of the rarest elements in the land of fire, and this was evident as not a single student had awakened them yet. But this year, it was quite a surprise for the shinobi instructors. Suzuki Uchiha, Mito Uzumaki, and Shikamaru Nara, 3 bright students who had shown throughout their academy years, awakened dual elements, a rare phenomenon. Suzuki awakened fire and lightning, while Mito awakened water and wind. Shikamaru also awakened dual elements, in the form of yin and fire. A.N. While it doesn't show up on chakra paper, a new method had been introduced by the Hokage that worked around seals. It was used to test if students had an affinity for yin or yang natures. Yang helped in mastering medical jutsus faster, while yin did the same for genjutsu. He could also use shadow release, as his family's jutsus revolved around that form of chakra. However, this was nothing compared to the surprise that was Ai Hayasaka Hayaga and Kagaya Uchiha. Both of them showed an affinity for not one, not two, but three elements. This caused a wave of surprise to flood the shinobi forces. Minato was extremely happy, as this showed that the next generation would surpass the previous one, and he couldn't be more pleased. However, it also greatly saddened him to see that his own son wasn't there to prove his merit in front of everyone in the village. He had been trying to find him ever since they discovered Naruto had left the village, but even with the help of the toads and slugs, they couldn't find a single trace of him. It was as if he had vanished from the face of the earth. While they didn't want to think about it, a brief thought appeared in their minds: what if their son had passed away in battle? They couldn't bear the thought and practically begged Orochimaru to let them know if he was alright. Orochimaru only revealed that Naruto was perfectly fine and hadn't been injured in any way. He didn't say anything more, and they didn't ask. Returning to the topic at hand, Konoha's academy system had changed quite a bit. The graduation ceremony was now held in front of both civilians and shinobi. It was similar to how the Chunin exam battles usually took place. Instead of only performing the 3 basic jutsus and a written test, students now also had to perform at least 3 elemental jutsus. They had to perform at least 2 E-rank jutsus, 1 D-rank, and an optional C-rank if they wished. This proved that they were ready for the life of a shinobi and the Chunin exams. It also showed their Jonin sensei their skill level and how to properly teach them. It had been this way for almost a decade and had proven to be a huge success in the village. It boosted the morale of the civilians seeing the next generation of shinobi in action, and the parents of the kids were also proud and reassured that their child most likely wouldn't die on a mission. A new system, implemented by Minato, drastically lowered the Konoha shinobi casualty rate. For A rank or higher missions, Minato equipped every shinobi with a special kunao. If they found themselves in peril, they could use the kunao to summon him and a squadron of elite umbu for backup. In short, Konoha had made vast improvements over the last decade. 1 hour before graduation, Senju Estate. The Senju clan training grounds echoed with the sounds of a fierce battle. An unusual scene would greet anyone who walked in. Orochimaru, the snake sage, locked in combat with 2 stunning young women. These two, Kagaya Uchiha and Ai Hayasaka Hayaga, were fully focused on their fight against their teacher. Both were set to graduate today, and Orochimaru had decided to test them now to ensure they could start missions immediately without delay. Jutsus flew as if they were scattered like candy on Halloween. It was clear both Kagaya and Ai had vastly improved since the start of their training. Both had trained relentlessly in ninjutsu. Kagaya, with her Sharingan, was naturally better at ninjutsu, but she still couldn't match Ai's taijutsu prowess. While the Sharingan gave Kagaya an advantage in anticipating her opponent's moves, the unpredictable, snake-like style Ai learned from Orochimaru allowed her to counteract the Sharingan's effects. The style was so random and fluid that it was extremely difficult for the Sharingan to predict. As a result, the two girls were nearly evenly matched. They had also diligently honed their ninjutsu repertoires, with each mastering multiple C-rank jutsus and a single B-rank jutsu for their respective chakra affinities. Tobirama and Orochimaru had ruthlessly pushed them to practice their jutsus until they could perform each with 20 hand seals or fewer. This was because they believed a high number of hand seals would make them vulnerable during a fight, as many opponents would use that moment to strike. They felt it was a time when a ninja would be distracted and focused more on molding their chakra than on the opponent. As the battle raged on, both Kagaya and Ai realized their chakra reserves were running low. They decided to end the fight by pooling their remaining strength. The two girls joined forces, rapidly forming hand signs together for a cooperation ninjutsu they had been working on. They had planned to surprise their teachers with this new technique and figured now was the perfect time. Oh, Orochimaru stopped about 20 meters away, a look of mild surprise on his face as his students began to perform what looked like a combined technique. Interesting. I suppose I should see what they're capable of. Orochimaru smirked to himself as he watched the two, who were just about done with their preparations. Fire style, majestic flame destroyer, Kagaya declared as she made the final hand seal, gathering all her remaining chakra into her lungs and chest. This was a B-rank fire jutsu she had learned from a scroll Shisui left behind, with the potential to evolve into an S-rank jutsu if enough chakra was channeled. The technique typically involved exhaling a sea of flames. However, Kagaya, with her Sharingan, could better control her chakra and reshape the jutsu. As a result, she unleashed a powerful cylindrical stream of fire from her mouth instead of a wide, chaotic blaze. Ai was not far behind. She finished her hand signs and shouted wind release, vacuum great sphere, her voice carrying easily to Orochimaru. This was a B-rank wind jutsu created by Tobirama, a stronger version of the vacuum sphere. The user compresses their chakra and launches it as a spherical projectile. The damage inflicted depends on the amount of chakra used. The two jutsus collided, but instead of fighting each other, the wind amplified the fire jutsu. This created an even hotter and more massive jet of flames, which resembled a dragon's roar. The sight was breathtaking, and Orochimaru, a ninjutsu enthusiast, was thoroughly impressed. But he also knew he would sustain serious damage if he didn't counter it, since dodging was not an option. The snake sage quickly weaved through hand signs, finally stopping on the bird seal as he inhaled a huge amount of air. Just as the roaring flames closed in, he exhaled a huge snake made of water that slammed into the fire, successfully extinguishing it and filling the field with steam. With a quick wind jutsu, Orochimaru cleared the steam. As his vision returned, he saw the two girls on the ground, out of breath and panting. He smirked and said the words water release, great snake bullet jutsu. This jutsu, a stronger version of the water dragon bullet technique, was an original creation of Orochimaru's. It was based on the water dragon bullet but didn't require a nearby body of water, which also amplified the chakra needed to cast it. He had named it after snakes rather than dragons since he was fond of them. This was a high A rank technique, capable of being boosted to S rank by someone with a high affinity to water like Tobirama or Naruto. The amount of chakra used would also change the results. Your shuriken accuracy has improved as well, AI. That will help you learn more complex fire-based jutsus that require weaponry, like the Phoenix Missile Jutsu. Kaguya, you should focus more on your taijutsu training, as you seem to tire out easily in a physical fight. We'll work on that after graduation. I am impressed with what you two have created. That jutsu is strong enough to be a high A-rank jutsu, but I need you to shorten its creation time. Your opponent won't wait for you to finish the signs. What have you named the jutsu? Orochimaru questioned, motioning for the girls to follow him back to the Senju estate, where Tobirama was waiting for them. The two simply followed, listening intently to their sensei. Unlike many other arrogant clan children in Konoha, these two understood that they could always improve, which is why they never developed a big ego. This humility allowed them to improve so much in such a short amount of time, especially when compared to their peers. AI answered, we both tried to name this jutsu, but our naming sense is worse than Lord Hokage's, he. She ended with an embarrassed laugh, while Kaguya sweat dropped. We'll discuss the name later, Orochimaru said with a light chuckle. They soon reached the courtyard, where the elder Senju was waiting. He turned to Orochimaru and asked, are they ready, to which Orochimaru nodded. As this was happening, Kaguya and AI looked at each other with confused expressions. As you both are about to graduate, you will have to start performing missions regularly, which will reduce your training time. This is why we trained the two of you harder this past year. Now that you are going to graduate, I thought it would be fitting to reward your efforts with this, Tobirama said as he stepped aside to reveal a small chest. Orochimaru moved forward and opened it, revealing two scrolls. Kaguya, since you have enough jutsu for both fire and wind elements, we have decided to give you an S-rank earth element jutsu. Same for AI, but this is an S-rank lightning jutsu. The lightning jutsu was developed by Naruto and IA a while back. The earth jutsu is a special jutsu developed by Orochimaru, Tobirama explained as he motioned for them to come forward. The two were in awe. They hadn't expected to receive a graduation present, much less an S-rank jutsu. They both opened their scrolls and read the names of the jutsus. Earth Release, Hell on Earth Jutsu. Kaguya read from her scroll. AI's scroll read Lightning Release, 10,000 Lightning Bugs Jutsu. Under no circumstances are you to practice this jutsu now. I will personally oversee your training. Both of these jutsus take a huge amount of chakra, so we will first work on increasing your chakra capacities. Right now, you wouldn't be able to perform this jutsu more than once. Orochimaru spoke in a stern voice. We understand, the two girls said seriously. They knew better than to doubt their sensei at this point, even though he looked creepy. Now get out of here, you have your graduation exam in half an hour, Tobirama said as he moved away to do whatever he was going to do, leaving the three of them in the courtyard, looking at him in silence with sweat drops on their heads. But he was right. They were going to graduate today. And with that, a new chapter was about to begin in their lives. Exam Stadium Konoha. If someone entered Konoha right now, they would have a hard time hearing the person next to them. That was the level of noise that resonated throughout the village as the clock struck 9 and the official academy graduation exam began. The exam was being held in the same stadium that hosted the Chunin and Jonin exams annually. Every person who lived in the village had rushed to the stadium, and all the audience seats were completely full. There was a lot of buzz surrounding this year's graduating class, and many of Konoha's shinobi were present as well. There was a time when the academy exam was just a simple test, but now it was an event comparable to the Chunin exams. The students who were about to take the exam were all waiting on the sides of the fighting stage with anticipation. At first, everyone was skeptical of the event, considering that shinobi were supposed to hide their strength. Even though the new seal system prevented a lot of spies from sneaking in, the possibility of rogue ninjas made them nervous. So, a new solution was devised. Every shinobi, from genin to umbu, regardless of their status as a commoner or clan member, would submit themselves for a mental evaluation by the Yamanaka clan. The village elders and civilian council were included in this as well. The Yamanaka clan members themselves were evaluated by a few umbu who were deeply loyal to Minato and knew the Yamanaka clan techniques. This system had been successful so far. Suddenly, the cheers of the villagers went through the roof as they saw a familiar flash of yellow in the center of the arena. Their beloved Hokage, the yellow flash, Minato Namikaze, appeared out of the blue or out of the yellow, in this case. His signature white Haori fluttered in the wind as he smiled at the crowd and waited for them to quiet down. He had to wait a while, as the crowd went wild at his appearance. This proved that even though Minato was quite a terrible father, he was a great Hokage. "Please, quiet down," Minato announced, using his chakra to amplify his voice. The crowd's noise instantly subsided. Silence filled the stadium as Minato began to address them again. "As you all know, we have gathered here today to witness another group of fine young men and women who are about to dedicate their lives to Konoha and join the shinobi forces. However, they need to be prepared for the trials they will face as a shinobi of Konoha, which is why today we shall test their mettle by having them face certain obstacles. If they can overcome them, they will be given their headbands, marking their identities as Konoha shinobi. This will be a new beginning for them." Minato's speech caused the crowd to go wild. They were moved by the passion their Hokage showed for the kids' graduation and couldn't wait to see what would happen next. Even the shinobi who had taken time off, along with those posted as guards around the stadium, smiled as they heard their Hokage speak. It caused them to drift into a moment of nostalgia as they remembered their own academy days and graduation exams. "I would now like to invite Shinin Irika Omino, the academy instructor of this class, to come up and explain the exam procedure to our crowd," the fourth god of shinobi said, gesturing for the Chunin to come up and take the stage. He then moved back to the Hokage's box, where he was joined by the 3 Sunin and a couple of umbu. "Thank you for the honor, Hokage-sama. Good morning to all of you here. We will begin shortly, but first, please allow me to explain how the exam will proceed. First, the students will come in groups of 5 and perform the Academy 3. After that, they will have to perform 3 elemental jutsus, 2 of which need to be E rank and a single D rank. If they wish to earn extra credit, they can perform 2 more jutsus. Credit will be given according to the rank of the jutsu. After this, they will have to spar with a Chunin in a taijutsu fight for 2 minutes. A Chunin will fight 5 students, one at a time. All the Chunin who have been selected for this stage of the exam are of equal strength, so the procedure is fair for everyone. They will be judged by a panel of 3 people, myself, Jonin Akezamai, and the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Irika explained to the crowd, who grew excited to see the different students and how they would perform. The most excited were, without a doubt, the parents of the kids who were about to graduate today. The exams shall begin now. Since the students had already registered before coming into the stadium, we can safely say that everyone is present here. So, let us begin, Irika announced as he left the stage and went down to join Hiruzen and the Jonin. They would grade the students based on their performance. Group 1, Kei Kamado, Shin Kurosaki, Tsukimi, Asuna, Renji Yamada, come forward, Irika announced. And with that, the graduation ceremony began. It was clear how the students were divided, civilians and clan children. This was how the exams had been conducted for the past decade. This was done so that the civilian kids, who had a weaker foundation and less training than the children from different clans, could also pass the exam. The bar set for them was lower than that of the clan children. But in some cases, civilians had been stronger than clan children. This system just helped to smooth out the exam process. The first group of civilian kids was soon tested, and as expected, all of them were quite average. They performed the Academy 3 flawlessly and were proficient enough in the elemental jutsu area. 4 of them performed fire jutsus since many of the students present had an affinity for that element. The only exception was Tsukimi, an orphan girl who also performed a C-rank jutsu, fire style, fireball jutsu. The judges and instructors were quite happy with the results. The taijutsu part of the exam was also nothing extraordinary, as the kids were fighting a Chunin. All of them were able to hold their own against the Chunin for 2 minutes, but anyone from the shinobi side could see the Chunin was holding back. Overall result of the group, all of them passed. With this group done, the second group shall be judged next. Group 2, Sakura, Sai, Kunu, Hana, and Ryota Ohara, please make your way onto the stage, Hiruzen announced as he and his fellow judges waited for the next group to come up on stage and begin the grading process. This group raised quite a few eyebrows, as all of them not only performed the basic Academy 3 perfectly but also performed their jutsus quite well. Kunu and Hana performed fire element jutsus, while Ryota performed earth-style jutsus. Sakura not only performed earth-style jutsus but also performed 2 genjutsus as well. Jonin Akeza volunteered to be the test subject for this one. This was quite a surprise for the judges, as they did not expect her to know how to perform a C-rank genjutsu, since the academy only covered E-rank genjutsus and how to break out of one. This gave her quite a bit of extra credit. However, with the exception of Sai, this group turned out to be not so gifted in the Taijutsu department. And with that done, could we have group 3 please? Kiba Inyazuka, Ino Yamanaka, Shino Aberame, Hinata Hayaga, Shikamaru Nara, Koji Akimichi, you are next. Irika commanded as the mentioned students made their way towards the stage. The shinobi forces in the crowd were more attentive now since these kids were from a clan, and they could sometimes prove to be unpredictable. And oh boy, did they put on a show. Kiba Inyazuka, the second heir to the Inyazuka clan after his older sister, Hana, was up first. He'd always been a little wild and not very book-smart. Still, he proved himself to be a great shinobi. He not only performed the 3 basic jutsu, but he also demonstrated 3 earth-style jutsus. This was unusual for his clan, which typically focused on perfecting their clan techniques, but it seemed Kiba wanted to be extra prepared for life as a shinobi. In the Chunin sparring match, Kiba's use of his clan's special techniques forced his opponent to use 80% of their power, a feat only Sai had achieved until now. All things considered, he was more than ready for the shinobi life ahead of him. Koji Akimichi performed similarly to Kiba, which wasn't surprising, given that both of their clans specialize in taijutsu and aren't particularly well-versed in elemental ninjutsu. However, he did perform 3 fire-style jutsus in addition to his clan's body enlargement jutsu, earning him extra points. Hinata Hayaga gave an excellent taijutsu demonstration. Using her Byakugan and Gentle Fist, she was able to shut off the Tenketsu in her sparring partner's left arm, causing him harm. She didn't win the match, but she was very close, and if the fight had lasted 1 more minute, she definitely would have. She was exempt from the ninjutsu portion of the test because her clan has strict rules forbidding the practice of ninjutsu. They truly believed their Gentle Fist was unmatched and that ninjutsu would only be a hindrance. Fools. Shino Aberame was next, and he did exceptionally well, at least by genin standards. He not only performed the basic jutsus meticulously with minimal chakra loss, but he also demonstrated multiple clan techniques using the special bugs they cultivate. His taijutsu also impressed the Chunin. Instead of using brute force like the 3 before him, Shino focused on countering his opponent's blows while sneakily implanting insects in his clothing. This caused the Chunin to lose a good amount of chakra, allowing Shino to earn bonus points for his intelligence and clever fighting style. Ino Yamanaka was a good shinobi compared to the average genin, but as a clan heiress, much more was expected of her. She could perform her clan techniques and earth-style jutsus well, but she fell short in the taijutsu portion of the exam. While she didn't lose, she could have done much better, something her father, who watched from the stands with a frown, vowed to address. Then came Shikamaru Nara, who stole the show. Despite his lazy demeanor, he performed exceptionally well in the ninjutsu portion of the exam, demonstrating both fire style and his clan's shadow style techniques. When it came to taijutsu, everyone, including his father, Shikaka Nara, assumed he would put in minimal effort, just as he did in the academy. But he proved them all wrong. Much like Shino, he focused on countering his opponent. Afterward, he used a smoke bomb as a distraction along with a set of shuriken to keep his opponent occupied, using that moment to cast his shadow style, puppet control jutsu and make his opponent give up. The crowd gave him a standing ovation for that. That was a roller coaster. These kids have certainly improved. Now for the last group: Menma Namikaze, Natsumai Namikaze, Mito Uzumaki, Ai Hayasaka Hayaga, Suzuki Uchiha, and Kagaya Uchiha. Please, come up for your assessment, Irika announced, eager to grade the kids and go home. It was getting late, after all. The crowd, on the other hand, wanted more. The cheers were especially loud since the Hokage children were about to perform. Menma went first and managed to live up to his Namikaze name. Despite having large chakra reserves due to the presence of the 9 tails within him, the boy performed the substitution jutsu and the henge jutsu perfectly, but chose to go with the shadow clone jutsu instead of the regular one, earning him extra credit. He showed off his mastery of 3 C-rank water jutsus, an affinity he inherited from his mother. His taijutsu was also commendable, which Sarutobi noted was similar to Jiraiya's toad-style taijutsu. All in all, he performed well. Natsumai's performance was similar to Menma's, which wasn't a surprise given that they were both trained by the same person and shared the same affinity. However, she also proved she could use the Uzumaki sword techniques to a certain extent, and while she was not even close to mastering it, she could hold her own against a Chunin. Mito Uzumaki was up next, performing quite similarly to her siblings, though she proved she not only had better chakra control, but also a much wider range of jutsus. It wasn't much of a shock to the judges, as they were told she was one of the few to possess an affinity for multiple elements. She was also a lethal taijutsu fighter, which was expected since she was a student of Tsunade Senju, a woman known for her medical talents and monstrous punches. Ai Hayasaka Hayaga went up after Mito, and the less said about her, the better. She performed flawlessly in the ninjutsu portion of the test. In addition to showing off jutsus of 2 elements, the third was her trump card. She also performed a B-rank jutsu. This shocked the shinobi forces, as they knew how much chakra a single B-rank jutsu required. But now, a 16-year-old academy student was also capable of performing one, which made them doubt their own abilities. Her taijutsu performance, however, was the real shocker. She defeated her Chunin opponent within 45 seconds of the match starting. By coating her fingers with a small amount of wind chakra, she was able to recreate the gentle fist style of the Hyuga clan, but this one was based on acupuncture and the disruption of nerve and muscle cells. The audience, including the Hyuga clan, was shocked to see this. When the judges questioned her, she simply said that it was something she and her sensei had come up with. It was understandable why she didn't disclose any more information, since this could prove to be extremely deadly if Konoha's enemies caught wind of it. Another great student was up next, Suzuki Uchiha. He was the younger brother of Itachi Uchiha, and everyone knew that if he was even half of what his brother was, he would become a great shinobi. Showing off his Uchiha genes, the boy arrogantly activated his Sharingan, which had progressed to 2 tomo due to rigorous training and the grief he felt after his clan was massacred. He showed off a good mastery of fire-style jutsus as well as a few lightning-style jutsus, though that was pretty much expected of an Uchiha with the Sharingan. His taijutsu was also able to force the Chunin on defense, indicating a sufficient mastery of his clan's taijutsu techniques. His sister and fellow prodigy, Kagaya Uchiha, went next. She was crowned Kunoichi of the Year with Shikamaru as the Shinobi of the Year, so everyone was excited to see the kind of show she would put on, and boy, did she deliver. The girl performed similarly to her brother, but her Sharingan was completely matured, shocking everyone, since no one knew she had awakened it. Not only did she show excellent mastery of 2 of her elemental affinities like AI, but she also performed a B-rank fire jutsu. The Uchihas in the crowd were proud and shocked at the same time. As for her taijutsu, just like Shikamaru, she too beat her sparring partner, using a combination of genjutsu and making full use of the capabilities of her eyes, proving that she too was beyond Chunin level, along with Shikamaru and AI. With this, the examinations are over, and you have all passed. Congratulations, and I hope you all become splendid shinobis, Hiruzen announced as Irika and the Jonin began distributing the Konoha headbands to all the kids. The crowd gave all of them a standing ovation and soon began to trickle out of the stadium, chatting with each other with vigor and excitement. The Hokage also gave a speech on how proud he was of the students and how they would become pillars of Konoha Gakure in the future. He told them that team placements would begin in a week, and with that, the ceremony ended. Uchiha Clan Compound, Fugaku POV. The Uchiha clan, one of the founding clans of Konoha. They had had it rough for the past decade, especially since the Nine Tails attack. The elders didn't trust them, and neither did the other clans, which is what led to their downfall. After Danzo's attack, they lost over 60% of the shinobi from their clan, who had been buried in their sacred cemetery. Not only that, but they also lost another one of their rising stars, Shisui Uchiha, to that bastard. Fugaku's wife, Mikado, took his death the hardest since he was her nephew, and while he didn't admit it, he could see how his eldest son had also felt the death of his dear friend, considering the fact that his eyes had changed from the usual 3 tomo to a different, more sinister pattern. He had a long talk with Itachi about this, which eventually led to the two of them exchanging their eyes, awakening the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, a secret that was kept between the two of them only. Suzuki, his youngest son, became more arrogant and cold-hearted, his drive for revenge and his hatred for Danzo pushing his boundaries. But his daughter had changed the most. While he didn't talk to her often, he kept an eye on her. After all, she was his daughter. But ever since that dreadful day, she had changed. She reminded him more and more of his own mother, an S-rank Umbu captain. He wanted to speak with her, but his wife stopped him, knowing that he would definitely mess this up, too. But today, after he saw how utterly she demolished her competition except maybe Hayashi's other daughter, he was stunned. She not only knew amazing jutsus, but her genjutsu was on point as well. Plus, she possessed a fully matured Sharingan. At age 16, this proved that she was a prodigy he and the rest of the clan had done nothing but ignore. But not anymore. Later, at dinner. After quite some time, all the members of Fugaku's household were sitting around the dining table, with various expressions on their faces. Mikato was happily serving food to all of her family members, happy that after a long time, her entire family was sitting in the same room together. Itachi was staring at Kagaya and Suzuki every few seconds, checking on how they were feeling after graduating today. Fugaku was sitting with his hands folded and constantly looking at Kagaya, but ignorance was the only thing he received in return. Suzuki was angrily staring at his inferior sister, since she had completely outshined him today. Kagaya simply ate without giving a damn. "Can you stop staring at me?" Kagaya spoke as she looked her father and twin brother in the eye, annoyed after their constant staring, which had been going on for more than 15 minutes now. "After you answer my questions," Fugaku said calmly. "What is there to answer? Shouldn't you be happy I have a Sharingan?" Kagaya explained, frustration clear in her voice. Itachi and Mikato were about to jump in, but Fugaku told them off. "You were diagnosed with the lowest chances of awakening our prized dojutsu in all of Uchiha history. I think we need to know, Fugaka said, something that angered Kagaya to the point that her Sharingan naturally activated. She was about to go off, when she calmed down. Tobirama had taught her how to control her emotions well. After all, you know what, I am done. You never cared for me as a kid, and you certainly don't right now. Because if you did, you would have congratulated me for graduating and awakening our prized dojutsu. Instead, you interrogate me. I am done with my dinner, and I don't need to answer to you. Go to hell, Kagaya said, as she slammed her chopsticks down and left, Mikado following behind her soon as she glared at her oaf of a husband. Itaka followed behind her. Suzuki just grunted and continued eating, not bothered with anything that was going on in his family. His mind was focused only on getting stronger and beating Danzo. Fugaku couldn't help but sigh. He messed it up again. He really needed to consult an empathy, most likely his friend Inoichi, on how to have a cordial conversation with his daughter and how to become closer to her as a father. The next day, a shock filled the village once again. But this time, it wasn't due to the massacre of a clan, but something even more shocking. The Hyuga clan elders attempted to kill Orochimaru and Ai Hayasaka Hyuga, however, they were intercepted and are now awaiting execution in prison. They were also involved in a lot of shady business in the past, including the killing of Hayashi's first wife and a member of the Hayasaka clan of the Fire Capital, a relative of the daimyo. Yup, they were screwed. A month later. It had been over a month since the highly anticipated graduation exams, and it did serve its purpose. It not only boosted the morale of the civilians of Konoha and reaffirmed their faith in their shinobi forces and Hokage, but it also influenced all the shinobi who viewed the exams with their own two eyes to work harder than ever and reach new heights. Because if they remained stagnant, then these kids would definitely overtake them. They couldn't let that happen as seniors. As for the students who graduated, this month had been complete hell for most of them. After they were divided into teams, Team 7, Sakura, Suzuki, Sai, Team 8, Hinata, Shino, Kiba, Team 10, the Inoshikacho Trio, Team 11, the Hokage Kids, and Team 12, Kagaya and AI, all of them were tested by their Jonin senseis. And while many of them did well as shinobi, they lacked a key factor in themselves, teamwork. Team 7 completely sucked at it, and it was only because Sai used force to make the two idiots on his team work together that they passed. Teams 8 and 10 were decent at it, though there were frequent disagreements. This was to be expected due to the conflicting personalities of the different members of both teams. Team 11 was fairly decent, but they were too reckless and lacked something that was essentially the lifeline of a shinobi, stealth. Menma and Natsumai were too hyper, while Mito, who was usually calm in most situations, got angry at them quite easily, making it difficult for Kushina to manage them. It felt like she was back to babysitting toddlers and not training future leaders of the shinobi forces of Konoha. She would definitely have a talk with Minato, maybe he would be able to get these kids in line. Team 12 was by far the best out of all the rookies. Not only did they not have any problems regarding teammates or anything, but they had already fulfilled the conditions to go on a C-rank mission. As shinobi of Konoha, there were a few rules set in place that they needed to follow, especially during times of peace. All shinobi had to complete at least 35 D-rank missions to get permission from the Hokage to proceed with a C-rank. They then had to complete 25 C-ranks to get a B-rank, 15 B-ranks to get an A-rank mission, and finally 5 A-ranks to get an S-rank. This system was put in place during peaceful times so that Konoha wouldn't lose their shinobi early in their life simply because either they or their Jonin sensei was arrogant enough to take them on a mission way beyond their limits. Anyway, about Team 12, the reason they were able to finish these missions so quickly was due to the fact that they were proficient enough in the art of making multiple shadow clones, something not everyone was capable of. This allowed them to breeze through the D-rank missions, while they spent their time training and preparing to become stronger. When it came to their individual training, Orochimaru put them through hell. For Kagaya, who had a repertoire of jutsus to rely on, he focused more on her physical conditioning. He had often observed that the Uchiha heiress preferred ninjutsu over taijutsu any day, but when she was low on chakra, her preference caused massive problems for her. This did not sit well with him, and he put her on a tiring schedule that would make Might Guy cry his heart out with joy. For AI, on the other hand, he had her spend hours in the jutsu library reserved for Konoha shinobi and made her master 5 more jutsus for each of her affinities. It was a good thing that she was capable of creating 3 shadow clones, the same as Kagaya, otherwise, this would have been a very difficult task for her. I think this is a pretty solid number because even adult Suzuki can only create approximately 10 to 15 clones. All in all, everything was going well for the young rookies. Which brings us to today. Where are we going, sensei? Kagaya questioned as she walked beside her friend and teammate while their sensei led them through Training Ground 44, also known as the Forest of Death. They had been told the day before to skip their usual meeting point and instead meet the Snake Sage at the entrance to one of the deadliest places in Konoha for a shinobi who is at Chunin level or below. While the two of you have no doubt improved drastically, you haven't had any experience in something that is crucial to the existence of a shinobi. And that is the resolve to take the life of another human. Orochimaru spoke up as he looked over his shoulder at the girls, who had suddenly adopted a nervous expression on their faces. They knew that they would one day have to take a life, but knowing something and doing something were two different things entirely. Usually, most Konoha shinobi are taken on bandit camp extermination missions to draw their first blood in battle. However, this has proved hazardous on occasions when the person froze up after killing their opponent, leaving them wide open for an attack by another. This is the reason this system was established by the second Hokage. The place we are going right now is filled with prisoners who have been sentenced to death. You will be their executioner today, and tomorrow, we will be back at it, Orochimaru explained as he quickened his pace, the girls following behind him. Soon, they made it to the prison where the worst of the worst who ever come face to face with Konoha shinobi were held captive. The structure of the building was menacing as well. A massive gray building on the hills past the forest of death, along with an execution stand that stood proudly on the side of it. It certainly looked like a prison. After a quick chat with the warden, Orochimaru and the girls were led to a room where they found 4 men, tied up and gagged, but their masks had been taken off so that the girls could see their faces when they died. The strange thing was that all of them seemed prepared, and honestly, they would have preferred dying like this instead of slowly passing from torture over time. Kaguya went first, with AI cheering her on as she flicked a kunai into her hands. She wanted to be as efficient and quick as possible, but sadly, she didn't apply enough pressure the first time she stabbed the man through his chest, having to stab him once more. She had a faraway look in her eyes, especially when she saw the life drain out of his eyes, but she steeled herself and moved on to the next one. She killed this one using a simple fireball jutsu, something which Orochimaru had ordered her to do because he knew that the screams of the person haunt them throughout their life and he wanted to get this over with. AI went next and, just like Kaguya, she too had to kill one with a kunai and the other with a fireball jutsu. Not much was said between the trio as they quickly went back, with Kaguya taking off in the direction of her house to speak with her mother and Itaki, while Orochimaru consoled AI the best he could. Hopefully, the girls would bounce back from it quickly enough. At the same time, in the mist, are you sure you want to leave? You can stay here like royalty.